Izumi is a gloomy, antisocial emo who has no life or friends. However, his life takes a turn when the most popular girl notices that under the emo act, he's actually a Gojo Satoru level of handsome. Now, she will do anything to get his attention before all the girls of the school fight for his 6 inches. Before they meet, it was the middle of the semester and everyone in class heard the same thing from the teacher, who told them to enjoy their last summer freely. The girls start talking about hanging out after school. Yuki the blonde tells her friend Kyuko, the popular one, that another boy asked for her number, and rejects the simp's attempt, as he has no guts to ask her himself. When Kyuko stands up to leave, her phone slips and lands right in front of Izumi, the suspicious emo guy in class, and he picks it up for her. When he leaves, people whisper that Izumi's a geek, maybe even a crazy otaku, but no one really knows what goes on behind those long curtain bangs of his. Then Kyuko goes home, but unlike other popular girls, Kyuko doesn't have the luxury to hang out with her friends and talk about cute boys. She spends her time taking care of her little brother, living a humbly home life. Later that day, when her little brother Shota comes home, blood drips from his nose. Kyuko rushes to him, only to realize someone else brought him back. A handsome guy stands there, emo-looking and full of piercings. He's ready to leave now that Shota is safe, but Shota holds on to him, and Kyuko asks him to stay a moment so she can thank him. They sit down, and the guy says he's impressed that Kyuko can manage the house all by herself. Suddenly, Kyuko realizes that the guy calls her by her name and even knows her school and class. She asks if they go to the same school, and he answers casually that he's Izumi. Kyuko can't believe that the suspicious quiet guy in class isn't a creepy shut-in who goons a lot, but instead a handsome cool emo. The next day, she's still in disbelief, and Yuki notices her weird mood, but Kyuko just stands up and does something no one expects, walking straight over and talking to Izumi. On a quiet balcony, Kyuko and Izumi talk. She says Shota wants him to come visit again, and Izumi is surprised she talks to him again after yesterday. She admits it's a little awkward, but that there's no reason to avoid him. She saw how different he was outside school, and she knows firsthand that she's not that different herself. Izumi smiles, feeling honestly flustered, as he's not used to someone treating him so casually. Kyuko tells him it's no big deal, and even suggests that he style his hair the way he did yesterday. But Izumi refuses, as his piercings would show if he tied it up. From then on, it just became a routine where Izumi visits Kyuko's house after school, and during those first few visits, she learns a lot about Izumi, from how he likes manga, but he's not an obsessive otaku, how his family owns a cake shop, and how he got his first piercing in middle school, and how he's not actually smart despite the glasses. One day, while Izumi's over, Kyoko looks at a supermarket pamphlet and sees that eggs are on sale, but the discount ends tomorrow. Izumi warns her that the deal ends at 4 p.m. sharp, but Kyuko is confident that she can make it, but the anime gods hate her and set her a meeting with the council. But not wanting to lose the deal, Kyuko texts Izumi to get the eggs, as she figures he'd come visit Shota anyway. He agrees, and with 20 minutes to spare, Izumi dashes out, changes his appearance mid-run, and jumps the back gate, right in front of Yuki, rizzing her accidentally. He manages to get the eggs, but after battling Karens for them, Izumi never wants to do it again, but Kyoko truly appreciates it. Izumi casually mentions running into Yuki, and he hopes she doesn't recognize him, but something in Kyoko's chest twists, and she doesn't want anyone to see that side of him. She blurts it out louder than intended, and then awkwardly runs to the kitchen, but Izumi understands. He tells her he doesn't want anyone to see her other side either. As the one who cooks, cleans, and gets mad at little things, he wants to keep that mama bear version of her all to himself, but Kyuko can't handle the honesty, and she smacks him as she's too flustered to hear that from him. Then gym class comes and the students go swimming, but Izumi panics as it means that everyone will see his everything, including his tattoo. He shows it to her, a huge one, covering his left side, and Kyuko is speechless, thinking that he's brave or just dumb as bricks. Then, in class, Yuki and Toru start noticing how close Kyuko and Izumi have become. Toru pulls Izumi aside and casually asks if he's dating her, and Izumi immediately says no. Toru points out how different they are, and Izumi agrees half-heartedly. Izumi then guesses that Toru likes Kyuko, and he admits that he does, which puts both guys stuck in awkward conversations until their friend Shu calls them to get ready for gym class. While changing, Toru asks why Izumi always wears a jacket, and not wanting to get pressed further, Izumi shows him what he's been hiding. Toru flips, questioning how a guy like Izumi has a full tattoo. Toru starts examining him, from his nice face to his piercings, and wonders whether this bum is the kind of guy Kyuko likes. The two end up talking more than expected, and Toru promises to keep Izumi's tattoo a secret, but he can't help wondering how they got so close. Izumi just says it's been that way for a while, and he thinks Kyuko is just being kind. After hearing that, Toru asks for permission to confess, and Izumi tells him it's up to Kyuko to choose. In the end, both boys skip gym class, leaving Yuki stuck with cleaning duty, and she is furious. Then, for the rest of the day, Izumi keeps his distance from Kyuko, as he knows how Toru has plans to meet Kyuko and confess to her after school. So he offers to pick up Shota instead, but leaves Kyuko for Toru, and he confesses to her. Back home, Izumi is getting ready to leave when Kyuko comes home, but she's pissed after hearing that Izumi told Toru that she was just being kind to him. Izumi stands by his words, as he believes he's too different from her, and he's hurting her reputation just by being around. Suddenly, Kyoko snaps, and she smacks him again. She tells him that he matters more than he realizes, as he often helps her wake up early, make sure no food gets wasted, and she likes being around him. And as for Toru, she tells Izumi that she turned him down.
Let's go!
Days later, Kyuko takes Izumi out to buy groceries, and the two start to get really close. On their way back home, Kyuko sees an anime poster and casually hums part of the theme song. Izumi notices and says she's surprisingly good at it. Kyuko awkwardly denies it by slapping him on the face, but Izumi doesn't even flinch anymore as he's gotten used to it. She explains it's because Shota always plays that song, so she just remembers it. But when Izumi asks what kind of songs she actually likes, she goes quiet, and the truth is, she doesn't really know any other songs besides the ones Shota always plays. Then, when Kyuko gets back home, she's surprised to find her mom there. As for once, their mom actually has time to come home. Shota tells her everything that's happened from the guy who saved him, how he's actually Kyuko's friend from school, and how he's always visiting their house now. When their mom asks Kyuko about this guy, Kyuko describes Izumi like he's a villain nutjob in a detective story, but their mom just laughs and becomes even more curious. She asks for his name, and that's when Kyuko realizes something strange, that she doesn't know Izumi's full name, and she's only ever called him by his last name. That tiny detail nags at her, and Kyuko hates being curious like this, but asking Izumi directly would mean setting aside her pride, so she refuses to do that. Then during gym class, she comes up with an idea, and as everyone's changing, Kyuko sneaks a peek into the boys' locker room, hoping to hear someone call Izumi by his full name. Shu catches her immediately. Yuki even calls her a bit of a degenerate, but Kyuko doesn't deny it. Later, she checks the list of top-ranking students, but remembers Izumi's a bit of a small brain, so there's no way his name is on that list. Just then, Tor pops up to greet her, and when Kyuko wants to ask him about Izumi, Toru gets reminded of his rejection and runs away in tears. Then at dinner, Kyuko can't stop thinking about Izumi's full name. Her mom suggests inviting him over, as it's the weekend after all, and she'd love to meet him properly. That gives Kyuko an idea that if he comes over, her mother can just ask him. The next day, Izumi shows up, and he's a little surprised by how enthusiastic Kyuko's mom is to meet him. She sends Kyuko out for groceries on purpose, just so she can speak to Izumi privately and thank him for helping both Kyuko and Shota. When Kyuko returns, her mom's already gone back to work, and Shota is happily eating the cake Izumi brought from his family's shop. Izumi casually mentions that her mom called him by his first name, and Kyuko, suddenly curious, asks what name she used, but she didn't get an answer, and instead Izumi teases her, saying she's been acting weird like when she was peeking into the boys' locker room. Then he asks if she has someone she likes in that locker room, but Kyuko doesn't want to admit anything, so she explains the truth. Izumi bursts out laughing, knowing that she did all that for his name. He borrows a pen, writes his full name on a tissue, and hands it to her, knowing that it's too awkward to call him by his first name. Kyuko sticks with his last name. Then she throws it back at him, asking if he even knows her first name, and to her surprise he does, which makes Kyuko feel a little childish, and they both end up laughing it off. A few days later, Kyuko gets a task from the student council, assigned by Kakeru and Sakura, who explain that since the new members can't handle it properly, they count on Kyuko, who's always reliable. She can't say no, so she agrees, and for days, she keeps doing the work, so much that even Yuki starts to worry. Toru and Izumi pity her from afar, but they can't even help, as they're both useless anyway. Izumi mentions that maybe Kyuko's doing all this for Kakeru's approval, as he is the smartest and hottest guy around. Just then, another council member, Remi, shows up and asks about the paperwork Kyuko is handling. After Kyuko hands her the documents, Yuki spills that Remi is just the useless council mascot who is Kakeru's girlfriend, and all of her responsibilities end up dumped on Kyuko. Kyuko agrees but doesn't protest, as, after all, Remi wouldn't be able to do the job anyway. Seeing how drained Kyuko is, Izumi thinks about bringing her a cake after school, but suddenly Remi runs past him and accidentally drops a bunch of paperwork. Izumi helps her gather it, but she's in such a rush that she tells him to just toss the last one, thinking it's not important, and runs off. But Izumi holds on to it, knowing that it's not just trash. That night, Kyuko stays late, finishing the last of her paperwork, and the next morning, disaster strikes. A crowd gathers in front of the classroom, and Izumi arrives to see Kyuko defending herself against the council. She says she submitted all the reports the council asked for, but Kakeru, Sakura, and Remi stand there, claiming they didn't receive anything from her. Yuki immediately pulls Izumi in, and Toru insists Kyuko is being wrongly accused. Kakeru claims that Remi never got the budget report, and accuses Kyoko of being sloppy. At first, Kyoko fights back, but eventually admits she's so tired she can't even remember how many reports she's finished. The whispers start and everyone begins blaming her, taking the side of the all-popular Kakeru. Toru's already pissed, and Yuki steps up to defend her too, saying Kyuko has worked non-stop for days, but no one listens, and they still want her to apologize for something she didn't do. That's when Izumi steps in. He hands his bag and glasses to Toru and walks up to Kakeru. Without a word, he grabs Kakeru's tie and smashes their foreheads together. Everyone goes silent, and Kakeru is too stunned to speak. Izumi then pulls out the paper Remi dropped yesterday and reveals that she told him to throw it away. Remi starts to deny it, but then remembers, realizing that she really did mess up. Her confidence crumbles, and she apologizes. Kakeru and Sakura prepare to scold her, and in the end, they all apologize to Kyuko for the morning chaos. Kyuko thanks Izumi and Toru still asks why he had to headbutt Kakeru. Izumi just says he got pissed for a second. Then he asks Kyuko why Kakeru seems to be her weakness. Kyuko looks away and awkwardly says it's because she respects the student council president, and also because they're childhood friends. She reveals that she always teased Kakeru since they were kids, but before graduating middle school, he said that if she didn't start treating him respectfully, he'd expose how bossy she really was, so she had no choice but to go along with it. The next day, Izumi becomes Kakeru's new fear, and she starts tweaking at the sight of him. Later, during gym class, Toru and Izumi play ping pong while casually talking about Kyuko's birthday, which happens during spring break. That night, Izumi seriously considers what to get Kyuko for her birthday. Meanwhile, Kyuko gets asked by Shouta if Izumi will keep visiting them, and she doesn't know the answer, which makes her question when he will stop visiting them. Shouta tells her he would be sad if Izumi stopped visiting, and Kyuko admits that she would feel the same way. Then, when her birthday arrives, Izumi comes to visit, and he brings her a CD full of his favorite songs, which, deep down, is exactly the present that she wanted. And just like that, her birthday also marks the end of spring break, which means their final year has officially begun. For the longest time, Izumi never likes the idea of school, friends, or teachers. Since he's a little jit, no one ever tries to get close to him. Even the teachers seem to isolate him on purpose, making groups in class just to show how unwanted he is. He carries that pain with him, and he makes his first piercing as a symbol of it. By high school, the whispers behind his back never stop, and he hears them all too clearly. But then a girl talked to him, Kyuko, and she was the first person who ever tried to talk to him and treated him normally. Now in their third year, Izumi, Kyuko, Yuki, and Toru are still in the same class, and while the others chat casually excited about all of them being in the same class, Izumi still wonders whether he really belongs in this group. When the teacher announces a group project, Izumi braces himself for the worst, remembering how he used to be the odd one out. But then, without hesitation, Kyuko, Toru, and Yuki gather around him to make a group of 4, which is something he had never had before. At lunch, Izumi slips away to the rooftop to think, and Toru finds him easily. Still caught in his thoughts, Izumi asks what Toru thinks of him. Toru, annoyed by his shy face, answers bluntly that he doesn't like how close Izumi is to Kyuko, doesn't like his muttering, finds him freaky sometimes, and hates how Izumi is always so nice that Toru can't leave him alone. With his long hair and pretty face, Izumi is prettier than most girls, and Izumi's reactions are also annoying to Toru. Then Toru asks why Izumi still calls him by his last name, even though they're close now. Izumi tries to say Toru's first name but blushes, and the moment turns awkward for both of them. Izumi admits he's never called anyone by their first name before, and Toru calls him weird, which reminds him of his dark past, but says he doesn't hate him at all. In that moment, Izumi wishes he could go back and tell his younger self that everything turns out okay. The next day, because Shirata has started school, Kyuko has to become an early riser and arrive at school early. While lost in thought, Remi suddenly plops down in front of Kyuko, and acting overly friendly, she asks about her relationship with Izumi. Kyuko, caught off guard, says there's nothing going on. Then Remi gives a strange, suspicious smile and declares she'll take Izumi, since there's nothing between them. Kyuko is confused by her statement, and Remi explains that since Kyuko is not dating Izumi, she wants to date him. Then Kyuko starts imagining Remi and Izumi together, and she can't accept it. She quickly tells Remi that Kyuko belongs to her. Remi, unfazed, insists she'll still go for him, as Izumi isn't Kyuko's boyfriend, so she can't claim him. That's when Kyuko stands up and says that she won't let anyone have Izumi. The rest of the day, Kyuko can't stop thinking about her own words, and about Izumi. Back home, Izumi drops by with cake, but Shota isn't home. And ever since he started playing outside more, Kyuko and Izumi have been spending more time together, and that day they watched horror movies. Kyuko discovers that Izumi is a total scaredy cat, that even a ringtone makes him jump. Things escalate when the power goes out, and Kyuko calmly says it'll come back soon. And it does. Izumi feels embarrassed, but Kyuko keeps going to tease him, and she even lines up 5 horror movies to watch. Trying to change the subject, Izumi brings up Kyuko's hands, something Yuki mentioned in class. Yuki compared her hands to Kyuko's and noticed hers were smaller. Toru joked that even compared to a guy's hand, Kyuko's are tiny. Kyuko placed her hand against his but warned him not to dare try holding it, unless he wanted a fingerless hand. Then Izumi and Kyuko do the same hand comparison, and Kyuko makes the first move and holds his hand. When he grabs hers back, she tells him she loves him, but quickly says that she loves his hand. Izumi knows what she really means, but doesn't push her. Instead, he says he loves her too, and adds that he likes her hand as well. They both know it's not just about holding hands. Back at school, Rimi chats with Sakura about how Kyuko boldly claimed over Izumi. Rimi says she was just teasing, but it clearly triggered Kyuko's true feelings. Meanwhile, Toru overhears it all, and he feels conflicted. The next day, Izumi comes to school with a bruise on his cheek, and Kyuko asks what happened. He says he got into a fight with Toru, and Kyuko is ready to chew Toru out. But when he walks in, he looks worse than Izumi. Yuki pulls Izumi aside, while Kyuko goes to talk to Toru. Izumi explains he took the first punch, but the rest was self-defense, and unfortunately, he ends up hurting Toru pretty badly. Toru, meanwhile, tells Kyuko that it's not about who started it or who won, The night before, they were hanging out in Izumi's room, and Toru brought up what he heard from Remi, and how Kyuko liked Izumi. Izumi denied it, saying they're just friends, and that he thinks Toru is overthinking things, as they won't know the truth unless Kyuko says it herself. That frustrates Toru. He slams the table and punches Izumi. Izumi's colder side comes out, and he fights back, but Toru quickly gives up, admitting he's been too pushy, and he feels bad about it. Izumi also apologizes, saying that he's been too harsh, and in the end, they forgive each other, as boys will be boys. Then the girls talk about it, and while Kyuko doesn't know why they fought, Yuki does, as Izumi told her previously that they fought over Kyuko. Some days later, as Toru is about to head home, a stack of papers suddenly rains down from the student council room, and Sakura is there. Toru hands them back to her, and he asks if doing everything alone is difficult. Sakura only smiles, saying everyone has their own tasks, whether it's Kakuru or Remi. Toru casually praises her, saying she's amazing for managing everything by herself, even when no one notices. Sakura looks away, flustered by the unexpected compliment. Later outside the school, Toru meets up with Izumi, and Kyuko has given Izumi an ice cream to share, but Kyuko heads home ahead of them. Toru lights up when he hears it's from Kyuko, until he sees the flavor being melon, which he hates. Just then, Kakuru happens to walk by, and the two call him over and offer the ice cream instead. Kakuru doesn't have a reason to say no, so he joins them, and they end up chatting about random things. When Kakuru mentions Remi and Sakura, Toru suddenly wonders why there are so many girls on the student council. And that's when a wild idea strikes that Kakuru has built his own harem empire. Kakuru immediately denies the accusation, but Toru teases him, saying even the student council's air conditioner is under his divine rule. With a sigh, Kakuru says they're welcome to chill in the council room if they want, but he instantly regrets that, as the very next day, Toru and Izumi bring everyone to hang out in the room. Izumi and Kyuko lose at rock, paper, scissors, so the two have to go buy drinks while the rest wait inside. While they're gone, Remi brings up Izumi and Kyuko's relationship. Neither Toru nor Yuki has a clear answer. Remi keeps pressing, even suggesting Kyuko might be a better fit for Toru. Toru lights up at the idea, but Yuki quickly brings him back to reality by reminding him that he got rejected. That's when Sakura realizes for the first time that Toru likes Kyuko. When Yuki asks why it's taking so long to get drinks, the group starts throwing out absurd theories about what might be happening. Their wild guesses make Toru even more anxious, but Yuki tries to reassure him, saying maybe they just dropped some coins or something. Toru ruffles her hair in gratitude, touched by her optimism, but the gesture makes Sakura look away. When Izumi and Kyuko return with the drinks, Izumi immediately apologizes to Toru, saying that he didn't mean to do it. Already suspicious, Toru assumes that Kyuko got clapped, so he runs off before Izumi can explain. He misunderstands what Izumi did, thinking he did the freaky with Kyuko, but to his surprise, his cola explodes in his face, and they explain that Izumi accidentally dropped it before, hence why he apologized. Everyone bursts out laughing, and Sakura hands him a wet tissue with a small smile. Later that evening, Izumi is studying at Kyoko's house. Unfortunately, her AC is broken, and Izumi says he's used to it, as he usually sleeps shirtless anyway. That catches Kyuko off guard, and she remembers how casually he showed his tattoo before. Then she wonders whether she should really be the one getting flustered just because a guy shows his body. So she tries something and asks Izumi to show her the tattoo again. Izumi, ever straightforward, begins to strip, but Kyuko yells at him, telling him not to just strip because someone asks him to, especially without questioning why. She then asks if he's always this open to other people, and Izumi awkwardly nods. That leads to another question, but Izumi cuts her off and asks directly what she's trying to get at. Kyuko admits she's never seen him flustered, and it's always her who gets embarrassed. Izumi says he can get nervous too, like when he runs into an old friend Shindo. Shindo says he's proud of Izumi, but Izumi doesn't quite get why, so he teases Izumi about going on dates with his girlfriend. Izumi gets flustered and assures him that he's not dating Kyuko, but Shindo refuses to believe that, and it ends with Shindo believing that Izumi is dating Kyuko. Izumi promises that he'll explain to Shindo that they aren't like that, but deep down, Kyuko is kind of okay with it. Just then, Shindo suddenly texts a picture of himself and his girlfriend, and invites Izumi on a double date. Izumi can't hide his reaction. Kyuko sees it and tries to peek at the message, but Izumi panics, hides his phone, even snaps at her for a second. Then he calls Shindo just to shush him and hangs up. It's the first time Kyuko has ever heard Izumi yell at her, and she's surprised. Now she can't help but wonder what Izumi was really like back then. Days later, on her way home with groceries, Kyuko runs into Shindo, and while she doesn't know who he is, he knows who she is. In that moment, Izumi is out with Toru, and Toru notices Kyuko talking with a stranger. Recognizing Shindo, Izumi runs up and slaps him like he's Chris Rock. Shindo doesn't mind, and he just rubs his cheek and asks to be introduced to Kyuko. Izumi reluctantly introduces him as his old friend who's still in the second grade. But when Toru asks who he is, Izumi just shakes his head. Kyuko finally realizes Shindo's grade, and he casually admits he's failed the exams and got held back for being a ding-dong idiot. But Shindo defends himself, saying his school is tough, as it's one of the best in town. Even so, he says he's jealous of Izumi, who seems to be enjoying his school life. Kyuko can't take the heat anymore and says she's heading home, but Shindo suggests going to a restaurant so they can chill under the air conditioner. On the way, Izumi remembers when Shindo first spoke to him. It's after a class switch, and someone bumps into Izumi and makes him drop his books. He's already having a rough day, but Shindo helps pick up the books and mispronounces his name. That irritates Izumi, but somehow, that's the star of their relationship, as Shindo keeps hanging around. Izumi overheard some of Shindo's friends asking him why he's hanging out with Izumi, but Shindo just brushed it off, saying he'll come back to them if he wants to. In the end, Shindo's presence changes Izumi's life back then, the same way Kyuko changes his life in this moment. The next day, Koko comes down with a fever, and her little brother Shota panics a bit. Koko, used to doing everything alone, still tries to go to school, but Shota takes her bag and makes her lie back down, promising to go to school carefully and get her the medicine she needs. She takes the medicine and eventually dozes off. In her half-asleep state, she dreams of the time her mother left her while she was sick. She wakes up suddenly with her nose stuffed from the flu, and beside her bed Izumi is there. He offers her a warm towel, and at first Kyuko thinks she's hallucinating. But Izumi explains that Shota called him. He asks about her temperature, and if she's taken the medicine. Kyuko says yes, so he goes to get a drink. But as he walks away, Kyuko suddenly slips from the bed and cries out, asking where he's going. She remembers when her mother left, saying she was strong and brave, when all she really wanted was for someone to stay. She grabs Izumi's hand and won't let go. Izumi understands and assures her that he's not going anywhere. He stays until he's sure she's okay, and even calls the school and her mother to explain everything. And before Izumi leaves for school, he says one last thing. He tells her he likes her, not caring whether she's asleep or just pretending. But she jolts up after he leaves, shocked by his confession. Then Kyuko takes 2 days off from school because of a fever, and she's already feeling better. But what makes her hesitate to return is Izumi's confession. She clearly hears him say he likes her, and now even sending a simple text feels awkward for her. Later that day, Shota sees Izumi with someone unfamiliar. When he gets home, he casually tells Kyuko that Izumi was with a girl, and they were super close. Kyuko doesn't even react, and before she can ask more, Shota already moves on to talking about yogurt. Trying to bring his focus back, Kyuko asks what the girl looks like. Shota says the girl is wearing a different school uniform, not one from Kyuko's school. Koko's mind immediately jumps to conclusions, thinking that the girl is one of the 100 of Izumi's girlfriends. Trying to stay calm, she asks how close they were, and when Shota just says that he was holding her really close, Koko drops her yogurt in shock. Even by midnight, Koko still can't bring herself to text Izumi, as her thoughts are too scattered that even a simple question feels impossible to send. When she finally returns to school, Toru greets her excitedly, but Koko quickly shushes him, as she's not ready to face Izumi. Izumi doesn't even notice she's in class until break time, and Toru points it out. After school, Izumi decides to talk to her and he catches her sneaking around and calls out to her, completely surprising her. He gets straight to the point and asks if she's avoiding her because of his confession the other day. But Kyuko has something else on her mind and asks who the girl was. Izumi blinks, clearly confused. He thinks for a moment, then remembers that it's Chika. Kyoko's heart skips hearing him say her first name and tells him that Shota saw them holding hands. Izumi quickly explains that Chika is Shindo's girlfriend, and Shota must have seen the moment Chika tripped and Izumi caught her. Suddenly, Kyuko starts tweaking and throws books at Izumi for calling Chika's first name over and over again, while calling Kyuko by her family name. She storms off, but unbeknownst to her, Izumi doesn't know Chika's family name. Then comes the regret, and Kyuko realizes she's been ridiculous, and Izumi probably hates her now. That evening, Shota comes home with Izumi, who is there to return the book she threw at him and to clear things up. But Kyuko beats him to it. She apologizes for the book and awkwardly asks what Chika's full name is, and that is when Izumi reveals that he doesn't know. They laugh it off as it was just a stupid misunderstanding, but Kyuko finally brings up the real issue. The confession. She admits she was awake and heard everything, but Izumi knows that, which was why he confessed, and he just hadn't been brave enough to wait for her response. But right in the middle of their important talk, Kyuko's dad, Kyusuke, appears. Then his eyes land on Izumi, and Kyuko points out the cigarette in his hand to shut it down. But Kyosuke doesn't care and even asks Izumi if he smokes too, saying the piercing makes him look like a punk. Then comes a smack to the head from Kyuko, and Kyusuke groans dramatically, asking if this is how fathers get treated. He whines about coming home after so long, only to be hit in the head, have a stranger in the house, his wife gone, and no food. Kyuko sighs at his statement, but still makes him something to eat. Kyusuke now teases Izumi with Kyuko gone, leaning in too close and making all kinds of dad jokes. Kyuko has to smack him again just to get him to stop. Kyusuke apologizes for Kyuko's short temper, wondering out loud where she gets it from. But he doesn't stop, and he keeps pestering Izumi until finally asking if he is Kyuko's boyfriend. The room falls silent, but then Kyuko nods and says yes, which causes Izumi to blush instantly. Kyuko mutters that he doesn't like guys with long hair, forgetting he has long hair himself. Still, Izumi stands up and says he'll cut it if he has to, but Kyuko tells him not to, saying that just tying it up is fine. Then somehow he starts playing with Izumi's hair. He asks why Izumi would choose someone like Kyuko, and Izumi simply says that because of Kyuko he can feel love. Just then Yuriko, Kyuko's mom, walks in. She's so surprised to see her husband that she drops the groceries, and for a moment no one says anything. But she doesn't get mad, and she just mutters that she hadn't counted him for dinner, only Izumi, that in fact Izumi even has his own plate, while Kyusuke does not. When it's time to go home, Kyuko walks Izumi to the main road, and in silence, she reaches out and holds his hand. Izumi tells her there are still a lot of things he doesn't know about her, but he promises to learn, little by little, and she promises to do the same, which becomes the start of their relationship as lovers. That night, Izumi calls Toru and tells him everything, and Toru says he's okay with it. But when the call ends, he tears up, realizing that he's officially lost Kyuko. The next day at school, Sakura sees Toru from across the hall and notices that he looks down. Remi calls out to Sakura, asking what she's looking at, and Sakura acts overly defensive. But Remi sees right through her, and she calls Sakura out for being weird. Sakura snaps, saying someone as pretty as Remi wouldn't understand, and she walks off saying how she wishes she were her. She remembers how people always compared the two of them, saying how Remi is the beauty, while Sakura is the plain one. But deep down, she knows Remi has always been by her side as her best friend. So she runs back to her, apologizes, and tells her how she feels about Toru. Meanwhile, Izumi walks with Kyuko, while Toru is off with Shu. Izumi feels awkward seeing Toru in front of him, but Toru smacks his head and tells him to stop being weird. Later, Izumi studies together with Kyuko, and he asks her to call him by his first name, but when she tries to, it ends with her yapping all around the place. Now that Koyasuke is fully back home, Shota casually asks how long he plans to stay. Yoriko follows up, wondering if it's really okay for him to leave his work project behind. When Koyuko gets home with Izumi, Koyasuke doesn't recognize him at first because of the glasses, not until Izumi takes them off and looks him in the eye. Later at dinner, Kyosuke invites Izumi to stay the night, and in the end, Kyosuke ends up sleeping with Izumi, and uses the opportunity to ask what he likes about his daughter. Izumi simply says that he loves how she doesn't judge people by how they look, and that answer alone satisfies Kyusuke. By the next morning, the house already feels like one happy family, and he heads off to school with the others like a family. Some classmates catch a glimpse of Kyuko and Izumi together, and the news spreads faster than STDs that by the time the lunch bell rings, everyone knows. Toro and Yuki are both annoyed that people are laughing and gossiping about their friends. Yuki even ends up crying over Izumi. Meanwhile, two boys tease Kyuko about the relationship, and Izumi overhears them. He recalls how his friends encourage him to block the noise, but Izumi knows Kyuko doesn't deserve this kind of humiliation. So the next day, those boys kept mocking him, until Izumi walks in with a completely new look. No glasses alongside a clean and stylish haircut. Even the girls start to take notice. That sudden popularity makes Kyuko freeze up like the Ice Queen, as she's not thrilled her boyfriend is getting so much attention. Back at home, even Kyuko-suke doesn't recognize Izumi, and he needs Kyuko to remind him who it is. Later, Shindo calls, saying he's in front of Izumi's house with a gift. So Kyoko follows Izumi there. Shindo is dramatically surprised by Izumi's transformation, crying over the loss of his best buddy, but quickly shifts his attention to the gift. Knowing Shindo hates cheese, Izumi feeds him a cheese-flavored one on purpose, and Shindo falls for it. He then sees that Kyuko ate a candy that tastes horrible, and seizing the moment, Izumi leans in and steals a kiss from Kyuko, along with her candy. When Shido looks back, the kiss has already ended, and Izumi just walks off like nothing happened, leaving Kyuko flustered. The next day, Izumi notices something strange, that a girl keeps following him with a dead serious glare. When he finally builds up the courage to confront her, she bluntly asks him when he will break up with Kyuko, which gets people's attention, but he assures her that he's planning to never break up with Kyuko. Later, he tells what happened to Kyuko, and as they are heading home, the same girl follows them again, and she casually introduces herself as Honoka. When confronted, she tells Kyoko that she doesn't like how Kyoko is dating someone like Izumi, because she likes Kyoko too. She hugs Kyoko and professes her feelings, and it turns into a tug-of-war between the two, both trying to keep Kyoko for themselves like toddlers fighting over their favorite toy. Toru, watching this bizarre scene unfold, immediately calls Yuki to witness the chaos. One day, Izumi heads home without Kyuko, and Honoka asks him about it. When he reveals that Kyuko already gone home, Honoka goes home but walks behind Izumi. But the more they walk, the more awkward it gets, as Adai are going in the same direction. Then, they enter the same apartment, and it turns out, Honoka is his next-door neighbor. Izumi, baffled by the coincidence, tries to escape quickly, but Honoka realizes she forgot her key. Feeling bad, Izumi lets her stay over until her mother gets home. Now they're sitting in the living room, eating cake. Honoka asks if he's always this kind, to let strangers in like this. Izumi tells her that even Kyuko rarely visits his house, which Honoka mocks, calling it a shallow relationship, but Izumi fires back, saying he's the one always visiting her house. Their tension melts into casual conversation, and Honoka asks about Izumi's family and guesses he must have younger siblings because of how he treats people. But he informs her that he's an only child, which gets her to briefly mention her own brother, but suddenly cuts herself off, saying she's just teasing. Then she leaves as her mom arrives. Izumi notices the shift in her tone, and he tells her she's welcome to come over anytime for some cake. Later, when Izumi's mother comes home from work, she mentions that Honoka did have a brother, who passed away about a year ago. The next time they see each other, Honoka and Izumi are back to bickering over Kyuko like usual. But when Honoka walks off, three older boys approach her, offering to do the dirty. She returns to Izumi in silence, but one glance is all it takes for him to understand. Izumi steps up and glares down at the boys without a word, which scares them off, and that becomes how Izumi and Honoka develop a strange love-hate sibling dynamic. Then, when Kyuko comes back, she sees the two of them continue arguing over who can be the better lover for Kyuko. Later, Izumi joins Kyuko and her father to watch a horror film about how a daughter yeeted a chair at her father. Kyuko gets so scared that he leaves to buy some cigarettes, and in that moment, Kyuko points out to Izumi how he never made a move on her. It flustered them both, and Izumi realizes that he needs to progress the plot, so he goes for the kiss. But Kyuko pops up to disturb their moment, and that angers Kyuko so much that she wants to recreate the film they're watching. Days later, Kyuko and the others stop by the bookstore. Toru, still feeling a little uneasy, can only watch the romance between Kyuko and Izumi. Yuki notices and casually pulls him away to be with her instead. One day, while cleaning the classroom, Yuki asks Toru to help her take out the trash. They share the same taste in films, so she invites him to buy a new CD together, promising they'll watch it later. Toru notices the attention he's getting from Yuki, but what he doesn't notice is Sakura. They bump into her at the corner, causing a drink from the trash bag to spill on her shirt. Yuki immediately wipes off the spill that splashes onto Sakura's legs, and Toru quickly apologizes before rushing back to the classroom to grab something for her. When the girls are left alone, Sakura asks if Yuki and Toru are dating. Yuki just chuckles and says they're not like that. When Toru shows up, he hands her his jacket, and while flustered, she's more than happy to wear it, knowing it's his. She then goes back to the student council room and meets Kakuru. Still thinking about it, Sakura ends up asking Kakuru why he likes Remi. Kakuru is surprised at first, but seeing how sincerely she asks, he gives her a serious answer. He explains that he likes Remi because, while he always thinks of himself as weak, Remi makes him believe he's strong and brave enough to protect her, by pushing him to grow beyond his limits. And in the end, it's Remi who protects him, and Sakura agrees, knowing how Remi always encouraged her. Hearing that, Sakura finally understands, and now, she tries her best to be braver too. A few days later, Sakura returns Toru's jacket, and before she loses her nerve, she hands him a bag of homemade cookies. Toru happily accepts, praising that they're actually good, especially the pink ones that have a sakura color, which he likes very much, and makes Sakura the person blush. Later, Yuki and Kyuko are browsing for another magazine. Yuki finds the one she wants, but suddenly stops when another girl reaches for the same copy. Without a word, she lets it go. Kyuko notices and asks why, but Yuki simply says the girl looks like she needs it more. Back at school, Kyuko brings up how Yuki hasn't been hanging out with Toru much lately. Yuki just says that Toru is busy having cookies. Just then, there's a moment where Yuki frowns, then smiles again. That's when Kyuko understands that the sadder Yuki feels, the more she smiles, as she never says what she wants and always keeps things to herself, but that's exactly why she keeps ending up hurt. Later that day, Sakura gives Yuki the same kind of cookie she gave Toru. Yuki is about to throw it away, but she remembers that Sakura made it as a thank you. In the end, she feels bad, and the cookies are really good, and she realizes that she's just jealous. Later, Yuki suddenly asks Izumi about baking. Izumi admits he isn't an expert either, but tells her if she really wants to learn, the only thing she can do is keep trying. A week passes, and Izumi and Kyuko are the first to try Yuki's not-so-bad cupcakes. Yuki says she doesn't want Toru to see them, but it's too late, as Toru finds out. He notices the bandages on her fingers, and even though they aren't perfect, he takes a bite and says that he'll be waiting for the next batch. Everyone appreciates Yuki's effort, and says the same, giving her the encouragement to do better. Days go by, and Izumi has to go to Hokkaido for a family matter, so he'll be gone for a week, while Kyuko is left alone, and because she's been with Izumi for so long, she still buys 2 drinks every day. She keeps counting the days until he's back, nearly losing her mind, counting and waiting for a message from him that will never come. Meanwhile, Izumi forgot his phone charger, so he went a week without contacting the others. When Izumi finally returns, Kyuko can't hold back. She runs straight to his place. As for Izumi, the moment he can charge his phone, he checks his messages and sees that there's one from Kyuko. He dashes out of the house, takes the elevator down, and when he reaches the ground floor, that's when Kyuko bumps into him. They finally see each other again, and they hug, as 5 days have never felt so long. Back at school, the girls ask Kyuko what Izumi dislikes, and she tells them that it's horror movies, though he still watches it with her anyway. The girls point out that he probably does it just because Kyuko makes him. Then Yuki says something that sticks in Kyuko's mind, reminding her that if she keeps presenting herself as a horror-loving freak, he might slowly start stepping back. So later, Kyuko tries to act sweet and scared at the film, following the other girl's advice, but only to end up making things worse, scaring him more than before. Izumi excuses himself to the bathroom to cool off, and Kyuko goes to her bedroom, thinking he dumped her. Hearing her footsteps, Izumi follows. He finds Kyuko slumped on the bed, upset that she's not the sweet, innocent type of girlfriend. But Izumi reassures her that he likes the real her, not some idealized version of her. She realizes that she's the same way, loving the real version of Izumi. As the rain pours heavily outside, the two of them spend their time progressing the plot, and they share their moment together behind the closed door. Some nights later, Izumi suddenly starts having nightmares of his past. In his dream, he meets his younger self, a boy full of hate, a boy who dislikes everything, has no friends, and is ready to give up on his life. Izumi stands beside him, offering comfort. He tells the boy to hang on a little longer, because soon someone will come along, people who care. people who accept them, and above all, a girl who will laugh for them, cry for them, and love them. Izumi wakes up with tears that morning. Meanwhile, on the other side, Kakeru, the student council president, always appears brave and cool, but he's not as cool as people think he is. Remy, his girlfriend, knows the truth and how Kakeru hates raising his voice when he scolds the others, how he laughs off jokes about being unathletic, but deep down it frustrates him, and how he likes being relied on, yet often feels anxious when he's alone. That version of Kakeru, the awkward, earnest one, is exactly who Remy falls for. When they first met, Remy noticed something different about him. While the other boys ogled at how hot Remy is, Kakeru casually said that Remy's fine, and that's the first moment she takes notice of him. One day in class, Remy sees Kakeru reading and decides to talk to him. They start sharing their favorite books, and Kakeru mentions that his parents have a whole room full of them. Remy asks if she can see it sometime, and he says yes. So one day, he invites her over and shows her the room. Among the shelves, Remy spots an old book titled A Day Before the World Ends. They grow closer through their shared love of stories. When Remy gives him another book to read, Kakeru hesitates, as he remembers that one of his friends likes her. He tells her that, but Remy just shrugs at what he says, and she asks if she can visit his house again. So the second visit comes, and inside that little library, Remy asks him what he would do if he were the last person on Earth. Just like in the book, Kakeru turns his back on her and tells her that he likes her, and then disappears. Remy freezes, questioning if he's joking, but Kakeru isn't playing around. When she steps closer, she sees his face completely red, and then she tells him that she likes him too, which becomes the moment the two become a couple. Meanwhile, in Kalko's room, Kalko tries out a new nail polish on Izumi's feet. As she bends over, Izumi gets a sudden impulse and lightly places his foot on her head. He apologizes immediately, and Kalko is surprised, but she doesn't mind it. She wonders how, in front of Honoka and Shindo, Izumi acts all tough and loud, but with her, he's soft and sweet, which makes her wonder which version is the real him. Izumi admits he's not really that tough, and asks if Kyuko prefers that he yells and hit her instead, but to his shock, she thinks it's hot. So they make a deal that Izumi will give it a try, and the next morning, he comes to school acting cold and cocky. It immediately startles the boys. Toro knows right away that this has Kyuko's influence written all over it, and Kakeru even tells him to stop if he doesn't want to, but can't, as it's for Kyuko. Then, during science class, they're alone. Izumi gives it another go, pretending to be a bully to her. Suddenly, girls from another class walk in and catch them in the act. They all run away, but Kyuko just smiles in pleasure. Meanwhile, Yuki receives a confession from someone, and after days pass, she doesn't know what to do. She finally tells the others how she wants to turn him down, but doesn't know how. Izumi has an idea that they pretend that Toru is her boyfriend, and he set it up with him. Then Toru agrees to the plan and holds Yuki's hand, which makes her wish that they're not pretending. They commence the plan where they act like a couple but let Yuki do the talking. Then the guy arrives, Akane, and the moment Toru sees him, it's game over. Realizing that the guy is so hot that even your mom would call him daddy.
Harder, daddy!
Toru is instantly crushed, realizing he doesn't compare. But when Akane sees Toru, he takes the bait. He thinks Toru is Yuki's boyfriend and respectfully backs off. He apologizes and walks away. Kyuko runs up to Yuki, frustrated and asking why she rejected such a hottie. Yuki explains that Akane feels out of her league and she prefers regular guys and isn't into fancy types. Later, Yuki tries to get to know Akane, and Remy mentions that Akane is in her class, and he's kind of funny and clumsy due to his bad eyesight. That gives Yuki a thought. And after school, she runs after Akane and asks him straight up if he mistaken her for someone else because of his eyesight. But Akane smiles and says no, convinced that he didn't get it wrong, and that he's always been looking at her. As the two stand there, the others come to join in. That's when they all see it firsthand that Akane's eyesight is awful, as he keeps getting names and faces wrong. Days later, Kyuko is styling Izumi's hair again, but thanks to that, Izumi starts attracting more attention from the girls in class, which makes Kyuko jealous, so she drags him home with her. On their way back, Izumi passes two of his old classmates, the same ones who used to bully him, and they bully him again, showing that they haven't changed. Even with Kyuko around, they don't hold back, but watching her boyfriend get bullied right in front of her is the last straw. Without hesitation, Kyuko gives those guys the kung pao chicken to the face, and she and Izumi walk home with smiles on their faces. Meanwhile, one of the bullies, Tanihara, runs into Shindo, his face still bruised. He claims to hate Izumi, but even Shindo knows that Izumi is rent-free in his head, as Tanihara is the one who always brings Izumi up in conversation. Later, Izumi notices the redness on Kyuko's knuckles, and he gently thanks her, as for the first time he feels like he has someone who would get angry for him. The next day, Kyuko, still with her weird kinks, keeps asking Izumi to act tough and slap her hard, all with a smile on her face. That's when Shindo pops out of nowhere and tells Izumi to just do whatever his girlfriend wants, but not knowing the context, Shindo assumes something freaky is going on. Kyuko turns all whiny and pouty, while Shindo keeps pushing Izumi to go along with it, telling him to be a man and give it to her. So Izumi gives in. He grabs Kyuko's wrist roughly, calls her an ugly dog, and pulls her away, leaving Shindo confused with what he just saw. Then Kyuko stops by the mini-market, and there, she runs into Tanihara and the guy from before, plus a third one. The two who met Kyoko yesterday instantly turn to mush. All she does is ask what they're doing and they panic, grabbing a plastic bag and claiming they're picking up trash like good kids. When she walks away, they see Izumi and get even more terrified when Izumi suddenly slaps Kyoko on the head. Now they fear Izumi even more than Kyoko. Meanwhile, Izumi is freaking out inside after he just hit his own girlfriend on purpose. But when he looks at Kyuko, she's smiling, so Izumi pulls her into a hug and lets her enjoy the freaky sensation. Back at home, Izumi pulls Kyusuke aside to talk, and the man is more than happy to help, even choosing the bathroom as the location. Izumi is about to question that, but lets it go. He tells Kyusuke about Kyuko's strange obsession, and how she likes it when he acts rough, but even her dad can't understand his daughter's taste. Eventually, Kyusuke explains it simply that Kyuko just likes seeing Izumi act opposite of his usual self, which to Izumi kind of makes sense. Then Kyuko barges in, scolding them for taking too long. But her father scolds her right back for overwhelming Izumi, and the two end up bickering like usual. Days later, Toro and Izumi are getting drinks when they run into a classmate, Mizuchi, and Toro greets him, but the guy just walks past without a word. Izumi says it's probably because of him, and he suspects that Mizuchi has a thing for Kyuko, but they both agree that if a man isn't serious enough, then he can't handle Kyuko's other side. Just before returning to class, Izumi realizes he might have left his phone in the science room, so he runs back to check. There he finds Mizuchi, and it's awkward, but Mizuchi ends up helping him when he sees Izumi fumbling around. He calls Izumi's number, and the phone rings from Izumi's own back pocket. Mizuchi gets mad with how careless Izumi can be, and wants to ask why Kyuko likes him, but he holds his tongue from talking further. Izumi notices, then he asks him if he could ever smack Kyoko hard. Mizuchi is confused and says no, as he could never hit Kyoko, no matter the reason. That's when Izumi smiles and says that he doesn't deserve Kyoko. Back in class, Kyuko asks if Izumi found his phone, and Izumi responds with forced anger, pushing her away. Mizuchi is about to step in, but Izumi stops him and lets her be, as behind that, Kyoko's face lights up and she loves it. Mizuchi apologizes for underestimating Izumi, realizing that he's a different breed after all, and Izumi thanks him with tears in his eyes. One night, Tanihara has a nightmare where he is locked in a room with an older Izumi, who judges him harshly, calling him pathetic for what he's done to gain attention. Then comes the memory of the school rabbits, and he sees how Izumi loves those rabbits. Tanihara wakes up in a sweat, and he asks Shindo for Izumi's number and tries to call him, but Izumi doesn't pick up. So he goes to Izumi's cake shop instead, and he meets him just as Izumi is about to close. Tanihara awkwardly pretends he came to buy a cake, and Izumi keeps his composure and points him to another shop around the corner. But Tanihara quickly says no, and that he'll come back tomorrow and get the cheesecake. Izumi adds that he should get the fruit tart as well, and Tanihara agrees to buy two, before holding up two fingers in the shape of rabbit ears. They both understand the meaning, and before leaving, Tanihara asks why Izumi didn't answer his call, and Izumi explains that his phone was broken and he might get it fixed tomorrow. Tanihara realizes that Izumi wasn't ignoring him, but that reminds him of how he used to ignore Izumi. Then he remembers how he forgot to feed the rabbits and they died, and he blamed Izumi for it. Now he's finally able to admit it, but he wonders if he could admit it to the real Izumi. Meanwhile, Izumi is helping Kyuko organize her bookshelf when they come across her middle school yearbook. She asks if he still has his, and Izumi gives a weak smile. He had almost thrown it away before, but after that meeting with Tanihara, he realizes it's something worth keeping. Now he can't wait for their high school yearbook because this time, he has friends and real memories he actually wants to keep. Days later, Izumi and Kyuko runs into Tanihara, and things get a little awkward as both of them end up blushing when they bump into each other. Kyuko starts tweaking at Tanihara, telling him that Izumi belongs to her, as what she fears is for Izumi to be taken by men. Tanihara quickly denies it, saying he's not Shindo, and Kyuko remembers exactly just how close Shindo and Izumi are. In a panic, Izumi tries to explain, but then the main issue, Shindo, shows up, and is standing right behind them, innocently greeting them. Kyuko asks if he's still close to Chika, but Shindo says Chika has been too busy studying for finals lately, so instead, he's been spending more time with Izumi. Those words light Kyuko's fire, thinking they got freaky as homies. Tanihara, still terrified of Kyuko, immediately drags Shindo away, leaving the couple behind. Kyuko makes her point clear that Izumi has to be cautious around guys, and that if he ever cheats on her, he has to promise that it's with a girl, not a guy. Izumi agrees anyway, and he informs the homies at school of the new rules. Elsewhere, Yuki is out shopping for art supplies with her sister when they bump into Akane. Yuki's sister immediately takes an interest, questioning how Yuki knows such a hottie like him, even teasing that they might be dating. Akane just chuckles and brushes it off, saying he got rejected. Yuki's sister is shocked at Yuki, knowing she rejected such a handsome guy. Eventually, Yuki pushes her sister aside, and Akane says goodbye, as he doesn't want Toru to get the wrong idea. Yuki goes along with the lie, but feels sad, knowing that Toru would never feel jealous for her. Even at school, when Sakura asks if they're dating, Yuki lies and says she's with Toru. Later, Yuki tells Remi about it, and she wants to clear things up with Sakura, but can't bring herself to do it. Remi says she won't tell Sakura anything, as it's not her place to do so, but it's Yuki's. She leaves Yuki alone after that, and Yuki knows that Toru never liked her the same way she likes him, and that she should have ended the lie after turning down Akane. But instead, she asks to keep pretending, quietly hoping that the lie would somehow become true. Yuki ends up skipping school for almost a week, and she doesn't tell anyone, not Toru, not even Kyuko. Toru gets worried at first but forces a laugh, thinking maybe she'll be back tomorrow. Yuki's sister, on the other hand, is furious, seeing Yuki skipping school with no real reason. She says the only explanation must be that Yuki wants something, as she remembers how Yuki has always been like this, even as a kid, where she never says what she wants, but cries when she doesn't get it. Her sister tells her to decide, figure out what she wants and go after it, or otherwise, she'll regret it. Yuki thinks about her sister's words, turns her phone back on, and sees a flood of messages. Most are from Kyuko, but her hand pauses when she sees one from Toru, and it says that Sakura confessed to him. Yuki returns to school the following week, and the girls in class look relieved, but she acts like nothing has happened. Later, Toru pulls her aside and takes her to the rooftop. Yuki figures that this is the end of their pretend relationship, and Toru must be with Sakura now. But to her surprise, Toru says that Sakura confessed, but never asked for an answer, as she still believes Toru is with Yuki. Yuki asks why he didn't just tell her the truth, but Toru says he's keeping his promise to still continue their fake relationship, and even if he could be honest, Toru admits he can't be with Sakura, as she's too good for him, and deserves someone better. Yuki freezes, and she feels bad for Sakura, knowing how Sakura has tried so hard, baking cookies and putting in effort, while she just runs away. And yet, deep down, Yuki feels a selfish happiness, knowing that while they aren't together, she's still the one closest to Toru. She knows how bad she's being, as while Sakura is warm and beautiful, she is cold and muddy. Yuki sighs, watching her breath turn to fog in the cold air, and Toru says that today is the coldest day yet, and now he can't wait for the snow to come. Yuki asks why, saying that snow is slippery, annoying, and muddy, and it's only pretty at first, but it melts in the end, as spring always comes. Toru looks at her sad eyes, and he remembers how her hand feels in his. He tells her that snow doesn't melt because of spring, but they melt when it wants to. Yuki adds that in order for a Sakura to grow, the snow has to go, but Toru sticks to his own words, assuring her that snow doesn't disappear just because Sakura asks it to. Yuki chuckles, saying that's not how nature works, but deep down, she understands he's trying to cheer her up. Toru is glad she smiles, as it's the first time all day, and he gently holds her fingers and leads her back inside the building. Meanwhile, Kakeru asks Remi why Sakura has been so cheerful lately, and Remi smiles and says it's because of the other way around. Kakeru is still trying to figure out Remi's riddle when Sakura walks into the student council room. She looks fine to them on the outside, but when she glances out the window and sees Toru smiling with Yuki, she freezes. Kakeru notices and asks what's wrong. She tries to walk away, but he follows, asking again. Sakura finally says it, that she's lost, and she's losing before she even starts. As her friend, Kakeru is angry on her behalf, and he calls whoever that guy is an idiot for not choosing someone like her. Days pass, and the group gets together again. Stops smiling that day and cries her heart out. Days pass, and the group gets together again. One lunchtime, Kyuko realizes that only she and Yuki have sibling, while the rest don't, but Toru mentions that Shu has one too. That surprises them, as Shu never talks about it. Toru says he only found out because he visited Shu's house the other day, and there he met Shu's little sister, but other than their similar faces, the two are complete opposites. That's when Shu walks in, holding a burger coupon, and the girls scold him for not giving off Big Brother vibes. Later, in another random meeting in the student council room, Kyuko asks why Akane still speaks so formally, even though they've all grown closer. Akane smiles awkwardly, saying he isn't used to being casual, but Kyuko brings up Yuki and how he was informal when being with her. She recalls how Remi managed to make Akane drop the formal speech with her by force, but when it came to Yuki, Akane dropped it willingly. So Shu jumps in and declares he'll be the first one to call Akane by his first name, and that confidence of him makes Kyuko a little jealous. Akane admits he does want to change. One summer day, in the middle of the semester, everyone in class hears the same thing from the teacher. Then Kakeru, the actual owner of the room, walks in. Surprised to see the random mix of people inside, Izumi and Toru instantly pull him in, using him as an example, saying that everyone there is also new to Kakeru. But somehow, they've all gotten close naturally. Shu stays quiet this time, because no one can be as bold as those two. Korko, who isn't following the conversation, decides to leave the boys alone. Akane chuckles at the chaos, and as a start decides Toru will be the first person he calls by first name. Then, like a jealous boyfriend, Izumi asks if Toru will call Akane by his first name too, and Toru says that maybe he would. At that moment, Izumi mumbles something about putting Akane on his blacklist, and Kakeru shivers when he hears it, but Izumi just laughs it off. Then, almost reading the situation, Akane casually promises that he won't take anything from Izumi, and Izumi immediately panics and bolts out of the room, just like Kyuko does when she gets flustered. The others are confused, but Akane understands perfectly. Some days later, Akane and Izumi argue on which of them are taller, and they even asked Sakura to settle who was taller between them, but it ended with Sakura scolding them for arguing over something foolish. Another time, Izumi tries introducing Honoka at school, and while she's still scared of guys, she's okay with Kakeru and Toru feels proud that he ranks above Kakeru. Then Toru and Kakeru even compete for Honoka's approval by offering her sweets. But when Shu pops up, Honoka gets scared, saying that he's too annoying, which cuts Shu's ego deeply. But then because of screaming too much, Shu ends up straining his throat. Kyuko and Yuki immediately scold him to go home if he's really sick. Shu isn't used to staying quiet, but with his throat hurting, he has no choice. On his way down the hall, he spots Honoka carrying a heavy box. Since they're going the same way, Shu helps her carry it, without saying a word. Honoka Hanaka feels bad, thinking he's mad because of what she said the day before. She wants to apologize, but the next day she finds him back to yapping and watches from afar. Sakura peeps up and Hanaka tells her how she wants to apologize to Shu, but when Shu pops up and starts yapping right in front of her, she panics and runs away, calling him annoying. Back at home, Shu's little sister Motoko has a problem after her teacher told her that she isn't good enough for the school she wants to apply to, and even laughed at her. When Shu sees Motoko slumped on the couch, he just sits beside her, quietly flipping through the newspaper. Motoko says she doesn't want dinner, and Shu calmly asks why. That's when Motoko tells him about the teacher, about how they laughed, not at the school, but at her grades. Shu's expression changes, and he gets mad. He knows how hard Motoko studies, and that no one has the right to laugh at her for that, and demands to bring that old prune to their house, so Shu can hit that guy for laughing at his sister. Motoko trembles as she speaks about how despite her best attempt, her grades keep falling, and her teacher says it's impossible for her to get into the school she wants. She cries from the weight of that reality. Shu finally calms down, gently pats her head, and tries to cheer her up, joking that the school she wants isn't even that good, especially their uniforms, so she should just choose his school instead, as the uniform would suit her better. Then at school, he asks Kyuko for a favor to help Motoko study. Kyuko understands and agrees, and she lets Motoko study in her room. When Motoko arrives, she mistakes Izumi for Kyuko's sibling. Kyuko says they won't start studying right away, as she knows Motoko still feels uneasy, so she focuses on getting to know her first. Bit by bit, Motoko opens up, and she says she only has Shu's number in her phone, and that he'll get mad if she comes home late. Kyuko chuckles and says they're clearly close siblings. Meanwhile, Shu drags Toru to a shrine to buy a lucky charm, the expensive kind. Toru can guess it's for Motoko, and he has a bit of doubt whether she'll accept it, but he reassures Shu anyway. And deep down, they both know that both siblings love each other. Later, with Christmas just around the corner, Shota asks Izumi to join them for Christmas dinner, but Izumi can't make any promises, as he has to help out at the shop during the holiday rush. Both Shota and Kyosuke end up whining, trying to convince him to come anyway. That just leaves Kyoko wondering who Izumi is really in a relationship with. Meanwhile, Toru is facing some personal turmoil, his complicated love life. He takes Shu and Kakeru out for food to talk things over. He starts to talk with how he used to like Kyuko, then talks about his strange situation with Sakura, and finally about him and Yuki, how they're too close to be just friends, yet still not quite partners either. Shu and Kakeru stay quiet during the first two stories, but when it comes to Yuki, they're left speechless. They both genuinely think Toru and Yuki are already a couple, so Shu asks again, straight up if Toru likes Yuki. Toru admits it loud and clear that he does like her, but even then he says it feels a little weird to say out loud. Kakeru tells him it's not about what others think, but it's about what he feels and whether he is happy with what he and Yuki have. That leaves Toru stunned, questioning since when does Kakeru get so wise. During one break at school, Yuki comes up to him and asks if she can visit his place to try that video game from the other day. Toru hesitates for a moment, unsure if it's a good idea, but eventually gives in, as whatever he's worried about will happen sooner or later anyway. Later that day, Yuki visits Toru's house, and she's surprised by how big it is, but something feels off. Toru is acting weird, like he just brought home a stray cat, and he sneaks her in like he's avoiding someone. Yuki starts thinking maybe he doesn't want his parents to meet her or something. Then they reach his room, and Toru locks the door and loosens his necktie, and Yuki's imagination starts running wild. Toru notices how nervous Yuki is, so he opens the door again, in case Yuki wants to leave. But Yuki quickly mutters an explanation that she's not scared of him or anything. Then someone tries to enter the room, and Toru blocks the door right away. Yuki thinks it's his mom, but it's actually Yashiro, one of the housekeepers. Toru doesn't want Yuki to meet her, as Yashiro tends to be nosy and never stops asking questions. Even though she greets Yuki nicely, she glares at Toru and warns him not to do anything stupid, or she'll report it to his mom. Toru shrugs and says he can't do anything anyway, because of her. Yuki is stunned, wondering what he means by that. Toru notices her confusion, and gently pats her head, then tells her to just play the game. Then Toru realizes that for now, this is enough. On the last day of school, the group is back in the student council room. As soon as Kakeru walks in, Remi is already waiting with sparkly eyes, asking him to spend Christmas at her house. Kakeru panics and blurts out a no. Everyone gets mad, and Toru even asks Izumi to hit him. Kakeru defends himself, saying they misunderstood, and that it's not that he doesn't want to go, but it's just that Remi's house is full of bugs, and Kakeru is terrified of bugs. Back at home, the family gathers in the living room. Yuriko starts bragging about Kyoko's grades, then brings up graduation. Kyoko goes silent, and she's suddenly reminded of how close she is to finishing school, and how uncertain the future feels. And just like that, Christmas Eve arrives, where everyone is enjoying their holidays. Just then, Akane happens to run into Yuki's sister, and she mentions his glasses, and he tells her he recently got contact lenses. Then, in a quick gesture, he offers her a pair as a Christmas gift, and suddenly, the two grow closer. Elsewhere, Toru and Yuki go on a little date. Shu spends his day beside Motoko, focused on studying, wrong, and Kakeru is still being forced by Sakura into braving a visit to Remi's house. Then, at Kyuko's place, her dad keeps asking if Izumi will come, even though he knows Izumi has to help at the shop. But Izumi does show up, and the first ones to get excited are Kyusuke and Shota, as they hang on to him for a whole hour, even though he should have left already. Kyuko seizes her chance and walks him out, finally getting some alone time. She walks behind him in silence before finally stopping to bring up graduation. She tells him that she still wants to be with him, even after school ends. Izumi looks at her seriously, and then, without hesitation, he asks Kyuko to marry him. It stops their time for a moment, and when Izumi tries to walk away, Kyuko suddenly promises to make him happy. They bow at each other, promising to be together, but suddenly, Izumi gets a call from his shop, and he leaves Kyuko in the cold, feeling all hot and fuzzy inside. Then, on New Year's, they go to the shrine and spend their time together on a little date. Kyuko tells him how weird it is that he is the last person she's seeing this year, and the first next year, but Izumi wishes that is the case every year. Then, on their way home, Kyuko asks him if they're going to be together forever, and while holding hand, he promises that they will. Then the last day of school arrives, and everyone has already emptied their lockers, except for Yuki, whose locker is still as full as ever, and the same goes for Toru. But as true friends, they all suffer the same nonsense together, even until the end. Seeing Kyuko carrying nothing, Yuki and Toru immediately hand her some of their junk. Then, seeing Shu just standing there empty-handed, they suddenly remember they have a bunch of his stuff they never gave back, so now no one walks out empty-handed. In the student council room, while Sakura cleans up, Remi finds an old school pamphlet about a zoo trip that she wants to go to. Just then, Kakeru walks in with Akane, and while they chat about the holidays, Remi throws out the idea of going on a trip together. Before the boys can say anything, Sakura cuts in, trying to stop Remi from getting too carried away. Still, Akane adds to the chaos, talking about cars and road trips, saying how he wants to get his license soon. And suddenly, Remi goes quiet and tries to slip out of the conversation. Sakura catches on right away. She stops Remi, pinches her cheeks, and asks why she's trying to run away. Eventually, Remi confesses that she doesn't like the idea of everyone getting a license, as it makes it feel like they can go far away and never come back. Sakura reassures her that just because things change doesn't mean everything ends, and they'll still be together even after graduation. Akane even makes a promise that when he finally gets his license, he'll take everyone on a trip together. Elsewhere, Kyuko and Izumi are home alone, and Kyuko is resting her head on Izumi's lap, asleep. Izumi gets lost in thought, and a strange, quiet what-if creeps in. He starts thinking what if none of this ever happened, and he never helped Shuta that day. He wonders if Yuki and Toru would become close. Would Toru just stick with Shu? He wonders if they would have bonded with Kakeru, and would Kakeru meet Remi, or even whether Sakura would fall for Toru. Then he thinks about what would happen to him, and whether he'd still be part of the background, still running away, never speaking to Kyuko. But he quickly reminds himself that the thing with what-ifs is that they're just questions, because he did change, and he is now happy. Kyuko wakes up, catching Izumi in his daydream. She asks what he's thinking about, and Izumi replies that he was thinking of everything that led him here, and wondering what would have happened if he had missed even one moment. But Kyuko sits up, leans against his chest, and says softly that whatever happened it was always meant to be, and even if he had missed one step, in the end, everything would still fall into place, just as it should. Then, graduation day arrives, and just as Kakeru steps up to give his speech, Izumi sneezes loudly and ruins the serious silence. After the ceremony, Izumi stands on the rooftop, and he sees his old self again, the shadow he used to hide behind, but this time, he doesn't run. He accepts it, and made peace with who he was. Down in front of the class, Kyuko deals with Honoka, who still refuses to accept she's leaving until Kyuko promises to let her visit. Back in the hallway, Toru finally makes peace with Sakura, and no hard feelings remain. Behind them, Akane meets Yuki and shares his vacation idea, and Yuki agrees instantly, as she knows that this will stick together even after school. And so, the school chapter truly ends. And with Kyuko by his side, Izumi finds his freedom, he finds his peace, and he finds purpose, as he knows that he will always be together with her, the one that he loves, and the one who changed his life. Saito is a wealthy loser who has a bad relationship with the annoying Karen of the class. His life takes a turn when, in order to inherit the family business, he is forced to marry her. However, after living together for a while, they realize they are starting to develop clapping feelings for each other. And just like every other day, Akane starts her day by yelling at Saito for some reason, but the latter is as unbothered as a capybara chilling on a crocodile. While the two are arguing, Akane's best friend Himari comes over and watches the two of them bicker. She thinks that Akane seems to care way too much about what Saito does, so she's starting to wonder if there's something going on between the two of them. Akane is disgusted and says she would rather eat a chocolate made out of insects than date a person like Saito. The latter is equally offended by the idea, and they start arguing even more. Once the school day is over, Saito is on his way back home. But all of a sudden, he gets a phone call from his grandpa. The old man asks Saito to come over for some tea at his house, but Saito says he has better things to do than sip tea with old farts. Grandpa reminds the young lad that Saito has already been made an heir to his company. Before Saito can say anything, a limo and some armed guards pull up beside Saito. Saito briefly considers running out of there like women in relationships running away from accountability, but he eventually gets into the limo, and while the guards are driving him, he asks where he's being taken. The guards tell him they were instructed to bring Saito to a villa, but they don't know what his grandpa is planning. Saito's grandfather, Tenryo, once saved the Hojo group from the brink of collapse, and now he is one of the most powerful people in the world. Eventually, they arrive at the house, so Saito sits outside and waits for his grandpa to show up. But while he's waiting, Akane also unexpectedly shows up, and the first thing she does is yell at him. She asks Saito what he's doing there, and he explains that his grandpa asked him to come. As it turns out, Akane's grandma invited her here for tea as well. Just then, Saito's grandpa and Akane's grandma show up, and they've got something important to tell the two kids. Over lunch, Saito impatiently asks them what they wanted to talk about since he doesn't want to be near Akane. The two respond by dropping a bombshell and announce that Saito and Akane are going to get married. The youngsters initially take it as a joke, but their grandparents are dead serious about it. Tenryo and Akane's grandma, Chiyo, have known each other since they were kids, and were even in love back then. But due to some petty arguments, they ended up drifting apart. Tenryo and Chiyo both ended up marrying other people, but they can't help but wonder what could have been had they stayed together. So they have come up with the brilliant idea to force their grandkids into marriage. Akane objects to the marriage because marriage is something that's supposed to be done out of love, not because two old people want to watch their grandkids get frisky. Tenryo had expected this response, and thus gives Saito an ultimatum. Either he marries Akane, or he writes Saito out of his will and donates all his wealth to the family pet. Wealth is something Saito does care about, so he immediately changes his tune and agrees to consider the offer. But Akane is still strictly opposed because she only wants to get married to the person she loves, and not an annoying pest like Saito. Just then, Chiyo calls Akane over, so the latter goes to her grandma's side, and the old woman whispers something into her ear. Whatever she said must have been a serious threat, because it sends shivers down Akane's spine. After the two oldies have given out their blackmails, Tenryo says he is giving the two of them 3 days to decide whether they'll get married or not. Once their grandparents are gone, Saito asks Akane what threat her grandma made so he knows how bad her situation is. Akane gets defensive and refuses to tell him, since it's a private matter. Later that night, Akane decides to call Himari to ask for advice on what she should do. She explains the situation of being forced to marry someone without exposing the name. Akane asks what Himari would do if she were in the same situation. Himari says she would have to refuse, since she already likes someone and would never marry someone else. Akane is surprised to hear that Himari, who is as bland as white bread, has a crush since she's never mentioned him before. But that's just because Akane never asked. And Himari doesn't want to tell her the guy's name yet, since she hasn't confessed to him. She does admit, though, that it's someone from their class. Meanwhile, back at his house, Saito is having a panic attack, because he already has a hard enough time dealing with Akane at school. If they end up married, he'll always have to hear constant nagging and interrupting like staying with a loud leaf blower. Saito's cousin Shisei can tell something is bothering him, so she asks what's wrong. Saito explains that their grandpa is threatening to disown him if he doesn't agree to his demands. She's perfectly fine with him giving up his rights to the company if that's what he wants, because even if he ends up becoming a hobo, she'll still love him the same. Regardless of what he chooses to do, she promises to be by his side every step of the way, and Saito is really glad to have her support. 3 days go by, and both Saito and Akane meet with their grandparents because they've decided that they're going to get married. However, the old farts add one more surprise and say they expect Saito and Akane to start their life as a married couple immediately. They've even got a brand new house lined up for them, so they drop them off there and drive off. Akane starts freaking out because she can't just suddenly start living with Saito, but Saito is already desensitized to the BS his grandpa pulls, so this doesn't surprise him. The two of them head inside, and since the house is actually pretty nice, Akane thinks living here might actually be fun. The place is fully equipped with everything they could possibly need, but there's only one bed. They call their grandparents to complain about the bed, but their creepiness knows no boundaries, as they want Saito and Akane to rush the creation of their grandchildren's. Akane nervously asks if he really intends to do something nasty with her tonight, but Saito, being a Dumbo, has no idea what she's talking about. However, Akane still doesn't trust him, so she threatens to stab him with her comically large pencil if he tries anything before running out of the bedroom. After everything is unpacked, Saito finds a meal his grandpa left for him. Tenryo may be a jerk, but Saito thinks this was actually a pretty thoughtful gesture. After warming up the pizza, Saito gives his new wife a slice. The latter takes it and immediately leaves without even saying thank you. A few minutes later, Saito and Akane head to bed and make an agreement to set boundaries between themselves. To distract himself, Saito starts a conversation and asks Akane why she agreed to the marriage, but she still doesn't want to give any details about her reasons. This marriage is just a formality, so she's just going to put up with it for the sake of her dream, even if it means following their grandparents' weird rules. Unfortunately, while they are talking, Saito accidentally touches her butt, so yet another fight ensues. The next day at school, Akane pulls Saito before entering the class and reminds him that he isn't allowed to tell anyone that they are married. Saito tells her that he already plans to keep it a secret, but Akane still doesn't trust him. Afterwards, Saito sits at his desk, only to find Shisei standing in front of him with a blank expression like a doll out of a horror movie. She steps closer, sniffs him, and notices that his shampoo smells different, so she asks where he slept last night. An embarrassed Saito awkwardly looks away and claims his dad bought a weird shampoo, so he's trying it out. But Shisei keeps remarks that it's not just the shampoo because he smells like a girl. Without another word, she leans in and gently bites his neck. Then, as if concluding a mystery, she states that he must have got married. Before Saito can respond, Shisei reveals that she noticed strange behavior from their grandfather, so she investigated and discovered their new house. As she's about to say he married Akane, Saito covers her mouth and rushes her out of the classroom. Outside, Shisei offers to stay quiet on one condition: he will be her servant from now on. Later that afternoon at home, Saito is reading when he hears Akane scream from the kitchen. He rushes in and finds her standing in front of the open fridge. She demands to know why it's filled with so many juice cans. Saito calmly explains that he bought a whole truckload of concentrated vegetable juice because it's rich in vitamins and will make them healthier. Akane can't believe the stupidity and snaps that it won't make them healthier since it lacks proper nutrition. But Saito has come prepared as he opens the second fridge to reveal another truckload of cup noodles. Akane stares in horror before screaming at the top of her lungs. Despite this, Saito, who has the awareness of a toothbrush, makes a weird shake of vegetable juice and whey protein before offering it to Akane. She looks at him with increasing alarm, asking if he plans to survive solely on cup noodles and vegetable juice. Saito nods, insisting that this is the pinnacle of cooking. After knowing that Saito is a useless bum, Akane quickly dons a cooking apron and gets to work. As she moves around the kitchen, she glances at Saito seated at the dining table with a blank, almost puppy-like expression. She thinks to herself that he'll be blown away by how good her food tastes. When she finally places the food in front of him and sits across the table, she waits eagerly for his reaction. Saito picks up his chopsticks, cautiously checks the dish for hidden traps, such as nails or explosives, and when he finds none, he takes a bite. He goes full Ratatouille mode as memories of childhood meals flood back, and a faint smile appears on his face. However, when it comes to talking to Akane, he says it's just a simple home-cooked meal. Akane is offended and declares that if it's not good enough, she'll feed it to the dogs. Saito tries to grab it back, protesting that he never said it was bad. He gets a hold of the plate and starts eating while Akane tries to stop him. Once he's done, he sets the plate on the table, claps his hands in a quick prayer, and leans back, satisfied with his full stomach. The next morning, Akane tries to wake Saito up for school, but he's fast asleep, dreaming about cuddling in bed with his cousin Shisei. While he is caught in the dream, he pulls Akane into bed, mistaking her for Shisei. After a few moments, she snaps out of it and yells at him, and the duo both head out of bed. Akane, however, scolds him for leaving the dishes unwashed since she cooked dinner the night before. Saito shows his caveman side by saying she should just use the clean utensils for now and he'll do the dishes later when they pile up. This infuriates Akane, and she yells at him to do the dishes immediately. That night, Saito is happily playing the new zombie video game that just dropped until Akane walks in complaining about the noise. She glances at the screen, immediately covers her eyes as she is disgusted by the gore and tells him to stop playing. Saito refuses, so they start tugging at the console in a heated argument. In the middle of the chaos, the doorbell rings and Akane lets go of the console, accidentally turning the game off in the process and wiping out his 12 hours of gameplay. Hours later, Saito wraps a towel around his waist and heads to the bathroom for a bath, since he can no longer stand his own horrible stench. He steps inside but freezes, as a fully bare Akane is already in the bathtub with her eyes closed and unaware of his presence. Saito walks out, but as he's about to leave the bathroom, he starts thinking it's strange that she didn't notice him at all. He wonders if she might have passed out or something. He steps back into the bathroom and assumes that this is how people end up drowning. Saito rushes in and tries to lift her out of the bath, but since he is built like a twink, she ends up falling onto him.
Oh my God!
She rests against his chest for a moment before waking up and realizing the situation. She immediately accuses him of being a creepy weirdo while Saito tries to explain, but she doesn't listen and orders him to get out. The next day at school, Himari notices Akane seems down and asks what's wrong. They sit down and Akane explains her problem with Saito, but she keeps his identity anonymous because she doesn't want Himari to know about their marriage. Himari thinks it over and suggests giving the person a big hug, and Akane immediately rejects that idea as she would rather hug a cactus. Instead, Himari advises her to talk things out with the person, reminding her that respect is a two-way street. Meanwhile, Saito is having lunch outside with Shisei and venting about his issues with Akane. Shisei bluntly suggests that it's not that hard, as all he has to do is listen to her, be sensitive, and learn to compromise. Later that day, Saito comes home, determined to try Shisei's advice, but as he opens the door, he sees Akane standing there with an intensely angry expression. Before he can leave, Akane grabs his arm and asks if they can talk. Saito assumes she's about to bring up divorce, but to his surprise, she wants to discuss how they can make their marriage work. A few moments later, they sit across from each other and agree they'll need to set some ground rules if they're going to live together. Saito begins by saying he prefers washing his clothes and dishes only when they pile up, but Akane raises her voice slightly, saying she refuses to live like a dirty pig. Hearing that, Saito agrees to do his laundry more often, which surprises Akane Akane since she didn't expect him to be so cooperative. Over time, things start improving between them, and one day, Saito surprises Akane with a thoughtful gift, showing he's willing to put in effort for their relationship. After dinner, Saito takes it upon himself to wash the dishes, but Akane joins him in the kitchen and offers to help with the dishes. As she washes alongside him, he starts to realize that while he's only seen her in bad moods before, she's actually really beautiful when she's not angry. One night, Saito is busy reading his favorite book when Akane interrupts him. She tells him she rented a movie that caught her attention and wants them to watch it together. Saito is baffled and considers this to be utter nonsense, wondering why anyone would want to watch a movie about kittens for 24 hours straight. Fortunately, Akane says she found the 3-hour version of the movie instead, and Saito quickly suggests they watch that version instead. They begin watching the movie, and while Akane enjoys every second of it, Saito dozes off on the couch because he is bored out of his mind. When the movie ends, Akane expresses how much she loved it and suggests they watch the full 24-hour version next time. Since they watch something Akane likes, she insists it's only fair for Saito to pick the next thing to watch. However, Saito admits he prefers games to movies, and 30 minutes later, Akane is having the time of her life, celebrating her victory after defeating a game boss. Later that night, as they lie in bed, Akane thanks him for the fun they had that day. She then tells him to stop addressing her without actually using her name, adding that she prefers when he calls her by her name. The next day at school, Himari walks up to Akane moments later and asks if she and Saito had a fight, and the latter lies that they are always fighting. However, Himari senses something is off as their behavior doesn't match their usual constant bickering. Feeling cornered, Akane rushes out of the classroom and goes home. A few hours later, during the break, Saito calls out to Akane as she walks down the hall, but the latter turns around with an annoyed look, saying she prefers not to talk much at school. Saito quickly pulls her into an empty room to avoid being overheard. Saito asks if she's busy or has plans for later in the day, and when he learns she's free, he invites her to go shopping with him after school. Akane realizes this might be a date. Saito says it's not a date and that he only needs her as a mule to carry groceries. Later, Akane and Saito walk through the park, both blushing as they approach the supermarket near their homes. Akane soon discovers the supermarket is holding a limited-time sale, and a crowd is already gathered to grab the discounted items. She tries to push her way through the chaos but quickly gets shoved to the side. Saito attempts to jump in as well, but he's tossed aside like he is a vegetable dish in a party. That night, Akane wakes up to find Saito with his finger in front of her face. She sits up and immediately scolds him, accusing him of planning to gouge a hole in her cheek. Saito denies her accusation and admits he's a total simp by explaining that he couldn't resist poking her cheek because she looks so cute while sleeping. Akane blushes at his response and hugs her pillow. She lies back down and tells him he can watch her sleep, but only for a little while, which is still very creepy. However, the next night, Akane stays up late studying for an upcoming test, but Saito, on the other hand, doesn't see the point in studying. He boasts that he never studies and just memorizes everything from class and still scores perfectly on the last test. Akane takes this as mockery, throws her pillow at him, and tells him to leave. A few minutes later, Saito knocks on her door and hands her a snack. She opens the door and is delighted to see a strawberry cake. She takes it inside, wondering why he would go out of his way to make it for her, but decides to concentrate on eating instead. The next morning at school, Akane is walking through the halls when she suddenly collapses. Luckily, Himari, who is nearby, rushes to her side and asks if she's okay. Akane reassures her that she's fine, as she is just a bit sleep-deprived from studying all night. Himari urges her not to push herself too hard and reminds her that her health is more important, but Akane is more focused on getting the top grade in class. Himari advises her again, pointing out that she'll never outscore Saito, who has the power of plot armor. Despite this, Akane remains determined to surpass him in every way. That evening, Saito brings her a late-night snack, only to find her slumped over her desk. Assuming she's fallen asleep, he moves closer but notices she isn't feeling well. He checks her temperature and is clearly burning up from a fever. As he tends to her, Akane mumbles weakly, talking about how much she needs to study if she ever wants to achieve her dream of becoming a doctor. She explains that her ultimate goal is to help people live long, healthy lives and to be someone who can step in whenever someone is in need. Her voice turns quieter as she shares how her parents can't afford to send her to medical school. She reveals that the only reason she agreed to marry Saito in the first place was because her grandmother promised to fund her education if she married him. Hearing this, Saito feels a mix of surprise and admiration, as he never knew about this deeply personal dream of hers. Akane's frustration starts to spill out, and she vents about how hard she studies every day but can never seem to surpass him even though he has the attention span of a kitten. She admits that she's always admired him even if she never said it out loud. A few minutes later, Saito checks her temperature again. This time it has climbed to 42 Zuri, so he decides it's time to call an ambulance, but Akane insists there's no need and tells him to just go to bed. Seeing no other option, he picks her up like he is some B-grade action hero and tells her he won't just stand by while she's suffering. Saito also decides to use this precious moment to bring up the dream she mentioned earlier. At first, she assumes he's about to roast her, but instead, he tells her that he believes in her. He's confident she'll achieve her dream, because she's someone who never gives up, no matter how hard things get. A week later, Akane wakes Saito up by leaning over him with a playful smirk and a mock death threat. She quickly laughs it off, saying he should be grateful she woke him up in time for school. Saito groans, realizing she's she's back to her usual antics. It turns out Akane only had a bad cold that day, and a week later everything returns to normal. At school, Saito's day starts with Himari approaching him to congratulate him on his perfect test score. She flirts with him a little, but her attempts go completely over his head. Not long after, Akane walks up to him with a deadly serious look in her eyes. For a second, he braces himself for a scolding, but she reminds him that he has a wife and warns him not to get too close to other girls. As she turns and walks away, Saito can't help but smile to himself as he thinks that maybe he really does have the cutest wife in the world. Before they head into class, Akane gives Saito the lunchbox she made for him. She's upset that he forgot to bring it with him and thinks he doesn't like her cooking. But on the contrary, Saito says he loves Akane's cooking, so it really was just an accident that he forgot it. They head into class, and when lunchtime arrives, the two of them prepare to begin eating. But before Saito can take even a single bite, Shisei comes over and says she is hungry and demands to be given his entire lunch. Everyone in class decides to butt in on the argument, and since Shisei is cute, they all take her side and tell Saito to let her have some of his food. Saito eventually caves and lets Shisei sit in his lap so she can have a little bite of his lunch. But all of a sudden Himari walks over, and the first thing she notices is that Saito and Akane's lunches look the same. She jokes that the two of them must be going out with each other, but they both deny it immediately. In fact, they were a little too quick to deny it, so all their classmates start getting suspicious that something might actually be going on between them. Saito tries to think of a good excuse for why he has the same lunch as Akane, but when he turns back to his bento box, he finds it completely clean. Since the incriminating bento is gone, all of Saito's classmates lose interest in the conversation and walk away. Later that night, Saito and Akane are in bed, but the latter seems a little on edge because she can hear something moving. She turns around thinking Saito is doing bicep curls in bed to see. But instead, she sees that there's a terrifying figure standing over the bed. She screams so loud that Saito thinks they're under attack. But when he asks Akane what's wrong, she just tells him that she saw a ghost. Saito takes a look but doesn't see anything, so he decides to go back to sleep. Akane is too scared to sleep, so she begs Saito to stay awake with her until she calms down. A few minutes later, tells him she's about to take a bath, so she wants him to come in with her. Saito can't believe what he's hearing, but Akane is dead serious about it, so he ends up sitting outside the shower while Akane takes a bath. The next day, Saito meets with Shisei on the school roof, and he's complaining a lot about how weird Akane has been acting recently. Akane keeps talking about some ghost running around their house, but he doesn't think it's true since he's never seen anything himself. Shisei, on the other hand, says there really might be a ghost, but to confirm, she needs to talk with Akane. With that said, Shisei decides to play a harmless little prank, and nearly yells that Akane is married to Saito. However, before she can finish that sentence, she gets yanked like a sack of flour by Saito and Akane. They bring her to an empty classroom, and now that there's no threat of their secret being exposed, Akane begins seething with rage because she told Saito not to tell anyone about their marriage. He says he never actually told Shisei about the marriage, and she just kind of figured it out on her own. Later, all three arrive at the house and Shisei begins to go through all their personal belongings. Shisei decides to search Saito's room first, and he lets her do it, since he knows there's nothing embarrassing for her to find. But to his horror, he was wrong as Shisei manages to find a pair of his underwear and does something really weird with it. Next, Shisei wants to check Akane's room, but after seeing what Shisei did with Saito's underwear, Akane doesn't want to risk letting Shisei anywhere near her clothes. They nonetheless move on to the bedroom, and Akane explains that she clearly saw the ghost standing over the bed right here. Shisei finally admits that she was the ghost all along. In truth, she got keys to the house from their grandpa, so she visited Saito and Akane in the middle of the night without telling them. The reason she was sneaking around and standing over their bed all night was because she was hoping to watch Saito and Akane get hot and steamy in bed, but that never happened. After the debacle, the three of them settle their differences and have dinner together. Saito and Shisei then head to the living room to play some games together. And once again, Akane gets the feeling that these two are unusually close to each other. A couple of hours later, Saito is lying in bed when Akane comes into the bedroom. She asks where Shisei is, so Saito tells her that Shisei is still playing games in the living room. Akane is relieved since that means she can finally talk with Saito in private. The first thing Akane wants to talk about is that cat game he was playing with Shisei. Saito usually never buys cat games, so if she had known that he bought a cat-themed game for her sake, she would have asked to play with him. Saito says he didn't bring it up because he knew how much Akane wanted to study. But even so, Akane insists that she would have gladly taken a break to play with him. Also, she wishes she could have played it before Shisei did, but Saito has no idea why that would be important to her. He asks if there's a special reason behind it, but Akane just gets embarrassed and yells that for someone so smart, Saito can be really dumb at times. Yelling at Saito somehow makes Akane feel a lot better, but she still has one more complaint. She tells Saito that she thinks he pampers Shisei a little too much, but once again, Saito thinks it's perfectly normal. All of a sudden, Akane feels a hand grab her backside, and Saito feels a hand drifting dangerously close to his Godzilla. They both deny doing anything, and a few seconds later, Shisei pops out from under the covers, and it turns out she was just messing with them them again. She says she's going to spend the night in their bed so she can sleep next to Saito like always. Akane tries to explain that she only sleeps with Saito because their grandparents forced her, but Shisei assumes Akane just wants to be alone with Saito and offers to sleep on the floor instead. However, Akane doesn't want Shisei to misunderstand anything, so she says they should all sleep together after all. Later that night, Shisei turns to Akane and tells her that she needs to be more direct about her feelings for Saito. Akane tries to act like she doesn't know what Shisei is talking about, but Shisei could clearly see that Akane was jealous of how much Saito was pampering her. Shisei continues, saying she's glad Saito has someone like Akane around, since she was worried he might end up alone for the rest of his life. But when Akane asks Shisei to explain what she means, Shisei just goes to sleep. A few days later, Himari meets up with Akane at a cafe, and the first thing she does once they get seated is ask Akane if she likes Saito. Akane is caught off guard, so she frantically denies any affection for Saito, but she's curious why Himari would ask such a question in the first place. Himari admits that she has a crush on Saito, but Akane doesn't understand what she could possibly see in a loser like him. Himari says she loves everything about Saito, like how handsome and prepared he always is. There was this one time that a girl on their sports team fainted from heat stroke, and while everyone else was panicking, Saito remained calm and took charge of the situation. Now that Akane thinks about it, she realizes Saito is pretty reliable in a crisis. Himari says she really admires someone who knows how to keep things together, and Saito is always nice to her, so she was hoping Akane could get Saito to like her back. Akane agrees to help her, but she doesn't know exactly how she's supposed to play wingman. Himari replies that she just wants Akane to give her some information about Saito's interests, so she can relate to him more, but come to think of it, Akane herself doesn't actually know much about Saito. Later that evening, Saito finds Akane standing behind him with a pen and notepad in her hand. He's a little freaked out, so he asks her what she's doing, but Akane just says she's observing him and doesn't explain further. Saito tries to ignore her, but Akane keeps following him around, and even when it's dinner time, she holds her camera up to his face. He asks her if there's a reason she's holding the camera so close, but Akane can't tell him about Himari's crush, so she tells him to just ignore it. At school the next morning, Akane informs Himari about Saito's favorite food, and Himari is glad to learn a side of him she didn't know before. Since she's so interested in learning more about what Saito likes to do, Akane tells her that he enjoys playing video games and reading books before bed. Himari thinks that's really interesting, but she wonders how Akane could possibly know what Saito likes to do before bed. So Akane makes up an excuse and says she overheard him talking about it earlier. That evening, while walking back from the grocery store, Akane tells Saito that she really enjoys doing things like this. It makes her feel kind of nostalgic because she used to go shopping with her mom when she was little, but Saito can't relate to that. When they get home, Akane prepares the steak for Saito, and upon tasting it, he just kind of stares at the plate for a second in shock. Akane thinks Saito must hate the steak she prepared, but he tells her it's actually so good that he wishes he could eat it every day. Akane says she'll make as much amazing food as Saito wants, but as she says this, she gets a bit too close to his face, so they both get embarrassed. The next day at school, Himari approaches Saito at his desk and asks him if there's a particular type of girl he likes. She says she heard that Saito doesn't have a particular type, but she just wants to confirm for herself. First of all, Saito asks her where she got that information, but Himari doesn't want to reveal that she got Akane to ask him. Saito says he doesn't agree with the whole categorizing people into types thing. He would never know if he wanted to go out with someone unless he got to know them first. It's answers like that that make Himari love Saito so much. A lot of guys often ask her out without knowing anything about her, and when she asks what they like about her, it's almost always about her well-endowed curves. Later that day, while Saito is playing games in the living room, Akane sneaks into his room and starts snooping around for information to give Himari. Just when she finds Saito's diary, he comes in and spots her. She immediately becomes defensive, and like an inexperienced snitch, yells that she's not funneling information about him to anyone. But Saito has no idea what she's talking about. Akane asks him if he can recommend one of his favorite books, and Saito hands her a thick book about history and the art of war. The next day at school, Himari meets up with Akane and tells her she couldn't understand a single word of the book. Akane apologizes, but Himari actually prefers it this way since she has an excuse to talk to Saito. Himari then runs over to him and says there's a book she doesn't understand, so she'd like him to help explain it to her. While Himari does this, Akane watches on from the door like a typical jealous side chick. Saito tells Himari he doesn't mind explaining the book to her. After all, whenever he and Akane fight at school, Himari would always step in to mediate for them. Himari says she just doesn't like seeing people fight, and she shares that Akane once helped her out when she was being bullied. Saito is surprised that a social butterfly like Himari was bullied, but she says she wasn't good at talking to people and didn't look like a magazine cover model back then. Akane hears all this and is deeply touched, but just then, Shisei appears and asks her if she's jealous of Himari having a crush on Saito. Akane denies it, but Shisei tells her Himari has had a crush on Saito since their first year of high school. After school that day, Himari thanks Akane for all her help and suggests spending the night at her house like usual. Akane is excited at first, but then remembers that she lives with Saito. She tries to make an excuse, but Himari remembers Shisei recently visited her. Akane eventually agrees to let Himari come over and hurries home to warn Saito. They try to hide the fact that they live together, but Himari arrives before they're ready, so Saito ducks behind the counter. While chatting, Himari tells Akane she plans to ask Saito out on a date and wants to know if that's okay. She says that even if Akane claims to hate Saito, she must feel something for him deep down, but Akane insists she hates him more than anyone in the world, and Saito starts feeling down. Upon hearing this, the next day, Himari asks Saito out, and that night, Saito brings it up at dinner. Akane yells that their marriage is fake and he can date whoever he wants, but she already regrets saying it. The next morning, Saito is about to leave for the date, but Akane finally admits she doesn't want him to go. Even if it's a fake marriage, he's still her husband, so she won't let him cheat. Saito smiles and says he turned Himari down and made up the date just to see how Akane would react. Now that he knows she cares, he invites her out shopping to make up for the prank. The next day at school, Himari greets Saito like usual. Even though she was rejected, she swears she'll keep trying until he falls for her. But now that Akane has acknowledged her feelings, she's not going to sit by and let Himari steal him from her. The very next day, Himari brings him a homemade lunch at school. She heard that he really likes steak, so that's exactly what she made. Saito declines at first, since he already brought his own lunch, but Himari insists that he at least try a bite, especially after working so hard on it. The rest of the class, who clearly have no other work, joins in, pressuring him to taste it, so he eventually gives in. When he takes the first bite, Saito is surprised by how delicious it is, so he keeps eating. Akane, watching from nearby, becomes visibly annoyed by how much he's enjoying someone else's meat. Later that day, Himari approaches Saito and says she's been struggling with math lately. She asks if he can tutor her, and Saito agrees because he can't catch hints to save his life. But then she adds that they should study at her place, and her parents won't be home. Saito accuses her of trying to turn it into a date, which is exactly what she's going for. Himari proposes a compromise. All three of them can study together, as she doesn't mind a three-way. That's when Shisei appears out of nowhere, having overheard someone threaten her ranking. Since she's currently third in class, Himari invites her too. With 4 people now involved, they decide to study at Akane's house instead. Once again, Akane hides all evidence that Saito lives there. After everyone settles in, Akane notes that Himari's grades started dropping in their first year of high school. With that clue, Saito begins teaching, and before long, Himari starts solving problems on her own. A little later, Saito heads out to buy snacks. Akane follows and starts a conversation, saying she never realized his memory was so good. Saito says he avoids bringing it up because people find it creepy. He explains that everyone in the Hojo family is born with one trait maxed out. Shisei, for example, can perform massive mental calculations. Saito's memory, however, causes him to remember awkward details about people, which makes others think he's a stalker. When they return, everyone sits down to enjoy snacks. Himari thanks Saito for the tutoring and says she actually understands math better now. She is delighted and casually suggests that next time they study at his house, she moves closer, but ends up spilling tea on herself. And upon seeing this, Saito instinctively grabs a towel from the drawer. Immediately, Himari asks how he knew where the towels were, but he brushes it off by saying he guessed. Himari has become so dumb in one-sided love that she believes him, since he's a genius anyway. Shisei leads Himari to the bathroom to clean up, and while they're gone, the power suddenly goes out. Akane panics as she's terrified of the dark and clings to Saito. He says it's just a power outage and wants to check the breaker, but Akane won't let him leave. She apologizes for being stubborn, but Saito says she doesn't have to change. He understands she has a hard time expressing herself, but he knows she means well. Moments later, the lights come back on just in time for Himari and Shisei to return to the room. They see Akane clinging to Saito, but rather stupidly thinks it's sweet that they're getting along. The next night, Saito teaches Akane a memorization method that works really well. Akane thanks him, but Saito admits it's not really his method as he made it up as an experiment. It just so happens that Akane is the first person it worked this well on. He now thinks she must be naturally gifted. Saito thinks they've studied enough, but Akane wants to keep going. He asks why becoming a doctor is so important to her, but she says it's none of his business. He agrees, but since he is shameless, he says he still wants to know. Eventually, she explains that when she was little, she had a younger sister who was very sick. Their parents were always working to pay hospital bills, so Akane was left to care for her sister, who spent every day in pain until she passed away. Akane couldn't do anything to help back then, but now she wants to help people like her sister. Later that day, Saito asks Akane if she wants to go out with him on their next day off. Akane is so flustered that she burns dinner but agrees to go out. The next day, she tells her grandma about it, and the old woman is overjoyed and reveals a secret stash of clothes she's been saving just for this moment. Akane finds something she loves, but insists she's not in love with Saito. On the day of the date, Saito is stunned when he sees Akane in her dress. He takes her into town and suggests visiting a cat cafe, but Akane refuses as she has been banned for life after getting too excited the last time. Instead, Saito takes her to a karaoke room followed by a lemonade shop. She asks why he invited her out, and Saito says he wanted to cheer her up after making her remember her painful past. On the walk home, Akane spots a ring in a shop window, but she is aware that she can't afford it. As they continue walking, Akane thanks him as she really does feel better. The next day, Akane's good mood is done, and she is back to nitpicking Saito's every move. Frustrated Frustrated, he recalls her excitement over a ring in a jewelry store and hatches a plan. At school, Saito asks Himari if he can visit her house. The latter is absolutely thrilled as she assumes he wants to hang out and then calls her limo. They soon arrive at Himari's mansion, and in her room, Himari starts changing in front of him. Saito protests, but instead of listening to him, she orders him to help her. Saito has less courage than a student on results day and reluctantly does as she asks. Afterward, Himari suggests playing a game called Vampires, where she climbs on him and pretends to bite his neck. Her aunt interrupts this rather sus game and invites Saito to stay for dinner, but he says he must get home. Before leaving, he asks her aunt for a part-time job at her company to earn money for a gift. She's puzzled as Saito could ask his rich grandfather for funds, but he insists on earning it himself. When she presses as to why he wants to work so desperately, he admits it's for Akane. Himari feels hurt, realizing Saito's visit was partly to secure the job, but he insists he wanted to spend time with her. Her aunt disapproves of Saito, heir to the Hojo family, working a job, especially after his sudden marriage to Akane. She hints she had hoped he would have married Himari instead. Still, she offers him a job translating software in an obscure language, believing he can master it in 3 days. Instead of quietly doing his job, Saito claims he'll do it in 1 night. That night, Saito studies furiously, and soon Akane bursts in, shocked that he's studying. He says he's learning a new language, finishing in minutes and claiming he just needs sleep to retain it. Impressed, Akane blurts she wishes she had him inside her, then immediately clarifies she meant that she wishes she had his brain. She asks why he's studying, but Saito dodges, saying it's not her business. The next day, Saito heads to work with Himari, who keeps sitting in his lap to distract him. He asks if she's upset about the gift for Akane, but she says she's just lonely since his marriage left them less time together. She asks him to stay with her until she falls asleep that night, and he agrees to the offer. Late that evening, Saito returns home, and Akane immediately demands to know where he's been. Her suspicions grow when she gets a waft of a girl's scent on him. Thankfully, by now, Saito has learned enough playboy tricks and brushes her concerns with an excuse. The next day, Akane confides in her grandmother that she is worried about Saito drifting away. The old woman suggests other girls might be interested in him. Akane then admits one girl likes him but insists they're just friends. Later, Himari, who is sobbing like a child going to school for the first time, tells Akane that Saito rejected her again. Akane comforts her but notices Himari's scent matches the one on Saito. That evening, Akane eats alone, considering her grandmother's advice. She wants Saito around but realizes she doesn't have his number. She calls the Hojo residence, but Himari's aunt answers, before calling their marriage a disgrace and hangs up. That night, Saito finishes the translation, and as Himari's aunt trusts his work, she pays him. He immediately buys the ring with the money and heads home. However, as soon as he reaches there, Akane explodes, accusing him of spending all his time with Himari. Saito explains he's not dating her, then reveals the ring which he hopes will be a peace offering for Akane. Stunned, she thanks him and runs off, but returns shortly to say she loves it. At the university, Saito pulls his wife aside, suggesting they hide it to avoid questions. She agrees and stores it in her pouch, but since she is more careless than a toddler, the ring is gone after a while. Devastated, she searches everywhere, even considering a shady job to replace it, but knows it wouldn't be the same. Himari finds Akane crying and learns she lost the ring. They then search the school all day, but with no luck. Himari suggests asking Saito, but Akane refuses to do so. Meanwhile, Saito grows suspicious when Akane's out late, and he is soon visited by Himari. She cooks up a lie and says Akane's busy but won't say why. Saito, who may be naive but not a fool, decides to spy on Akane. The next day, he trails his wife and notices she's not wearing the ring. He then soon finds her crying under a bridge like a chronic alcoholic and realizes she lost it. He says they can buy another, but Akane insists this one was special as it was proof that he cares about her. Saito understands her sentiment and recalls her opening her bag there and pulling out a handkerchief. He then rushes back to university where he checks the storm drain and finds the pouch with the ring. A relieved Akane hugs him and vows never to lose it, but as they reconnect their relationship, a new girl tied to the Hojo family arrives in Japan, determined to steal Saito away. The next morning, Saito is lounging on a school bench when an extremely pretty girl named Maho arrives at the spot. He has never spoken to her, so he asks who she is and what she wants. After racking his brain for a while, he vaguely recalls her face from some distant memory, but can't pinpoint who she actually is. Maho is crushed that Saito doesn't remember her, but nonetheless she confesses she likes him and wants him to be her boyfriend. Saito's floored because why on earth is a stranger proposing to him on their first meet? She insists she's no stranger, and even says she knows everything about his life, including Himari's rejected confession, and even his living situation with Akane. Saito demands to know how she knows all this, but Maho deflects the question and asks if he'll date her. When he refuses, she threatens to tell the school he's married to Akane. Thinking she is bluffing, Saito shrugs, pretending to be a Sigma man until she starts shouting it. He covers her mouth, and she takes it one step further by trying to sneak a kiss. Shisei arrives just in time and kicks Maho away before vowing to protect Saito, but she forgets to guard herself and Maho returns, calling Shisei cute as if she is some toy, and asks Saito if she can keep her. He refuses, but Maho tries to kidnap Shisei anyway, but thankfully, Right then, the school bell rings, and Maho runs away to pack her bag. Saito is relieved, but Shisei warns that this new girl is definitely trouble. Later, Saito heads to his classroom and sees Shusei, Akane, and Himari leaving together. He is relieved as he hopes this will give him some alone time, but he is crushed when the super annoying Maho shows up. The guys in class, jealous of yet another girl chasing him, stare fiercely at Saito, forcing him to flee with her. Once they are alone, Saito asks why Maho likes him, and she gives the most cookie-cutter answer that it was love at first sight. He's skeptical, but Maho insists he's good-looking and says she confessed her love fast because life's too short to play safe. Saito, who's never been in love, can't relate to her nonsensical yapping. Maho asks if he loves Akane, given they live together, but he says it's not about liking her as he has no choice. Maho suggests he try falling for her instead, but Saito declines the rather blunt offer. She then changes the topic and asks for a town tour since she's new. He agrees to do so, and soon enough they head to a local restaurant where Maho devours a massive cheeseburger in seconds, shocking Saito, although he is a fast food fan too. Maho spots sauce on Saito's finger, and she licks it off clean while snapping a photo in the process. An alarmed Saito demands she delete it immediately, but she refuses, and leads Saito in a brief chase. However, she is soon out of breath, and Maho deletes the photo as she has no other option. After a while, Maho notes that Saito and Akane fight more than two sibling sisters and assumes they're incompatible. He doesn't deny it, but when she asks why he doesn't break up, he says it's not an option. That evening, Saito's ready to head home, but Maho insists she wants to spend the night with him. He refuses, so she blackmails him again with the marriage secret. Poor Saito is left with no choice, so he brings her home and rings the doorbell. Akane opens the door, ready to scold Saito, but freezes when she sees Maho clinging to him. Then, in an even bigger twist of events, Saito is left stunned when it is revealed that Maho is Akane's sister. Akane is shocked and suspicious that Maho hasn't mentioned it yet. Nonetheless, Maho hugs Akane, but the energy is so weird that Akane pushes her off. Saito thought Akane's sister was dead, but Akane clarifies she meant in a better place, as in traveling the world. Now back, Maho wants to inspect their married life as if she is some marriage inspector. She immediately checks the bedroom where she sees the double bed and asks if they sleep together nightly. Akane confirms that they do, but swears nothing happens there other than sleeping. Maho is relieved upon hearing this and insists on staying to ensure no funny business. Akane agrees and gladly says she can stay as long as she wants. Akane plans porridge for dinner, but Maho and Saito protest, specifically Maho, who has got childhood porridge trauma. Akane insists, but when she opens the fridge, she finds Shisei inside, nearly frozen. Saito checks on her, and Shisei jokingly asks for mouth-to-mouth. However, it is Maho who offers to do it, horrifying Shisei, who immediately hides behind Saito. Maho is more cheeky than others give her credit for, and she claims Shisei as her sister-in-law, since Saito's married to Akane. Shisei challenges her to a little sister duel, but Maho tries to get a stepbro experience on Saito, but eventually flops in her attempts. Later, Akane and Maho talk privately, where Akane asks why Maho didn't announce her return. Maho replies that she wanted to surprise her, especially by arriving with Saito. She proposes marrying Saito instead, arguing their grandparents just want a grandkid romance, and she could secure Akane's education funding. Akane says Maho can't handle Saito's ego, but Maho cites their shared love for fast food and games, which are things Akane dislikes. Akane tries to find some comeback and questions if Maho can marry a stranger, but the latter is so shameless that she says Saito's hot, and that's enough. Maho shows Akane her finger-licking photo from earlier to prove their closeness. She then leaves quickly to bug Saito while Akane remains conflicted. Meanwhile, Saito is bathing when Maho barges in and says she wants to join. He tells her to leave, but she gets in and suggests that she will marry him instead and give him freedom from Akane. Saito, who is barely resisting, says he'll think about the whole offer. Afterwards, Saito returns to the bedroom and he is absolutely exhausted. Akane asks what's wrong, and he says Maho's energy is draining. Akane's glad her sister's lively, given her sickly childhood, and adds that she wants to spoil her. Before bed, Akane asks Saito if he wants to break up, and upon hearing this, he bolts upright. He demands why, but Akane doesn't reply, leaving them in tense silence. A few days later, the group heads to an amusement park to celebrate Maho's homecoming, but like a group of babies, tension immediately brews between them. Himari senses something off and corners Maho about her relationship with Saito. Maho admits she's trying to win his heart, declaring herself Himari's rival. Himari, fiercely protective, refuses to let anyone steal Saito, and the two bicker loudly. Meanwhile, Saito is unfazed as he ignores them and heads for the first ride. The day unfolds with fun attractions, but the roller coaster proves too much for Akane. She is such a cowardly little baby that she passes out from fear and only wakes when it's over. Trying to play it cool, she insists thrill rides don't bother her, but when they get on the Ferris wheel, she once again starts to tremble. Saito notices and asks if she's okay, and eventually, Akane admits she's terrified of heights and rides. When Saito asks why she came, Akane explains it's for Maho, who missed out on parks and festivals growing up due to her health. Akane wants Maho to make up for lost time, even if it means facing her own fears. Touched, Saito offers to hold her hand to calm her down, but Akane hesitates, wondering if he's flirting, but she accepts it anyway. To her surprise, her shaking stops, and she holds on a bit longer. That That night, Saito prepares for bed, expecting Akane, but finds Maho lying next to him. She climbs on top of him, creating an awkward moment which Saito tries to defuse by asking if she remembers a party at his grandfather's years ago, when he talked all night with a girl who looked like her. Maho confirms it was her and smiles, happy he remembers. But then she starts unbuttoning his shirt, forcing Saito to stop her, saying they barely know each other. Maho claims she loves him, but Saito calls her out as he can tell she actually hates him. At that moment, Akane walks in, sees them in such a compromising position, and explodes. The next morning, Saito wakes to find Maho gasping for air while her skin is cold as ice. She admits she forgot her medication after Akane's outburst and thought she'd be fine for one night. Once they reach the hospital, her condition proves serious, and she's quickly admitted. The hospital contacts her parents, and Saito prepares to leave to avoid them. Before he goes, Maho pleads with him not to tell Akane, explaining that Akane sacrificed so much to care for her as a kid. She doesn't want to burden her again. The next day after school, Saito visits Maho in the hospital, sneaking her a burger. She's grateful but weak, and he asks why she travels despite her health. Maho confesses that she's scared and her condition could worsen or kill her anytime. She wants to live fully while she can and keeps her struggles from Akane to spare her worry. Saito realizes Maho's been distancing herself to protect Akane. He'd thought Maho hated him for stealing Akane, but her actions were driven by love. Maho explains she heard Akane married someone she hated and assumed she was miserable. She tried to marry Saito herself to free Akane, but now regrets it since Akane hates her. Saito reassures her that Akane still cares and urges her to focus on recovery so she can apologize properly. As Maho sleeps, Saito steps outside, only to find Akane there, and it is obvious that she has overheard everything. She runs off from the spot as she is unable to face him. A week later, Maho recovers and meets Akane to apologize for everything she did in the past. She admits she tried to seduce Saito to save Akane from an unhappy marriage, but Saito resisted. Maho insists Akane shouldn't blame him, and the latter agrees to move past it but asks Maho to stop pursuing Saito as she does not want her to suffer. Playfully, Maho says she might actually love Saito now and would take him if Akane doesn't want him. Annoyed, Akane yells at Saito for seducing her sister and storms into class. In class, Akane asks Saito if he meant it when he said he wanted her to be happy. Flustered, he admits he did, and so Akane invites him home, noting their grandparents would worry if they knew he'd been gone a week. Saito agrees to do so, but both of them are unaware that Himari overheard everything. Now, there is no hiding, as she knows Saito and Akane live together. In a flashback, Saito sits alone in the park, looking a bit down. When Himari walks up with her usual kindness, she says hi and asks why he's not going home. Saito shrugs, saying his annoying parents are at home, which is why it's better if he stays away. Himari gets it as she feels the same way about her own situation, and she offers to hang out with him so he's not alone. Back in the present, things get messy as Himari is shocked to hear Akane is living with Saito. The news makes it to the ears of everyone and their classmates, always ready for drama, ask if it's true. Akane rolls her eyes, saying there's no way she'd live with Saito, as it would be a disaster. Gossip spreads fast as kids remember seeing them together at the shopping district, wondering if it was a date. Saito tries to shut it down, saying he'd never like someone as wild as Akane. She snaps back, asking who he's calling wild, but before she can spill more about their home, Saito stops her and takes off. After school, Akane is still mad, blaming Saito for the rumors about them. He points out she's the one who mentioned him coming home in front of everyone. An annoyed Akane tells him not to come back, and Saito sighs, saying that makes no sense. As he leaves, students snap photos of the two together, making Saito feel like he is some Insta-influencer. Later, as he and Shisei are walking home, they notice someone following them. Shisei remains super calm and says there are 3 people tailing them without even looking. When she jokes about calling a sniper, Saito gets freaked out and says they shouldn't do so. He adds that it's just classmates trying to find out where he lives, so Shisei suggests he crash at her place with food and a nap. Saito doesn't accept it, since their grandfather is getting suspicious. Shisei's next idea is to lose the followers, and she, very conveniently, says Saito should carry her and run to the bus. With no better choice, he picks her up, sprints, and they hop on the bus, leaving the followers behind. After a long ride, Saito realizes they have come to the last stop. The next bus isn't until tomorrow, and when he asks Shisei to call for a ride, she says there's no signal. Frustrated, Saito says they will have to walk, but Shisei flops down, acting like she's been shot. Saito, unfazed, says he'll leave her if she doesn't get up from her backside. Just then, a car pulls up, and Shisei's maid gets out, saying she tracked the youngster. Saito's annoyed but not surprised, and his irritation grows even more when the car zooms off without him. At home, Akane freaks out because they're almost out of rice and can't shop without running into classmates. She worries they'll starve, but Shisei channels her inner Marie Antoinette and suggests eating cake. Suddenly, a noise upstairs spooks them, and Akane grabs a bat and gets ready to swing. But Saito, who wants to prove he is a macho dude, starts to fight over the bat with Akane. Soon enough, they trip and Saito lands on top of her. Right then, Maho shows up and teasingly starts taking pictures of them. Akane Akane is so embarrassed that she pushes Saito off and tells her sister that things aren't as it looks. Saito asks when Maho got there and says he didn't hear the doorbell. However, Maho shrugs and says it's her house too. Maho says Himari is there too, but the latter steps in with a smile, hoping they're okay with her visit. While having tea, Himari apologizes to Akane and says she feels bad about the rumors. Akane is surprised and says it's not her fault before admitting they shouldn't have hidden their living situation, or at least have hidden it properly. Himari then gets curious, so she asks more, but Akane dodges all her questions. Himari also says she is not mad, as she had guessed they lived together because of matching lunches, the same shampoo smell, and how Saito knew the house so well. She thought it was an arranged marriage for business, which is why they kept it quiet. But Himari adds that it's a marriage without love, and both Akane as well as Saito agree. Himari's eyes light up as she thinks she still has a shot with Saito. Suddenly getting energized, Maho calls for a plan to stop the rumors. She says that the married couple have to show everyone that they aren't actually dating. The next day, Saito and Shisei walk into class holding hands, but it doesn't work as they're already so close that no one cares. Shisei rather creepily suggests kissing him, but the latter obviously says no. Maho then makes the same offer, but Saito shuts that down too. Akane points out Himari's the only one left, and the latter agrees and says she is more than ready to pretend to be Saito's girlfriend. That night, Akane tells Saito not to get too into it, blushing as she says hugging or kissing is okay if he makes up for it later. The next day, Himari, all smiles, asks Saito to eat lunch together. He's surprised since she usually eats with Akane, but she says she wants to be with him today. Later, in a quiet spot, she says sneaking around feels odd. When Saito asks what couples do, she's unsure but suddenly says she likes him. Saito, caught off guard, laughs it off, but Himari asks for a cuddle. She sits on his lap, and though he's nervous with people watching, she tells him to hug tighter to sell it. Later, girls ask Himari if she's dating Saito. She teases they should tell the truth, then says they're a couple, saying she was jealous of Akane. The class buys it, and the rumors now focus on Saito and Himari. Walking home, Saito complains about his legs, but Himari jokes she's his girlfriend now. Akane, not thrilled, asks Himari if she's going too far, but Himari says their act is working. That evening, Saito feels bad their date was fake, and promises to make it up to Himari. He spots Akane at a game center, angrily hitting an arcade machine, and pulls Himari away. Over ice cream, he says he had fun but feels guilty. Himari invites him for tea at her place. Inside, he sees a photo of himself, which she says is from a school trip. She jokes about putting up more, but he says no way. Her tea's amazing, and she says it's a rare kind. She shows him their class chat, buzzing about them. Saito's impressed, asking if she's into psychology. Himari says that she was bullied as a kid, and even with Akane's help, learned how to make people like her to feel safe. Saito respects her strength, and Himari asks if he likes Akane. He says he doesn't, and upon hearing this, Himari exclaims that she still has a chance. She'd even be okay as the other girl if she can be with him. Saito says she's worth more, but Himari, sure of herself, says she's happy with him, no matter what. A few days later, Saito realizes he and Akane still haven't swapped phone numbers. He then casually asks for hers, saying it'd be easier to text since they live together. Akane mistakes that he is trying to flirt like the Hongdae guy, but Saito quickly explains he's just being practical. As they exchange contacts, Akane wonders why they waited so long. Saito admits he held back, worried he'd seem weird, and Akane teases that it was a bit weird but then shyly confesses he's the first boy in her phone. Akane decides to save Saito's number under a fake name to avoid school gossip. When he jokingly suggests greatest genius ever, or almighty king, she mocks him by saving it as almighty time-traveling super handsome genius. Saito gets embarrassed, regretting even suggesting it, but Akane laughs as she is surprised that he can feel shame. She sends her first text, eyes shining with excitement, while Saito feels uneasy about her enthusiasm. After a few messages, Akane runs to her room and calls him. When he answers, she quietly asks if he can hear her. Saito is extremely confused by this weird behavior, and reminds her that they're in the same house. The scene shifts to Saito and Shisei hanging out when Maho bursts in and immediately tries to pounce on him. However, they manage to dodge her easily, which amuses Maho, who says Saito's getting better. She then hugs him tightly, saying she's just feeling extra friendly today. Saito then asks Maho about a girl he met at a party, and the latter teases that he might have a crush on her. Shisei asks what Saito even wants with the info for, but he says he's not chasing the girl, but he just hates not knowing who she was. Saito thinks back to the party, where only Grandpa's close circle was invited. It could have been Maho, his cousin, or even Akane, but the girl had a warm, kind smile, nothing like Akane's usual cold vibe. Maho, seeing he's serious, asks if he'd really do anything to get the girl's contact, and he says he would. She tells him to hug her tightly, and Saito immediately agrees, noting she hugs him all the time anyway, but when he tries to do so, Maho gets shy. Later, Saito ignores a call from Grandpa, only to see his face pop up on the TV, yelling at him to pick up. Grandpa says Saito's cousin's 70th birthday is coming, and as the Hojo heir, Saito must attend and mingle. Saito reluctantly agrees and promises that he will bring a gift for his cousin. He later shares the news with Akane, who flat out says she will not go to the party with him. The next day, Saito checks if Akane's sure about staying, and she brushes him off by pretending to be busy. However, when he leaves with Shisei, her mom, and their maid, she feels oddly alone. Later, when Saito and the others get to the estate where the party is being held, Grandpa calls Saito and Shisei to sit by him. Shortly afterwards, Grandpa asks about Akane Akane, and Saito says she stayed home as she was too shy to come. However, Grandpa pushes and asks if they're getting along, and when he'll get great-grandkids. Later, the birthday cousin explains that Akane's family has political power, making the marriage useful, and tells Saito to keep Akane happy. Back home, Himari shows up and hugs Akane as she is worried the latter might be mad about Saito. Akane says she's not, and confirms they're still best friends. The two then bake cupcakes with strawberries and tea. After a while, Himari wants to send Saito a photo, and Akane gets shocked when she realizes that they have each other's numbers. Himari says they swapped a while ago, which makes Akane briefly think Saito's cheating, then remembers they're not a couple. Himari offers to delete his number, but Akane says don't bother, sarcastically hoping he keeps texting. After Himari leaves, Akane tries studying to beat Saito in exams but feels empty. She cannot tolerate anymore and ends up calling Saito, who is currently being harassed by every female in the party. Akane says she feels weird without their fights, and to surprise Saito asks if it's not easier without him. She admits it is, but something's off, and tells him to come home soon. That night, Akane gets spooked by a noise, so she grabs a frying pan for self-defense. A hand reaches through the window and she swings it hard, only to hit Saito. He asks her to chill, and she yells why he didn't use the door like a normal person. He says the chain lock was on and she missed the intercom. Saito says he walked 2 hours, feeling the same emptiness she mentioned. He then takes a shower while she picks up his dirty clothes, wondering how far he walked. When he is done, he catches a glimpse of Akane peeking at him, but she denies and instead claims she was dancing. Later, Akane asks about the party, but Saito is fast asleep. She calls him an idiot and welcomes him home, but unbeknownst to him, Saito, who is half awake, hears her soft voice. This reminds him of the party girl, and leaves him wondering if it was Akane. The next morning, Saito wakes up and sees Akane staring at him like she has been possessed by the soul of some creepy old man. She seems to be in a good mood and has even baked cookies for both of them. However, right at that moment, Saito starts receiving flirty messages from Himari, which instantly ruins Akane's mood. It eventually dawns on Saito that Akane might be jealous, so he does a masterclass on manipulation. He completely changes the topic and asks her why she once said, back when they first met in high school, that it had been a long time since they last met. Akane doesn't fall for it and storms out of the room. In a flashback of a party hosted by Saito's grandfather, Akane is wandering around completely bored. She steps out onto the balcony, where she unexpectedly meets Saito, who's in a similar mood. They start talking and enjoy each other's company, sharing a special moment. The flashback then jumps to their high school entrance exam, where Akane meets Saito again, but he doesn't recognize her. Back in the present, Akane is tormented that she's the only one who remembers their past. Elsewhere, Himari is sitting alone when 3 guys start harassing her despite her protests. Saito dramatically intervenes, threatening the guys and even falsely claiming to be Himari's boyfriend. The guys flee, and Himari teases Saito that she will deduct $50 for overacting. Nonetheless, she reminds him of a favor he owes her and suddenly kisses him. The next day at school, Akane's classmates show her a photo of Saito and Himari kissing. She leaves only to run into Himari, who taunts her, saying she genuinely wants Saito. A furious Akane walks away without responding. Later at home, Akane is determined to do something and calls Himari to talk. After a few hours at the park, Akane bluntly tells Himari to break up with Saito, but Himari points out they aren't even dating. Akane clarifies she means they should stop their act, accusing Himari of taking things too far, like going on dates and kissing Saito. Himari questions why Akane cares since she's only formally married to Saito and has always said she hates him. Finally, Akane confesses she likes Saito, but Himari refuses to back down too. Akane counters that she's liked him since they met at age 12, shocking Himari, who was unaware of their history. Their argument escalates into a typical girl fight, but their moods suddenly shift and they start talking about friendship. Himari admits she knew Akane liked Saito and was pretending to pursue him to bring them closer together. Akane and Himari get emotional, vowing not to give up on their feelings for Saito while promising to remain friends. The next day at school, Akane struggles to get close to Saito because her feelings for him are so intense now. Izumi is a loser whose life is terrible due to his incredibly bad luck. However, his life takes a lucky turn when the most popular girl starts dating him, transforming her into a protective girlfriend who will defend him against his life-threatening luck so she can continue getting freaky with him.
I can't get enough of these.
It's the first day of the new school year, and Izumi's mom, Motoko, wakes him up for school. Before he leaves, she warns him, half joking, half serious, that with how bad his luck is, he might not make it past the front gate. Izumi stays hopeful, but right after stepping outside, he trips over a rock and almost dies right then and there. Things get worse when a truck zooms by and nearly knocks the wind out of him, and then a bird tries to poop on him. He dodges the poop but ends up slipping again. Still, even with all this misfortune, Izumi's heart is made of gold. He helps an old lady cross the street before heading off to meet his girlfriend Shikimori, a pink-haired beauty with a beautiful smile that men are willing to go to war for. They walk to school together, and when Shikimori sees Izumi's scuffed-up face, she instantly knows he had a rough morning. But Izumi's used to it, and when he looks at her face, he thinks to himself that while Shikimori is pretty, she isn't always cute. But being a dimwit, he doesn't just think it, he says it out loud by accident. Shikimori pouts, clearly hurt by the comment. Suddenly, Truck-kun comes back for round 2 with the intention of yuting Izumi, but this time Shikimori leaps in and saves Izumi like the human shield she is. Izumi apologizes, but Shikimori looks him in the eyes and tells him to never apologize for it. And in that moment, Izumi realizes just how cool she is and wonders if a wimp like him is even worthy of dating someone like her. At school, they go to check the class lists. Izumi feels nervous, as he really wants to be in the same class as Shikimori. She struggles to read the board because her eyesight is horrible. But Izumi's perfect 20/20 vision spots both their names in the same class. They're both thrilled, and Shikimori's friends Neko and Yui also cheer when they find out they're in the same class. Just then, Izumi's best buddy Inuzuka is there in the same class too, which makes him happy. The boys head to class first, and when Izumi turns back to say something to Shikimori, he catches her doing a quiet victory dance behind his back. And when she realizes that Izumi is looking, she gets super embarrassed. Later in class, an unlucky moment hits Shikimori when she tries to protect Izumi, when a student cleaning the board drops the eraser and it falls straight for Izumi's head. When Shikimori steps in to stop it, the eraser lands right on her head instead. She brushes it off, saying she's fine, but Izumi gently touches her head and compliments her, leaving her so flustered she has to excuse herself out of the classroom. While she's gone, a few of their classmates tease Izumi for dating someone so far out of his league, and they tell him not to drag her down by being an unlucky loser. But from outside the classroom, Shikimori hears everything the simps are saying to degrade Izumi. Then she enters the classroom calmly, and she takes Izumi with her to the library, but as she's leaving, her glare says it all, and those boys are lucky to leave the room alive. She tells and assures Izumi not to worry about what people say, and Izumi tells her he's okay, but deep down he's afraid he might hurt her just by being himself. After school is over, Inuzuka invites Izumi to hang out, and Izumi agrees, excited to spend time with his best friend. But when he goes to tell Shikimori, she says she's hanging out with her friends too, and they end up turning it into a group hangout. So now it turns into a date for the couple, with 3 lonely losers tagging along. They head to the bowling alley. Inuzuka and Neko start a goofy bet where the loser has to treat the winner to any food that they want. Meanwhile, Shikimori and Izumi are just chilling, as neither of them is good at bowling. When Shikimori ties her hair up and shows off her smooth neck, Izumi short-circuits and runs off to grab a bowling ball. While the guys are gone, the girls start plotting. They suggest Shikimori should pretend to be trash at bowling to come off as cute and helpless. Then the game begins, and Inuzuka barely wins against Neko. But Yui steals the show by throwing the slowest bowling ball ever and still landing a perfect strike, leaving everyone stunned. Shikimori decides to follow through with the plan and act like she sucks, hoping Izumi will call her cute. But when Izumi encourages her to do her absolute best, she changes her mind, locks in, and shows off her real skills. She crushes strike after strike like a pro, and the crowd cheers for her. But Shikimori only cares about one person's reaction, Izumi's. She high-fives him afterward, proving that she's clearly the top in this relationship. After bowling, the group splits up to go their own way. While Izumi is ready to reward her massive victory with something special, Shikimori simply asks him to walk her home, which he agrees to do. On their way back, a strong wind blows a newspaper straight at Izumi's face, but Shikimori blocks it. He apologizes again for dragging her into his unlucky mess, but this time she's genuinely upset by his apology. She tells him not to apologize, as she's used to his bad luck. Though Izumi is happy to hear that, he still feels guilty, and he truthfully admits to Shikimori that he sometimes wonders if people are right about him being a burden. Shikimori stops in her tracks and confronts Izumi's words, not wanting him to feel that way. Suddenly, a store sign falls right at him, but Shikimori kicks it away with ease to save Izumi. She grabs his hand, looks him in the eye, and tells him to stick with her, and that she will always protect him, no matter what anyone else says. Izumi melts on the spot and blurts out that he loves her, sending Shikimori into full-blown panic mode as she tries not to explode from happiness. A few days later, the school hosts a sports tournament where the boys play soccer and the girls play volleyball. Izumi is excited to join, but Inuzuka reminds him that with his horrible luck, someone might slide tackle his head straight into meeting ace. Just then, Shikimori shows up looking as stunning as ever, casually charming Izumi with her presence. She asks what time his game is, but Izumi doesn't know yet. So they check the schedule on the bulletin board together, and Izumi is looking forward to cheering for Shikimori during her volleyball game like the supportive boyfriend he is. But his excitement quickly dies when he realizes their games are happening at the same time, which means that they won't be able to watch each other in action. While Shikimori seems okay with it, she admits she's a little nervous about facing a strong opponent on the volleyball court. To lift her spirits, Izumi leans in with some heartfelt words, promising to support her even if they're apart, and his words make her blush heavily. Later, the soccer match kicks off, and Izumi immediately eats dirt on the first play due to his bad luck. Shikimori watches from the sidelines and tries to send him some good luck from afar. At first, it looks like it works, as Izumi gets a golden chance to score a goal, but the anime gods hate him, and when Izumi tries to kick the ball, he kicks the air and falls flat on his face. Watching this, Shikimori can't help but feel even worse for the disaster she calls her boyfriend. As Izumi slowly gets up and brushes himself off, a soccer ball comes flying straight at him without warning. Shikimori shouts to alert him, but it's too late, and he gets smacked and knocked out cold. Later, he wakes up in the infirmary with Shikimori sitting by his side. He immediately feels guilty and asks if she's going to miss her volleyball game, but she smiles and tells him she still has time. Then she gets a little flirty, gently playing with his hair. She notices a scar above his eyebrow and asks about it. Izumi admits he's gotten hurt a lot in the past, saying he has scars all over because of his constant bad luck. Shikimori says she's no longer surprised by anything he says, as he's clearly been through everything. She then tells him how much she worries about him, and asks him to stay close to her whenever he can, which makes Izumi feel like he's the girlfriend in the relationship. When she gets up to leave, he tries to regain his pride and says he can protect her too. That makes Shikimori pause, and with a teasing grin, she climbs onto the bed and straddles him. He turns bright red and reminds her about her volleyball game, but she jokes that maybe she'll just hide under the blanket next to him and cuddle, making him even more flustered. She then says she's just messing around and finally leaves, but as soon as she steps out, she blushes hard, wondering what in the world she just did. Meanwhile, the volleyball game kicks off, and Shikimori's team is getting crushed by the opposing side, mostly because of the star player Kamiya. At the same time, Izumi returns to the soccer field, where he finds Inuzuka crying over their team's loss. Trying to cheer him up, Izumi suggests they go watch the volleyball match. They head over, only to find their class team losing, and the energy in the crowd is low, and Yui, who's supposed to hype them up, isn't helping at all. Seeing Shikimori, Izumi immediately cheers for her at the top of his lungs, which lights a fire in her. Suddenly she starts playing like she's powered by rocket fuel, and as the game goes on, Izumi spots Kamiya and is surprised. Inuzuka notices and asks if he knows her. Izumi says yes, but doesn't go into any details. Thanks to Shikimori's burst of energy, her team catches up and eventually wins, and the whole class erupts in celebration. Izumi rushes to congratulate her like a supportive boyfriend, while Kamiya quietly slips away. Back in class, everyone praises Shikimori for her amazing performance, and Izumi, proud as ever, congratulates her again. She tells him that it was all because of his cheering during the game, but he compliments her athletic skills and admits he's nothing compared to her, especially since he got knocked out of his own match so early. Shikimori reassures him, saying he tried his best and always looks adorable when he puts in effort, which makes him blush. Suddenly, a group of girls barges into the classroom, asking for selfies and autographs from Shikimori. That's when Izumi realizes that his girlfriend is basically a school celebrity, and is everyone's girlfriend. Over the next few days, girls keep surrounding Shikimori to get close to her, and other girls also approach Neko to ask for her pictures. And Izumi starts feeling like he's losing her. He shares his worries with Inuzuka, who tries to calm him down, but just then, a ball flies toward him. Quickly, Inuzuka pushes him out of the way and takes the hit instead. Izumi instantly feels terrible, as his bad luck has now hurt someone else. While he tries to take care of Inuzuka, Shikimori watches from afar and misreads the situation. She starts to think that maybe Izumi has developed a new interest in dudes, and when her jealousy, her fangirls ogle over her angry face. After school, Izumi prepares to go home but feels weighed down by guilt, as not only did Inuzuka get hit, but other misfortunes followed him too, one of which ended with Inuzuka going home with a broken arm. He's caught up in his thoughts, feeling a little lost about Shikimori's rising popularity. Just then, he slips on the stairs and almost gets hurt again. But Shikimori shows up just in time to catch him. She scolds him for going home alone, and he tells her it's because she's popular now, and he didn't want to interfere. She looks at him like he's talking nonsense, and reminds him that he's the only one she wants to walk home with. That brightens Izumi's spirits instantly. Still, she accuses him of spending more time with Inuzuka lately, and he just smiles and says he missed her, which makes Shikimori's tough exterior melt away. A few days later, while in class, Inuzuka plays the wingman, and hands Izumi 2 movie tickets he got from a coworker. Inuzumi asks why he's giving them away, and Inuzuka explains that he's too busy to use them before they expire, so he tells Izumi to keep one and give the other to anyone he wants. Meanwhile, Shikimori sits nearby, casually listening in and making awkward little faces, clearly wanting to go but doesn't want to say it outright. After Inuzuka leaves the room, Izumi walks over to Shikimori's desk and asks if she'd like to go see a movie with him, and she says yes before he can even finish asking. That night, back at home, Izumi is thrilled about the movie date. He sits in his room thinking about how awesome it is that he's going out with Shikimori, but then he snaps himself back to reality, reminding himself that the last time they went out, because of his bad luck, it rained heavily, and he lost his wallet. But despite everything, Shikimori smiled the whole time. This time, he's determined to make sure everything goes perfectly. He starts packing the essentials, from bringing to tying a string to his wallet so it won't get lost again. But once everything is packed, the bag turns out to be so heavy that he topples over while trying to carry it. Meanwhile, at Shikimori's house, she's flipping through a Vogue magazine on how to look effortlessly cute. She tries on different outfits but doesn't feel satisfied with any of them. Her older brother hears the noises she makes and walks in to check what she's doing. Shikimori tells him she's going to the movies with a friend tomorrow. But being curious, he asks her who this friend is that's making her act this way. But she tells him to mind his own business. He shrugs and wishes her luck before leaving. The next day, Izumi leaves the house early, but he's not carrying the bag because the strap snapped just as he was heading out. He hits a few unlucky bumps along the way, but he's used to that by now. Then he spots Shikimori already waiting for him. He runs up, surprised she arrived earlier than planned, and when he sees her up close, he's stunned by how beautiful she looks and tells her she's really cute. On the train ride, Izumi's imagination kicks in. He daydreams about watching a romance anime with Shikimori, and when the characters kiss, he imagines kissing her too. Shikimori notices his red face and asks if he's feeling sick, but Izumi insists he's fine and is just excited about the date. At the movie theater, they start deciding what to watch. Izumi asks what she'd like to see, but she says she's fine with whatever he chooses. Izumi gently insists that this time she should decide what they watch. He says that she always puts him first, but he wants to know more about her tastes. Blushing, Shikimori chooses a movie with a scary-looking poster, which shocks Izumi as it looks like a horror movie. She explains she saw great reviews on social media and had been meaning to watch it. Even though Izumi doesn't like horror films, he thinks this could be his chance to be the brave one if Shikimori gets scared. But once the movie starts, they watch the Walmart version of it, and instead of his initial plan of being the brave one, it's Izumi who's practically shaking in his seat. Luckily, Shikimori notices and grabs his hand to comfort him, and he gladly holds on. After the film, Izumi is still shaken, and Shikimori apologizes for picking such a scary movie. But Izumi thanks her, saying he would have passed out if she weren't there holding his hand. He adds that having her by his side made him feel stronger, which makes him sound a little silly, but he means it. They decide to get food next and head to a fancy restaurant in town. Shikimori spots a dish she really wants, and it's expensive, but Izumi reassures her that he has been saving for this day. But when he reaches for his wallet, it's missing again, and it turns out that the string he tied to it snapped, leaving him devastated. They leave the restaurant, and Izumi is crushed because he wanted the day to be perfect. But Shikimori stays kind and understanding, just like always. Just then, they run into Izumi's parents, who ask them where they are heading. Izumi informs them what happened, but they're not even shocked, as they know their son's cursed luck better than anyone. To help their son out, they invite Shikimori to join them for dinner, and she gladly accepts. At home, dinner is served, and Shikimori is grateful. Just as they're about to eat, a rogue fork flies across the table toward Izumi's face, but Shikimori catches it like a ninja, saving him once again. His parents are amazed and start clapping for her. They keep piling more food on her plate, saying she's welcome anytime, and Shikimori gets flustered. After dinner, she helps Izumi's mom wash the dishes, and as they clean up, his mom quietly thanks Shikimori for staying by her son's side. She starts sharing stories about how Izumi used to get hurt constantly when he was younger, so often that it felt like he was competing to die more than Subaru. She jokes about how unlucky he is, and says she hopes Shikimori doesn't lose patience with him. She also warns that dating Izumi means sharing some of his bad luck, but Shikimori responds gently, and she says that while it's true Izumi attracts accidents, she's never seen that as a flaw, because in Shikimori's eyes, she admires Izumi's kindness and how he always puts others before himself, even when things go wrong. She says that Izumi is strong, not weak, and that she'll protect him just as much as he protects her. Her words leave Izumi's mom speechless. Later that evening, they wake up Izumi, who had fallen asleep on the couch, and he's surprised to find her in the middle of a heated Wii boxing match with his dad. They both go all out and end in a draw. Akisada gives Shikimori his respect, and Izumi feels happy seeing them bond. As he walks her home, he apologizes for how the day turned out, but she smiles and tells him not to worry. Then she asks him what kind of movies he likes, and suggests they go see another one sometime soon. A few days later, summer arrives. Izumi and the others are talking about where to go for the break. Shikimori walks up from behind and hands Izumi a cold bottle of water to help with the heat. She tells him to stay hydrated and smiles at him, making him melt on the spot. Then, Yui gives Izumi an umbrella to keep him in the shade, and Neko teases Shikimori, saying she looks jealous of them, but Shikimori doesn't react at all. Neko suggests they go to the beach for summer break. Shikimori gets excited, and so do Neko and Inuzuka, but Izumi and Yui prefer winter and want to stay home. Izumi understands why Shikimori is excited, but he feels left out because every time he goes to the beach, he gets sunburned and has to sit under the umbrella. Suddenly, Inuzuka suggests going to the river instead. Being a real bestie, he worries about Izumi getting sunburned again. Izumi tells them not to treat him differently, but they express how they want to go somewhere that everyone can enjoy. They ask Yui what she thinks, and being a bit of a lazy scrub, she just wants to stay home, turn on the AC, and relax. Yui warns them that the river might be dangerous for Izumi because of his bad luck, but Shikimori says not to worry, as she'll be there to save him. A few days later, the exam schedule is released, and Neko immediately uses it as an excuse to trick the group into going to the mall. She tells them it's for a study session, But once they arrive, Neko drops the real reason that they need swimsuits for their upcoming trip to the river. Inuzuka immediately protests, saying only weirdos wear swimsuits at the river. Neko gets mad, but he reminds her they should be studying instead of shopping. Meanwhile, Shikimori quietly asks Izumi if he's planning to swim. The question makes him freeze as flashbacks of his tragic river experiences play in his mind. He quickly says he'll pass, and Shikimori gives him a long dramatic side-eye and says how it's a shame that he won't be showcasing his body, which instantly makes him feel uneasy. She then announces that if he's not swimming, she doesn't need a swimsuit either. Yui and Neko hear this and roll their eyes, leaving the couple alone with Inuzuka. With the group now split, Shikimori wonders what they should do, but suddenly she notices Izumi glaring at a swimsuit poster featuring a model in a super revealing swimsuit. Jealousy hits her hard and she quietly excuses herself, leaving Izumi totally confused. Instead of heading outside, Shikimori walks straight into the swimsuit section to find the exact same swimsuit from the poster. She picks it up, holding it nervously, and just then Neko and Yui appear. Neko's jaw drops and she immediately starts teasing, asking if Shikimori's auditioning for Playboy's Mansion. Shikimori turns red and starts flailing, trying to explain herself. She says it's not what they think, and that she only grabbed it because Izumi was staring at it earlier. Neko and Yui grin and say this just proves how competitive Shikimori is. She's confused by the comment, so Neko takes her down memory lane. When Neko first saw Shikimori, she thought Shikimori was beautiful and graceful and wanted to be her friend. But it wasn't easy, as Shikimori is so different from Neko, and it got harder when Shikimori started dating Izumi because they're always lovey-dovey. Neko says she's tall, tomboyish, and kinda tacky, while Shikimori is the perfect woman she wants to be like. Then, the class held a basketball game between the girls. Neko wants to take it easy, but Shikimori was serious and scored basket after basket on Neko. Frustrated, Neko steals the ball and sinks a three-pointer, showing everyone she's the best player there. They go back and forth, refusing to lose, and after Neko wins, she invites Shikimori to lunch, which is how their friendship started. Back in the present, Shikimori looks surprised at the story. Before she can respond, Neko pushes her toward the changing room, telling her they'll help her pick out the best swimsuit. Meanwhile, Izumi and Inuzuka are at a cafe, going over math problems. After a while, the girls return, and Shikimori's face is flushed like she just did something unholy. Izumi asks why she looks so red, and she tries to play it cool, insisting it's not like she bought anything or anything like that. But he's not buying it, as her guilty smile says otherwise. The next day, after exams, Izumi walks home with Shikimori, sulking after his bad luck strikes again, when all his pens broke during the exam. Shikimori tries to comfort him, but things get worse when a random dog sees Izumi's defeated expression and barks at him like he's a criminal. That night, he lies in bed with his head buried in a pillow, questioning what he did in a past life to deserve so much misery. Then, his phone rings, and it's Shikimori. She knows he's probably sulking and says she just wanted to hear his voice. Instantly, Izumi feels better. He moves to his window and tells her to look outside at the North Star shining above. She asks if he likes stargazing, and he says yes, but explains that whenever his dad took him stargazing as a kid, it always rained thanks to his never-ending bad luck, so he never actually saw any stars. Shikimori promises to take him somewhere with a sky full of stars one day, but Izumi surprises her by saying he wants to take her somewhere she wants to go instead. Shikimori asks why, and he tells her it's because she's always done things for him, and now he wants to do something just for her. She's quiet for a second before revealing that she doesn't have a particular place in mind. Izumi misunderstands and thinks she doesn't want to go anywhere with him, but she clears it up quickly and says she wants to go wherever he wants to go, as seeing him happy is what makes her happiest. That's enough to make Izumi start crying, and Shikimori softly says it's time to sleep. Izumi tells her that after hearing her voice he feels so much better and wishes he could see her right now. Shikimori turns bright red and hangs up in a hurry before she starts tweaking from embarrassment. She throws herself back on her bed, heart racing, butterflies in her stomach. Kicking her legs under the covers, she smiles, whispering to herself that she also wishes she could see him too. A week later, after exams finish, Izumi and the gang head out for their summer trip to the river. When they see the river, everyone is amazed that Izumi's bad luck didn't mess things up this time. They're all excited to swim, but Inuzuka and Neko want to start with a barbecue, while the others watch them like they're wild animals. They get ready to cook. Inuzuka, feeling confident, starts chopping an onion like he's a chef, but he does it all wrong. The girls quickly sit him down and tell him to stay out of it. Then Izumi picks up the knife, and everyone worries he'll mess up or worse, cut himself in a bad place. But surprisingly, Izumi slices the onion like the second coming of Gordon Ramsay. He explains he's used to helping his parents cook, and Shikimori totally melts knowing her future husband can cook. Inuzuka says Izumi might get popular with those skills, but Shikimori tells him to shut his mouth. They keep making skewers and lighting the charcoal. While everyone focuses on the grill, Shikimori quietly makes something else. When the food is ready, she gives Izumi a special dish she cooked just for him. Izumi happily takes a bite but immediately pukes it out. He drops to his knees, seeing Jiraiya calling him to join him from the other side. Shikimori tries it too, and also falls to her knees, and everyone realizes she can't cook at all. Still, Izumi takes another bite, and Shikimori worries for him, but he says he'll keep eating because she made it for him. That fires up Shikimori's competitive competitive spirit, and she vows to learn how to cook just for him. After eating, they all want something sweet, and Izumi, like a true chef, pulls out some s'mores he made. Everyone is impressed by his creativity, and he whispers in Shikimori's ear how much he wants to put his creamy s'mores in her mouth.
Naughty, naughty.
She wastes no time gobbling them down, and when he asks how they taste, she teasingly says she'd love to eat his sweet white creamy s'mores every day, making him almost lose it. After cleaning up, the others run excitedly to the river. Before joining, Shikimori secretly asks Izumi to make more creamy s'mores in the future, but this time just for the two of them, no one else. They play in the river, dipping their feet in the water, and Shikimori feels nervous about showing Izumi her new swimsuit. Meanwhile, the others happily mess around and call them to join. While alone, Izumi spots a little girl getting swept away by the current, and he knows he has to act fast. The stupid girl panics, crying for her mama. Izumi pops up from underwater to save her, but she hits him in fear. He calms her down and uses her floaty to help swim to safety, lifting her above the current, just as Izumi is about to join the others. The gods of fate say Isekai, causing Izumi to get cramps and start drifting away. Meanwhile, Neko encourages Shikimori to show Izumi her swimsuit and jump in. But when Inuzuka notices Izumi missing, they all search for him. They find the little girl crying for Izumi, and Neko panics, unsure of what to do. Shikimori strips off her top and quickly jumps in to save him. In the deep water, Izumi starts losing consciousness, thinking he might actually join Jiraiya in death. But Shikimori has other plans, and she saves him from drowning. After getting him safe, she scolds him for not calling her, but when he apologizes, she softens and drops her anger. The others rush over, worried, and behind them, the stupid little girl and her clapped mother thank Izumi for saving her child. Izumi calms them down, and the kid kisses him, making Shikimori jealous. With the danger averted, they keep having fun, splashing each other and looking for fish. Izumi notices Shikimori's cute swimsuit and feels something rise, but instead just compliments her look. Later, they visit a nearby market to buy dry clothes. Then at an ice cream store, Izumi and Shikimori get their ice cream first. Shikimori offers Izumi a lick, and when he agrees, they both feel a spark, imagining something freaky. She tries to return the favor, but before she can, Inuzuka shows up and takes a big bite from Izumi's ice cream, leaving them shocked and without ice cream. Shikimori takes revenge by eating a huge chunk of Inuzuka's ice cream with a spoon, almost giving herself a brain freeze. A battle breaks out between them while Izumi is left without ice cream. Hours later, they head to the train station to go home and find a completely empty train car. At first, they excitedly chat about the trip, but after a few minutes, everyone falls asleep except for Izumi. Shikimori tries to stay awake but ends up resting her head on Izumi's shoulder, and he folds inside. To distract himself, he remembers the great trip he had with everyone, which he will treasure forever. Despite his bad luck, Izumi feels lucky to have such good friends and an amazing plot armor girlfriend named Shikimori. Hours later, Izumi falls asleep, and Shikimori wakes up, gently pulling his head back to her shoulder so he can rest, returning the favor. Days after the river trip, Izumi gets sick from a bad sunburn. Shikimori calls him to cheer him up, and while they talk, Izumi sees a TV report about an upcoming fireworks festival. His excitement sparks, and he tells Shikimori he wants to go with her, which she immediately says yes. On festival day, Izumi's parents help him put on his yukata. His mom, Motoko, feels jealous because the fireworks remind her of her youth. When Izumi mentions that Shikimori has never seen fireworks before, his dad, Akasada, tells him to listen carefully. With a deep, manly voice, Akasada shares a secret spot to watch fireworks away from the crowd so they can have some alone time. Izumi wonders how his dad knows it, and Motoko explains that Akasada took her there when they were trying to make Izumi. Meanwhile, Shikimori struggles putting on her kimono for the first time. Her brother Fuji hears her sighs and comes to help. He makes her look good but calls her ugly before leaving, which annoys Shikimori. Izumi arrives at the festival first, prepared with multiple wallets after the last date fiasco. After a few minutes, Shikimori appears, looking cute in her kimono. They both admire each other's appearance and head inside. They explore the festival and enjoy themselves. Izumi buys cotton candy, but wonders why Shikimori didn't get one. She explains she never liked sweets, which reminds Izumi of all the times he took her out for sweet treats. But she says because of him and how much he enjoys sweet food, she started to enjoy sweets and tries to eat some. Next, they go to a shooting game with prizes. Izumi wants the prize that looks like a dog. The stall keeper tells Izumi to look cool for his girl, but Izumi's bad luck makes him miss every shot, leaving him looking like a wimp. Shikimori wants to try, and the stall keeper underestimates her because she's a girl, but she ignores him. She aims carefully, locks in, and hits every target perfectly, showing these guys she can shoot straighter than a cowboy. The stall keeper is shocked by the spectating display, and he gives Shikimori the prize, but she gives it to Izumi, telling him to keep it to remember her by, and her riz almost folded both men. At the festival, Inuzuka, Nico, and Yui hang out too. When they meet Izumi and Shikimori, the girls flock to Shikimori to admire her beautiful yukata. Seeing everyone there, Inuzuka suggests playing capture the fish but turns it into a competition. At the fish catching stall, Inuzuka competes against Izumi. Inuzuka easily catches a fish, but Izumi's bad luck causes his paddle to fall in the water. Shikimori appears, refusing to let her boyfriend lose his aura, and competes too. But Inuzuka easily beats her because Shikimori is bad at games needing patience and fast hands. Neko and Yui notice fireworks are about to start, and Neko takes over Shikimori's game, while Yui tells her to stop wasting time and watch the fireworks with Izumi. The couple heads toward the display, and Izumi plans to take her to the secret spot, but Shikimori's sandal breaks. Izumi fixes the strap, but her wounded feet make walking hard. She asks Izumi about his plans, and he hesitates, but she insists he tell her. Izumi shares the secret spot his dad told him about, which is a perfect place for couples. Shikimori gets excited and demands to go, but Izumi refuses to let her walk on her own sore feet. Feeling disappointed, she says that they can come there next year. But Izumi has a better idea. He crouches and tells her to get on his back, and while Shikimori is scared that she's too heavy, Izumi insists that he wants to carry her. She climbs on, and while it's tough at first, he manages to carry her. The fireworks start, and they admire the beauty, but Izumi keeps going towards the secret spot. Then they reach a long staircase to the secret spot. Shikimori worries she might be too heavy, but Izumi refuses to stop, keeps climbing, and says he's doing it to see her smile from the heart. Finally, they reach the top and find a quiet place with an amazing view. Izumi sits her on a bench, and together they watch the fireworks explode beautifully in the sky. Shikimori apologizes for making him carry her, worried he might think she's not cute. But Izumi uses his undeniable charms to tell her that even in her worst look, she's still cuter than any girl in the world. Then Izumi confesses that he's scared she might see him as a loser, as the year before he didn't invite her to the festival because of that fear. Unbeknownst to him, Shikimori admits she was waiting for him to ask her out last year, but she says it doesn't matter now because she's finally enjoying the fireworks with him and thanks him for the experience. After the show ends, Izumi tries to lift her again but slips. Just then, Akisada appears and catches them before they fall, with Motoko there too. They wonder why these two are here, and Motoko says they've been watching the lovebirds from behind all along. Akisada carries both and offers to drive them home. Izumi and Shikimori thank him for showing them such a wonderful place. After summer break, Izumi and the others start a new school term, and they all get busy preparing for the culture festival. Izumi is put in charge of the costume department, working with Yui and some other girls to sew costumes. Meanwhile, Shikimori joins the decoration team with others. As they laugh and have fun, Izumi feels jealous watching them enjoy themselves. At the same time, one of the girls asks Izumi for help, and Shikimori gets jealous seeing him getting close to some basic girl. Inuzuka walks by, notices Shikimori glaring daggers at him, seeing him as her rival, and thinks to himself that this chick is psychotic. A few days later, the cultural festival kicks off. On the first morning, Izumi walks through the school gates and gets handed a card with the number 44. He instantly thinks it's an unlucky number but keeps quiet. He's more surprised they're doing the same couple numbers game as last year. In their classroom, Izumi's class hold an animal cafe where students wear costumes and serve customers. When the event begins, Izumi suits up in a lion costume and tries to hype himself up, but his friends quickly burst that bubble, saying he looks even worse than usual. Just then, Shikimori shows up, looking a little self-conscious in her bunny outfit. Izumi cheers her up by saying she looks like a snack, and it immediately lifts her mood. She returns the favor saying he looks like cool, which gets a laugh out of both of them. As the festival gets busier and everyone splits up to handle their duties, and Izumi takes on a waiter role. Unfortunately, his bad luck doesn't take the day off. While delivering food to a table, someone accidentally drops a napkin in his path. Izumi slips, but right before he crashes, Shikimori swoops in and catches him. The crowd is impressed, and Izumi is once again saved by his personal hero. On day 2 of the festival, Izumi is assigned to library duty. On his way there, he hopes his partner is someone from his grade, as spending 3 hours with a total stranger would be awkward. When he arrives, he's surprised to see Kamiya, and he tells her he's relieved it's someone he knows. As they sort books onto shelves, Izumi starts chatting about how they met. He reminds her how last year they were both on library duty, and that he knew her not only from the library committee, but also as the volleyball team's ace. At that time, she was in the class next to his, so they naturally ended up paired for duty. Back then, he was super nervous talking to her, but Kamiya had made it easy for him. They continue chatting, and Izumi asks what her class is doing for the festival. She says they're running a cafe too, just like his class. He jokes that her class must be suffering without her, and she confirms it, saying how people literally cried when she left yesterday. Izumi brings up how popular she was with the younger students during the sports tournament. Kamiya sighs and says it's the exact chaos that makes her appreciate the peace and quiet of the library. Months ago, the first time Izumi enters the library, he's a bundle of nerves and ends up smacking his head on a desk. Kamiya calmly tells him to chill, as they're in the same grade. Izumi admits he's just anxious because it's his first time doing library duty, and Kamiya shows him the ropes, and they slowly become friends. Back in the present, Kamiya tells Izumi he seems different now. When he asks what she means, she says maybe it's because he has a girlfriend now. Izumi is stunned on how she knows that information, and Kamiya casually says that Neko told her. Then suddenly, Kamiya becomes way more talkative than usual, making Izumi feel like something's up. Out of the blue, she asks how he and Shikimori got together. He asks why she wants to know, and she says she's just curious, as she rarely talks about relationships and wants to hear hear about theirs. When Izumi hesitates to answer, she steps closer and even pushes him up against a bookshelf. She tells him straight up that she's interested in Shikimori, which completely throws Izumi off. For a second he wonders if she means that she likes Shikimori in a scissor-loving way. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the school, the couple numbers list is posted on the bulletin board. Shikimori checks the list, and her face drops when she sees that she and Izumi don't have matching numbers. She looks like she's about to explode. Neko asks why she's so upset, and Yui explains that the couple numbers game is a school tradition during the festival. Everyone gets a number at random, and those who match are supposed to take a photo together, which was how Shikimori and Izumi started dating last year. After thinking for a moment, Shikimori decides what she has to do, which is find the person with the same number as Izumi and trade her number with them. Back in the library, Kamiya is still gently pressing Izumi to tell her how he and Shikimori got together. He finally opens up. He says they got matching numbers during last year's festival, and Shikimori was too shy to ask him for a photo, so Izumi suggested they walk around. Eventually, they passed the couple numbers photo booth. Izumi thought about asking her, but before he could, Shikimori boldly asked if he'd take a picture with her. He said yes, admitting he was about to ask her too. But just as things were going perfectly, disaster struck, and Izumi lost his number card. He was so embarrassed he wanted to vanish into thin air, but Shikimori told him not to worry, and they should just look for it together. He told her it was no use, and that he always lost things, but she confidently said they'd change that. After 2 hours of searching, they met the event committee president, and after some pleading, he gave Izumi a new card. They finally got their photo, and that moment gave Izumi the courage to confess, and he asked her out in the back of the school, wanting the same thing. Shikimori accepted his feelings and hugged him to express it, which is the start of their dating relationship. Kamiya lights up and calls it the best youth romance story she's ever heard since Aratagiru. But then, in a twist, it's revealed that Kamiya is the one who has the same number as Izumi this year. In Kamiya's mind, she imagines herself as a princess, popular, admired by many, but with her eyes set on only one prince, Izumi. She watches him quietly from afar, unable to say how she feels, but before she can tell him, it's too late. Another princess, Shikimori, arrives and claims Izumi's heart first. Kamiya forces a faint smile, hiding the pain of a love that never bloomed, standing alone as the curtain closes on her story. Back at the library, Kamiya asks Izumi if he's seen the new fairy tale romance movie, and he says he hasn't. When Izumi asks her opinion about it, she replies that people who watch those movies and wish for a romance like that are often the same people who realize their love will never come true. Just then, Nico enters the library and asks Kamiya to step outside. There, Shikimori begs Kamiya to trade couple numbers with her. When Kamiya asks why, Shikimori reveals that Kamiya holds Izumi's number. Although it's hard for her wounded heart, Kamiya hands over her number to Shikimori. Izumi walks out, surprised to see Shikimori there. Kamiya tells him he can leave his shift and go with Shikimori, but Izumi refuses, as he doesn't want to leave Kamiya working alone. Kamiya blushes, her heart racing at how much Izumi cares for her. But there, Shikimori notices and understands Kamiya's true feelings for Izumi. Shikimori and Nico relax in the library, waiting for Izumi to finish, and Shikimori can't help but watch Kamiya's body language around Izumi. Later, after his shift, Izumi leaves with the girls. Meanwhile, Kamiya ties her hair and returns to her classroom, where classmates cheer her return and customers admire her beauty. But in her mind, Kamiya isn't there, as she only remembers the quiet moments with Izumi. Overwhelmed, she asks to take a break and goes to the rooftop for fresh air. Kamiya reflects on Shikimori, admiring how she openly shows her feelings, which is something Kamiya has always hidden. Suddenly, Shikimori appears on the rooftop, surprising her, and she returns Kamiya's couple number. Shikimori reveals she knows how Kamiya feels about Izumi, and Kamiya is shocked. A year ago, Izumi accidentally caused a bookshelf to fall in the library, almost hurting them both. As they cleaned the mess, Izumi told Kamiya she was a good person. Kamiya felt strange hearing that, as no one had ever called her that before. It surprised Izumi too, but he showed her kindness anyway. Kamiya realizes that as Izumi's girlfriend, Shikimori understands her feelings better than anyone. Instead of being angry, Shikimori says she doesn't want to hurt someone as kind as Kamiya, and she admits it wouldn't be fair. Kamiya promises never to tell Izumi about her feelings or anyone else. She remembers how excited she always was to meet Izumi in the library, as he's the one she loves, the only person who truly sees her, flaws and all. Tears fall as Kamiya regrets having feelings she never shared, and she feels guilty, like she's betrayed Izumi by not staying just friends. She promises to never approach him again. But suddenly Shikimori rips up the couple number and hugs Kamiya tightly, apologizing for causing her pain. She tells Kamiya a person with such a beautiful soul like her should always treasure their feelings, and Kamiya cries openly. After calming down, Kamiya tells Shikimori to go back to Izumi, and watching Shikimori walk away, Kamiya feels like the lonely princess, watching the other princess win the prince's heart. Still, Kamiya wishes them happiness, and she's glad Izumi is with someone so wonderful. The next day, Izumi prepares a gift for Shikimori's birthday and their first anniversary. At school, the festival goes well, and afterwards students party. Yui asks to see Shikimori's couple number photo, but Shikimori says she lost hers, surprising surprising everyone. Later, Izumi invites Shikimori to the park and gives her the birthday gift. She's happy, and Izumi senses something's wrong and asks, but she says she's fine. She opens the present and sees a heart-shaped necklace. Izumi asks to put it on her, and when he does, she gets flustered. He teases her gently, promising they'll always be together. Suddenly, Shikimori says Izumi hasn't changed, which worries her, and she fears his kindness might drift him away, making others see him the way she does. She begs him not to change, but Izumi says that he has changed, and it's her who changed him for the better, and that he wants her to trust him more. Shikimori cries tears of happiness and swears that other girl will ever have him but her. Then, before going home, she asks whether she looks good, and he tells her that she looks beautiful. A few days later, Inuzuka arrives at school and meets Neko, who is panicking because Izumi got sick. But Inuzuka stays calm and says he already knew, and that Izumi even asked him to take notes for class. Just then, Shikimori appears, jealous that Izumi asked Inuzuka for help instead of her, and Inuzuka wonders why she sees him as a love rival. Later, he vents to the girls, worried about Shikimori's jealousy. They tell him that even when they get close to Izumi, Shikimori never gets jealous at them, and this makes Inuzuka think she actually hates him. Neko tells him that Shikimori recently talked about him and Izumi's close friendship, but instead of being happy, Shikimori feels jealous of Inuzuka. Inuzuka demands answers, and Neko assures him Shikimori doesn't hate him. After school, Shikimori asks Inuzuka if she can come with him to Izumi's house, and he agrees. After they leave, Neko orders Yui that she has to follow and find out what's going on. On the way, they stop at a convenience store. Shikimori wants to buy cough drops for Izumi, but can't decide which one, so she asks Inuzuka for advice. He carelessly picks one just to get things over with, but then she calls him brother and asks about some candies. Seeing a grape-flavored candy, Inuzuka picks it, but just then, they both realize that Shikimori just called him brother. Before she can explain, she runs to the cashier. After paying, she gives him the candy, telling him she knows he loves grape flavor, which he does. Outside the store, they meet Yui, who's been following them and figured out why Shikimori treats Inuzuka badly. Putting on her detective hat, Yui says it's because Inuzuka reminds Shikimori of her own big brother, who's often cold to her. Inuzuka doesn't believe it at first, but seeing Shikimori's reaction, he realizes it's true. This makes him happy, as he now knows she doesn't really hate him. Yui sees the candy and asks for some, and Inuzuka refuses, saying that he got it from a crybaby thirsty for her brother's attention. Hearing that, Shikimori shoots them a deadly look, and they quickly apologize. Days later, Shikimori and Neko hang out at a mall, and there they spot Kamiya in a bookstore. Shikimori hesitates to approach her, but Neko quickly greets her. After greetings, Neko invites Kamiya to join their girls' day out. Though Neko expects a blunt rejection, Kamiya accepts, which excites Neko, as she's never succeeded in inviting Kamiya out before. They spend the day together, picking dolls, admiring puppies, and taking group photos, posing like models. When Neko leaves for the restroom, Kamiya wants to try the claw machine. She asks Shikimori how to play, but even after Shikimori teaches her, Kamiya can't win. Shikimori takes over and wins lots of snacks, nearly emptying the arcade. Instead of keeping them, she gives the prizes to Kamiya. When Kamiya asks why, Shikimori says she did it for her, but this sparks Kamiya's competitive spirit and she wants to return the favor. Minutes later, Neko returns and sees Kamiya happily playing with Shikimori. Seeing Kamiya's smile reminds Neko of the past. Before, Kamiya always refused Neko's invites, and some friends even told Neko not to bother anymore, as they don't want to bother Kamiya too much. But today, Neko sees Kamiya smiling brightly. Neko rejoins them and is surprised at the prizes they won, which is a proof of their competitive spirits. Later, they find a basketball court, but just as they get ready to play, two rude girls tell them to leave, as they have reserved the court. Shikimori and the girls agree to go, but the strangers challenge them to a game for the right to play. The girls trash-talk Shikimori and her friends, calling them ugly fatzos. This fires up Shikimori and Kamiya, and they accept the challenge. Neko acts as referee and starts the game. The rivals fight hard, but Shikimori and Kamiya play like top pros, crushing them and winning. After the game, the rivals become friends, and everyone takes a group photo. Later, as they head home, Kamiya asks to be Shikimori's friend, and Shikimori happily agrees. On the way back, Neko says Kamiya has changed, and she's happy to see this new side of her who likes to smile and hanging out with friends. Kamiya apologizes for always turning down invites before, and Neko says to her that she is nice, which reminds Kamiya of Izumi, making her blush. As friends, Kamiya tells Neko she can ask anything, and Neko starts by asking for her favorite snack. Kamiya says she has none because her weird taste buds makes her like glizzies dipped in milk. Then Neko asks if Kamiya knows Izumi and that he's dating Shikimori. Seeing Kamiya's changed expression, Neko asks who helped her change. Kamiya can't say but tells Neko there's someone who told her to cherish her feelings, and she hopes to tell Neko who it is someday. When Kamiya smiles, it's a smile Neko has never seen before. They run off into the sunset together, with Neko hoping that one day Kamiya will truly smile from her heart. Months pass and autumn arrives. The school gears up for the big sports festival, and Izumi's class picks their relay team by lottery. When it's Izumi's turn, he silently prays that he doesn't get chosen, but Faith herself laughs and says Psyche to him, making sure Izumi is in the race. Next, Yui steps up to pick her name, and she also hopes not to get picked, but Faith herself decides to do a double whammy and make sure she'll run too, so they suffer together. Then, when another student is picked, Shikimori asks to trade places so she can run alongside Izumi. Seeing the crew for the relay, Neko and Inuzuka decide to jump in too, wanting to turn it into a full team activity, and mostly just to have some fun. Shikimori tries to show off her heroic volunteering, clearly hoping Izumi will notice and hype her up, but he is too busy celebrating Inuzuka for joining the race, leaving Shikimori feeling ignored and a bit salty. Before the practice begins, the group huddles up. Yui admits she's not built for running with her short legs, and Izumi also confesses that he's far from athletic. Shikimori tries to give a cool motivational speech, but Inuzuka beats her to it, stealing the moment and annoying her. Nico lightens the mood by saying they might lose anyway, but it's all about having fun, and Izumi quietly agrees, thinking that maybe this won't be so bad after all. They start training with high spirits. Everyone seems into it except Yui, who already looks like she's accepted defeat. They figure out the running order and begin practicing. Things go okay at first, until Yui starts running slower than a grandma. And as soon as she passes the baton to Izumi, he trips and eats dirt, but he pops back up and keeps running, surprising Yui and sparking a small bit of hope in her. By the end of one practice round, Yui and Izumi look like they've been through a whole recession while everyone else is still full of energy. But Inuzuka and the rest of the team encourage them, promising to support them during the race. Later that evening, after the others leave, Izumi asks Yui to stay behind and train a little more with him since they're the weakest runners. She agrees, and they both push themselves until they collapse on the ground, completely worn out. Izumi thanks her for hanging in there, and Yui admits that she actually hates running, but she keeps going because she wants her friends to be happy. A few days later, the school sports festival finally arrives. Izumi glances over at Yui and can tell her soul already left her body. The first event is the cavalry battle, and from the sidelines, Shikimori watches Izumi show some unexpected strength and is quietly impressed, even though their team loses badly. Next up is the ball toss, and Yui joins in, still looking like a dead man walking, but with her friends cheering her on, something clicks. People in the crowd start doubting if she can even throw anything with her tiny arms. But suddenly, she goes full LeBron James on the game, nailing every shot, and ends up winning the round. She's completely drained, but once her friends start cheering, she lights up with pride. Then, it's time for the relay race. Neko and Inuzuka say a silent prayer, hoping Izumi doesn't trip this time. Yui looks nervous again, but Shikimori holds her hand and tells her she's scared too. Yui sees through the lie instantly, as she knows Shikimori's a competitor who's been waiting for this. The race starts with Neko taking the lead and absolutely destroying the opening leg. Yui gets the baton next and starts running with a face that says she's ready to chill with Michael Jackson. Her pace starts to slow, and their lead vanishes. Then she trips and falls, and for a moment she just lies there, stuck in her own head, until Izumi suddenly yells her name. She jumps up, pushes through the pain, and passes him the baton. Izumi takes off dead last. At first it seems like he's finally found a groove, until both his shoes gets yeeted. He almost gives up, but then remembers Yui saying the team was counting on him, so he keeps running in socks like he's a horse on crack. The crowd watches in stunned silence. Then Izumi hands the baton to Shikimori, and he fully believes she'll carry them to the finish line. Fueled by his belief in her, she dashes forward like a bolt of lightning, weaving through runners and blowing past everyone while the crowd loses their minds. Inuzuka watches in awe but quickly snaps back when he sees Shikimori's serious face. He realizes if he messes up, she'll probably send him to an adventure with Kazuma. Still, he chooses to trust his team and himself. The moment he gets the baton, Inuzuka kicks it into full gear. His friends shout encouragement from the sidelines, and he runs like his life depends on it. Against all odds, he crosses the finish line first. Their team wins, and the whole squad erupts with joy. Izumi runs straight to Shikimori and hugs her tight, telling her she's the coolest girl in the world. Yui watches them with a smile, feeling grateful. As for once, she doesn't mind how hard it was. She just feels lucky to have such amazing friends in her life. Years ago in the Izumi household, it's just a normal morning. Izumi's mom, Motoko, always looking amazing, wakes him up for school. Young Izumi heads out and almost gets hit by a bicycle, but instead of freaking out, he just brushes it off like it's another ordinary day. At school, the nurse patches him up and tells him not to worry about the upcoming field trip because she'll be there too. During gym class, some classmates invite Izumi to join their group for the trip. He hesitates, knowing his bad luck, but they say it's okay. After school, while walking home, a giant teddy bear almost breaks one friend's neck. Izumi instantly knows his bad luck caused it. Because of that, he decides not to go on the trip, but instead he visits a temple and prays hard, begging the gods to give him the strength to endure all the pain. Read the script, please. Take the scene from 510. Back in the present, Izumi walks home with Shikimori. He tells her how much he likes just being with her away from everyone else. He asks her out again, saying it's been a while since their last date. First he suggests a spa, and Shikimori is fine with that. But then he switches to an amusement park, and when he shows her a video of a couple kissing at the amusement park, Shikimori really wants to go, as she's eager to do the same. A few days later, Shikimori is at the mall with her brother Fuji, who's there to drive her and accompany her. They split up so Shikimori can shop, but she can't decide which look will make Izumi fall in love with her more, so she leaves the store empty-handed. Suddenly, she runs into Fuji, caught between two flirty girls trying to get him to come home with them. Shikimori sees how shy Fuji is and pulls him away to save him. When the girls ask who she is, Shikimori Shikimori just stares, and they back off, thinking she's Fuji's girlfriend. Fuji is embarrassed that his little sister had to save him, and Shikimori teases him for being a scrub who can't bag a baddie, which annoys Fuji. In their past, younger Shikimori used to practice karate with Fuji, and she easily gets beaten. To tease her, Fuji called her trash, which also pushed her to get better. At home, their strict mom, who's a horrible cook, makes burnt food, but when Fuji eats it, Shikimori always follows his example. Then Fuji tells Shikimori he won't come to her dojo anymore, and she'll have to go on her own. Their mom asks if Shikimori will keep doing karate, crediting Fuji for sparking her interest, and Shikimori says yes, happy to make her mom proud. At school, some girls get bullied by annoying guys. When Shikimori shows up ready to tack them a lesson, the boys get scared and leave. The girls thank her and say the boys probably have a crush on Shikimori, but she doesn't understand what romance is at all. Years later, Shikimori's still at karate class and faces Fuji in a match. She thinks she can win, but Fuji easily beats her, saying she's still trash. Afterwards, they walk home, and Fuji asks what kind of umbrella she uses. She doesn't know, as she just follows whatever's popular, and that annoys Fuji. Then Fuji surprises her by declaring that he's quitting karate, even though he's the champion. Shikimori's annoyed he just does whatever he wants, but Fuji tells her she needs to find her own path, not follow him, their mom, or anyone else. The next day at school, a friend asks Shikimori if she reads manga. She says no, but admits she sometimes reads her brother's manga. Her friend gets excited and lends her a new manga. Then, reading it alone in her room, Shikimori feels her heart race at the romantic story and thinks how wonderful romance can truly be. Days later, Shikimori wins a karate tournament and qualifies for nationals, but instead of competing, she tells her friends she's quitting karate to experience romance. She starts dressing up, uses contact lenses to look cuter, and works out to lose weight, all to transform into who she wants to be. Months later, it's her debut as a cute schoolgirl, and she has one mission in mind: find a guy worth dating. That's when she spots Izumi standing awkwardly next to a janitor, staring up at a tree. Turns out his exam ticket got blown into the branches. The janitor offers to grab a ladder, but Shikimori steps in and says she'll climb up and get it herself. Izumi freaks out, worried something bad might happen, especially since he knows how cursed his luck is, but she climbs up anyway and grabs the ticket like it's no big deal. He thanks her for the save, but Shikimori tears up, realizing she made herself look manly in front of a boy. A few days later, the two cross paths again at school. Izumi goes up to thank her for helping him out, and while they talk, he casually mentions his never-ending bad luck. Then he says he's really glad he got to see her again, and that simple line hits Shikimori hard, making her heart beats faster. As he tries to leave, flustered, she stops him and asks for his name. That ends up being the real start of everything between them. Now back in the present, Shikimori opens up to her brother about how she still sometimes struggles with self-doubt. Even with how far she's come, she admits she doesn't always feel pretty enough. While they're out shopping, she notices a fancy lipstick in one of the stores, one she really likes but doesn't buy due to the price. Her brother Fuji watches her and starts to reflect on how much she's grown. He remembers the little sister who used to tag along behind him, and now here she is, full of her own dreams and confidence. That night, as Shikimori is getting ready for a date, she finds that same lipstick sitting on her desk with a note from Fuji wishing her good luck, and she realizes that he bought it for her. The next day, she wears the lipstick with a smile and heads out to meet Izumi, leaving behind a brother who couldn't be more proud of the person she's become. At the amusement park, Izumi waits excitedly for his date, as he's been planning everything perfectly. When Shikimori arrives, looking stunning in her blazer, Izumi can't help but feel his heart race. They head inside, and Shikimori looks a little lost about where to start, but Izumi sticks to his plan and takes her costume shopping first. He offers her some furry ears to wear, but Shikimori isn't a fan. Still, when Izumi says how much he wants to see her in them, she gives in and agrees to try some costumes. Then, instead of the ears, she pulls out a Dracula cape, adjusts it perfectly, and Izumi loves the look. Next, they try to ride the Sleeping Beauty attraction, but see the wait is 90 minutes long. They both feel a little discouraged, but to lighten the mood, Izumi uses his smooth talk and charms Shikimori by chatting about the ride. But when she admits she doesn't really know the Sleeping Beauty story, Izumi is surprised, and Shikimori says she prefers comics where Superman claps Batman while Goku watches from a closet. Izumi asks if she has any dreams, but Shikimori turns the question around, teasing him by saying her dream is already real because she has Izumi as her boyfriend. While others suffer waiting in line, Izumi and Shikimori wait happily, talking for the whole 90 minutes. When they finally get on the ride, Shikimori is amazed by the Sleeping Beauty story, having never seen it before. Izumi, on the other hand, gets bored and falls asleep. She notices him snoozing just as the prince kisses Sleeping Beauty. When she tries to follow the story by kissing him, the ride ends. Later, Izumi suggests they pick a ride with a shorter wait next time, but Shikimori says she doesn't care about the ride, as long as Izumi is the main event. They run off to their next adventure and spend the whole day having fun. Then bad luck strikes, and Izumi's restaurant reservation gets cancelled because of a mistake. He thinks the dinner plan is ruined, but the restaurant surprises them with a nicer table. They feel out of place, especially Izumi in his chopped-looking jacket. But when the food comes, the tension melts away. Shikimori asks Izumi to look into her eyes and say what he sees. Hesitant, he replies that he sees himself, and she smiles, happy with that answer. Izumi returns the favor, telling her he only sees her, which makes Shikimori melt. After dinner, Izumi asks what she wants to do next, and she says she wants to do what they saw in the commercial. He agrees, surprising her, but he actually doesn't know what she means. She's a little disappointed but reassures him she's still having fun. They take a boat ride to enjoy the night view, but just as they try to take a selfie, the lights go out due to a power failure. Using their phones for light, Shikimori holds Izumi's hand and kisses it, and this makes Izumi's knees weak. She tells him how happy she is, as it feels like a dream she never wants to end, where it's just the two of them. Izumi steps up his game, and suddenly kisses her cheek. She melts, and then he leans in harder, telling her how much he loves her and wants to be with her forever. The lights come back on, but Shikimori refuses to let go of Izumi, as she doesn't want this beautiful dream to end. The next day, Inuzuka notices something's different about Izumi, who nervously thinks about what he did to his girlfriend the day before. Meanwhile, Neko and Yui quiz Shikimori about what happened. When Yui guesses that Izumi kissed her, Neko freaks out at the thought of it. Shikimori spills the tea, disappointing the girls that Izumi didn't have the guts to go further, but she says she wants to keep an open heart for him, to get closer and think about the future together.
The lonely bastard who has no friends except for his right hand. He was so ignored by the world that he lost any hope of getting laid. However, everything changed when the hottest baddie in school became interested in him and wanted to clap him. It all began one day when Shiraishi sat alone in class, lost in thoughts of how useless and worthless his life seemed because he was completely ghosted by everyone in the world. But then, Kubo, the prettiest girl in school, approached him. She was the only one who ever noticed his disgusting face. She immediately glanced at his phone and discovered that the ugly doofus was making a bucket list filled with nasty things he wanted to do, so she snapped a photo of it to use as leverage. So when the useless teacher, who was a literal house rat, started lecturing, Kubo threatened Shiraishi to carry out some humiliating tasks in class, or she would share his list with the school's WhatsApp group, so he did as she demanded. Throughout that day, Shiraishi resented Kubo for forcing him to do those embarrassing acts. However, Kubo explained that she wasn't the villain in his story. She was just trying to help his paper bag face get noticed in school and avoid fading into obscurity. The following day at school, Kubo approached Shiraishi, seething with anger. Shiraishi asked her what was wrong, but she refused to say. He offered her a drink to calm her down, but she declined. Confused, Shiraishi admitted he had no idea why she was upset, so Kubo decided to punish him by sitting on his thighs. As she did just that, the dude lost 1,000,000 brain cells and nearly had a seizure. After the torment, she got up and mentioned that the reason for her anger was a secret she would reveal another time. Later that day in class, Kubo saw Shiraishi talking to the pen-sized teacher and asked if he was asking a question. Shiraishi explained that he was trying to make sure the teacher knew he existed and had actually attended class that day. As part of Kubo's plan to help the poor loser get noticed in class, she raised her hand as if to answer a question, and when the Smurf teacher called on her, she shifted the attention to Shiraishi. The two absolute menaces spent the rest of the day answering questions in class like they were ChatGPT. At the end of the school day, Kubo asked Shiraishi for his social messenger username so she could buzz him up. But before the ugly ass could give it to her, two random students invited Kubo to lunch. So she ditched Shiraishi's worthless ass. Shortly after, Shiraishi got home and remembered that the latest Call of Duty game was being released that day, so the lonely nerd rushed out to be the first to buy it. Unfortunately, he couldn't get a copy because he was too ugly to be noticed, so he went to the park to sulk. A little later, he ran into Kubo at the park and explained his sad situation to her. To cheer the sad shitface up, Kubo decided to take a picture of him so he could finally have a photo of himself for the first time in his sad, depressing life. But when she tried, the phone's camera couldn't detect his face because it was too ugly, and the sensor mistook it for dog poop. She tried again, and this time decided to take a selfie with him, but the savage camera only recognized her face. After numerous attempts, she finally managed to get one decent picture of him. As she was leaving, Kubo remembered to get Shirai's social messenger username so she could send him the selfie. They exchanged usernames, and she said goodbye, promising to hang out with him another day. That night, Shiraishi couldn't stop thinking about Kubo, the first girl ever to exchange Discord contacts with him. As he stared at his phone, a message from Kubo suddenly popped up, asking if he'd like to hang out sometime soon, catching him off guard since he hadn't expected her actually to reach out. He quickly replied, faster than a disgusting fatso on a Snickers bar, saying he was more than okay with hanging out. The next day at school, Shiraishi felt drowsy in class after staying up all night playing Fortnite. He considered taking a nap, thinking no one would notice since he was practically invisible to everyone. As he glanced over, he saw Kubo already dozing off, and he was captivated by her beauty. Just then, she turned and looked at him, which caused the loser's brain to have a partial reset. Later that day, Shirishi was walking down the hall, completely drained after an intense sports activity. He suddenly ran into Kubo and immediately tried to retreat, worried she might catch the horrible stench coming from his sweaty, disgusting body. To his surprise, she approached him, took a sniff, and told him that his disgusting odor was actually rizzing her up. The following afternoon, Shirishi discovered that the latest volume of his favorite manga had just been released, so he hurried to the bookstore to grab a copy. As soon as he arrived, Kubo spotted him struggling with the automatic sliding door, which seemed to reject him because even technology hated his toxic face. After several useless attempts to enter, Kubo took pity on him and helped him with the stubborn door. Once inside, Shirishi explained to Kubo that the doors often didn't respond to him because he was so insignificant and practically non-existent. A few minutes later, Kubo asked him what he was there to buy, noticing that he was aimlessly wandering around the bookstore like a useless thief. So he showed her the latest manga he came to get. Kubo was thrilled because she also loved reading manga, but when she moved to grab a copy, she realized that previous volumes were sold out. She then asked Shirishi if she could borrow a copy from his extensive manga collection, and he agreed. As they left the bookstore and headed home, Kubo realized that she and Shirishi lived just 5 minutes away from each other, so she insisted on dropping by his shank. Hearing this, the dude almost gave up the ghost, but with no other choice, the worthless simp led her to his home. On getting to his crib, Shirishi gave her the manga, promising to lend her more if she needed them. Kubo then asked what time he usually left for school, but little did the moron know that she was planning to accompany him to school every day from then on. The next morning, Kubo woke up determined to win over her crush, Shirishi. She bathed, put on her school uniform, and applied her sister Akina's best hair mist. Akina immediately noticed something was off, and during breakfast her last 2 brain cells finally clicked. She imagined that Kubo was trying to impress someone, so she moved closer and sniffed Kubo's hair, discovering that her sister had used her expensive hair mist. With her theory confirmed, Akina asked Kubo if she had a crush, which caught Kubo off guard. Flustered, Kubo tried to dodge the question and quickly left for school. On her way to school, she hid behind a wall to secretly wait for Shirishi. Soon enough, Anme's most unfortunate victim arrived with his usual messed up face. On seeing him, Kubo immediately jumped out from her hiding spot, startling Shirishi. She demanded they walk to school together, but was disappointed when Shirishi didn't notice the effort she had put into looking good and smelling like mint. After walking for a while, they sat down, and they were soon joined by Tama and Hazuki, Kubo's friends, who completely overlooked Shirishi until Kubo pointed him out. Feeling uncomfortable around the girls, Shirishi quickly made his exit. Tama then told Kubo she was impressed that Kubo had managed to spot Shirishi, saying it meant good luck would come her way. However, despite being accompanied to school by Kubo and her baddies, Shirishi's life quickly returned to its usual state of loneliness and invisibility. After school that day, Shirishi was walking home, worn out from a tough day, when a car splashed him with water, soaking him completely. He wondered why life seemed to treat him worse than a stray dog. Embarrassed but determined to get home, he continued his walk and unexpectedly ran into Kubo, who offered to escort him home so he could dry off. When they reached Shirishi's place, he realized he had left his key inside and was locked out. In desperation, he considered washing up at the park like a homeless hobo, but Kubo suggested he come to her house instead to clean up and dry off. A few minutes later, they arrived at Kubo's home, and on getting inside her room, the disgusting cultured idiot immediately noticed her arsenal of plot armor and began to have nasty thoughts, so Shirishi covered up her treasury from his cultured eyes. However, being inside a girl's room was giving him a hard time in more ways than one. So after taking a shower, the chief loner wore Kubo's tracksuit, thanked her, and headed home to his loneliness. The following day at school, Shirishi found Kubo on the staircase and returned her tracksuit, thanking her for letting him borrow it. Curious, Kubo asked if the tracksuit fit him well, and Shirishi confirmed it did. Hearing his response, she inquired about his height, and he told her he was 5'4". In response, she playfully climbed a few steps and teasingly mentioned that she liked short guys because the shorter they were, the more rugged they seemed. A few weeks later, it was the end of the second semester exams, marking the start of the holidays. After class, Kubo tried to strike up a conversation with Shirishi, but he quickly excused himself, telling her that he had plans for the day. Later, Shirishi took his younger brother, Sita, to the park. While watching Sita play in the snow, his peaceful time was interrupted by Kubo, who offered him a drink. He politely declined, but Sita arrived and eagerly asked for the drink. Shiraishi refused to give it to him, which made Seda sad. Seeing the disappointed look on Seda's face, Kubo handed him the drink, instantly making him the happiest kid around. Later that day, Shiraishi was home alone and decided to catch up on some manga. However, he realized he'd been reading the same series for a while and needed something new, so he headed to the bookstore to get the latest release of his favorite weekly magazine. Inside the store, he cited some steamy magazines that charged his magnum. Feeling too embarrassed to go pick up the magazine, he remembered no one would probably notice him, so with all the confidence in the world, he headed to the magazine shelf. Getting to the shelf, he stared at the ginormous milker of the model posing on the front cover of the magazine. However, Shiraishi was startled when Akina, who was an attendant at the store, approached him. She told him he was too young to be looking at such soz material. Panicked, Shiraishi tried to hide the magazine, but it was too late. At that moment, Shiraishi wondered how this nosy girl had even noticed him. He glanced at her name tag and was shocked to realize that her last name was also Kubo. He quickly handed the magazine back to Akina and hurried out of the store, but not before accidentally dropping his school ID. Akina picked it up and noticed that Shiraishi attended the same school as her sister Kubo. That evening, she brought the ID home and showed it to Kubo, describing the owner as a disgusting creepy guy she had caught staring at the humongous globes of models and magazine. Upon seeing the ID, Kubo's mood immediately dropped as she realized her crush liked thick giant, rather than her flat plots flatter than a surfboard. The next morning at school, Kubo returned Shiraishi's student ID and he was surprised, wondering how she had gotten it. She revealed that her sister had found it at the bookstore, which clued Shiraishi in that the menace incarnate who caught him there was actually Kubo's sister. Kubo then bluntly asked him if he liked women with large chesticles, and before he could respond, she walked away, calling him a weirdo. Later that day in class, Kubo reminded Shiraishi of his promise to hang out together, so he asked her to pick a date. So she chose Christmas Day for their outing. When Christmas arrived, Shiraishi made his way to the train station for their date but couldn't find Kubo at first. He waited and soon enough, Kubo arrived, grabbed his hand and handed him a gift she had bought for him, telling him it was his Christmas present. She told him it was his Christmas gift and then demanded they do a gift exchange. But the psycho explained that the kind of gift he wanted was the one that could fix his disgusting face. However, Kubo continued to insist he get her a gift, but the dude was a complete broke ass, so she had to literally push his ass to go into the store. After several hours, Shiraishi came back with a mitten and apologized for being a brokey as that was the only thing he could afford. However, Kudo was not like the gold-digging IG baddies, so she accepted his poor gift and told him she liked it. The next day in school, Shiraishi, who had a poor fashion sense, wore socks of unequal length and was ashamed of how they looked on him because he thought they would make him look cool like Kanye West. Just then, Kubo and her friends walked into the classroom discussing Valentine's Day. Shiraishi stared at Kubo and realized she seemed different than usual, so he wondered what could be wrong. Shortly afterward, just when Shiraishi thought he had made it through the day without anyone noticing his weird dress sense, Kubo approached him and asked for his help in putting up a signpost. Kubo then tried putting up the post on the wall herself, but her efforts were as useless as your face, so Shiraishi offered to help her out, but as he tried putting up the signpost, he couldn't because he was shorter than Kevin Hart, so he tried using a chair, but just then, Kubo noticed his odd fashion sense, which embarrassed Shiraishi. A few minutes later, Kubo climbed the chair, posting the warning on the wall, and Shiraishi couldn't stop staring at her hot thighs. Kubo immediately noticed him staring at her thighs and called him an ugly perv, so Shiraishi tried explaining, but he soon began to experience some technical difficulties. Shortly afterward, Kubo invited Shiraishi for a cup of coffee at the convenience store, which stunned him. Later on, they went for coffee, and Shiraishi thought of having meat buns instead. Some hours later, they headed home, and Kubo asked Shiraishi if he wanted to taste her coffee, which he declined. However, she insisted on having a taste of his meat, which shocked him. But before he could say anything, Kubo swallowed the meat whole. Weeks later, on Valentine's Day, in order to get in the girls' panties, all the worthless losers butter up the girls with kindness. However, for Shiraishi, Valentine's Day was just an ordinary, boring day because his single ass had no girl to call his own. He had a track record of being forgotten by everyone, but on this particular Valentine, he received an incognito chocolate gift under his desk and wondered who would have thought it important to give him a gift. At that moment, he immediately thought of Kubo as she was the only girl in the world who had taken notice of his pathetic ass. Following this, Kubo approached Shiraishi, and he asked her about the sudden chocolate gift, but she denied it. Meanwhile, the day before Valentine's, Kubo had tried making chocolates with Akina, which she flawed as she was a Gen Z baddie who didn't know how to cook. And at the 99th trial, she was finally able to make a bar of reasonable chocolate. On seeing the chocolate, Akina assured her that whoever she was giving the chocolate gift to was indeed lucky as she made it with love, which made Kubo flustered. On the other hand, in Shiraichi's room, he wondered who would have been responsible for giving him the bar of chocolate. The next day at school, during lunch, Shiraishi, who had been eating in odd places around the school because of his invisibility issue, decided to eat outside the school for a change. As he sat down to enjoy his lunch, he unexpectedly encountered Kubo, who insisted on joining him. When Shiraishi opened his lunchbox, Kubo peered inside and noticed that he had brought a rather fancy intercontinental dish. She immediately suggested they trade meals, and as she tried to feed him her omelette with her hand, Shiraishi became tense and quickly grabbed the food, not letting her feed him. Shortly after, Shiraishi returned the gesture, feeding her some of his food. The way the thirsty chick ate it in a Saz manner triggered Shiraishi's senses, and bro turned from anime to manga. Later that day, in the school cafeteria, Kubo was hanging out with her friends, and the conversation drifted toward relationships. Tama noticed that Kubo had been glowing recently, and with a curious tone, asked if she had a crush. Kubo was taken aback by the question, but after some persistent prodding by the girls, she finally admitted that she did indeed have a crush on Shiraishi. The revelation left the girls in shock, as they couldn't believe that Kubo, of all people, would fall for a useless nobody who was literally insignificant and invisible to the world. However, Kubo couldn't stand to hear them mock her feelings and sternly told them to keep their opinions to themselves. She hated that they were roasting her Prince Charming and ordered them to shut their filthy mouths. She revealed to them that his invisibility was rizzing her up. Seeing how serious she was, Hazuki playfully teased Kubo, asking how she would react if she saw her hot love interest talking with another girl. This question left Kubo momentarily speechless. The following day, Shiraishi arrived at school early, thinking he was the first one there, only to find Kubo already in the classroom. She insisted that they sit together and listen to some Lil Baby songs. After enjoying some tunes from Kubo's phone, she playfully demanded they listen to music from Shiraishi's phone as well. This request caught him off guard since his playlist was filled with whack old school blues from the 80s, not exactly the kind of music he thought would impress her. Several weeks later, Shiraishi decided it was time to give a gift to the person who had anonymously given him a Valentine's Day chocolate. Assuming that Kubo, being as sharp as she was, might know who the mysterious person was, he picked out a gift from a store and handed it to her, hoping she could help him deliver it to the right person. Kubo was surprised that the dense, brain-dead guy couldn't put his brain cells to good use and figured out that she was the one who actually gave him the Valentine's gift. Keeping her cool, she promised to help him find the right person to give the gift to. In the weeks that followed, Shiraishi began to notice something strange. Normally, whenever he dropped his wallet or ID, it would go unnoticed by everyone around him. But recently, whenever he dropped something, people started to notice and pick it up for him. On this particular day, he dropped his handkerchief, and a blue-haired girl picked it up and handed it back to him. As Shiraishi looked at her, he couldn't help but think her flat plot resembled Kubo's. Just then, Akina appeared and called the girl Saki. Akina quickly recognized Shiraishi as the ugly creep she had caught ogling steamy magazines at the store. With a teasing grin, Akina introduced herself as Kubo's sister and Saki as their cousin. This confirmed Shiraishi's suspicion that flat plots flatter than the latest iPhones seemed to run in their family, and it became clear that Kubo's relatives shared the uncanny ability to notice him. Later that day, Akina and Saiki returned home and told Kubo about their encounter with Shiraishi. Akina even mentioned that she had exchanged Discord usernames with him, which piqued Kubo's interest. The next day in class, Shiraishi was informed by the teacher about an upcoming exam. He knew he had to buckle down and study. His mom had threatened to take away his entire manga collection if he failed. Determined not to lose his prized manga, Shiraishi headed to the library later that day, hoping for some peace and quiet to study. Still, he couldn't have a moment of peace as Kubo wouldn't allow the poor victim to be. Shiraishi asked her what she wanted, and she insisted on helping him study. Kubo immediately brought out an eyeglass and informed him she would be his hot teacher. She began by asking Shiraishi that a hard object and a sack are often referred to as blackjack, but Shiraishi had no idea what the heck the nutcase was talking about. After the hands-on lesson, Kubo left, promising they would continue studying together the next day. However, the following day, Shiraishi couldn't attend school. He had come down with a high fever and had to stay home. Meanwhile, in class, the useless teacher, who resembled a Roblox character, announced that Shiraishi was sick and wouldn't be attending. Kubo spent the entire day feeling lonely and downcast because of Shiraishi's absence. She thought about sending him a get-well message and even considered offering to visit him at home, but she hesitated and erased the message. Instead, she sent him a simple message asking if he would be able to come to school the next day. Shiraishi received the message and replied that he would try his best to make it. Just as Shiraishi finished sending his reply, his little brother Sita burst into his room, eager to play. In an attempt to get his attention, Sita accidentally tapped Shiraishi's phone, sending an "I miss you" emoji to Kubo. When Kubo received the message, she was surprised but sent back a response with hugs and kisses. The next day, Shiraishi, now strong, arrived at school to find Kubo, who, upon seeing him, became dizzy at how ugly Shiraishi's face had become and almost passed out. She insisted on going to the school nurse, and as she headed, Shiraishi, who was concerned for her health, held her hands and informed her he wanted to accompany her to the infirmary, which made Kubo excited. On getting to the infirmary, they couldn't find the crackhead nurse, so Shiraishi placed Kubo on the bed and covered her up. As Shiraishi headed to find the worthless nurse, Kubo held his hands and thanked him, causing him to jizz in his pants. Some days later, Shiraishi was excited that he had managed to pass the final exams so his video game would not be seized. While he thought about this, Kubo appeared and asked him why he was that happy. He immediately thanked her for helping him with the tutoring, and she replied that they should do more of it together in the future. However, Shiraishi replied that they are most likely to end up in different classes in the new academic year, and as Kubo agreed to this, the miserable idiot reasoned that the period when he was found by Kubo is about to come to an end. Several moments later, Kubo brought out her umbrella and asked Shiraishi if he had brought one, but he replied that he didn't need to since the rain was forecasted to fall later in the evening. Kubo thought this was perfect and asked that they do an experiment. If they shared an umbrella, would other people notice him? Shiraishi instantly dismissed this, claiming that he would be noticed, and he left. However, it suddenly started to rain, and Kubo saw this as her chance to carry out her experiment. She immediately gave him her umbrella, offering to run home in the rain instead. However, he was uncomfortable watching her go in the rain because he quickly ran after her, and the experiment began. As they walked home in the rain, he reasoned that he had to make sure their shoulders were not brushing, but he soon realized that this seemed like a couple's thing. So he suggested they pass through an empty area where it was unlikely that they would be seen together. After bursting out by the road, Shiraishi was relieved that they had managed to avoid being seen, but Kubo suddenly referred to the fact that they had been alone all the while and asked him if he had done this intentionally, embarrassing him. They later separated, and as soon as Kubo got home, Akina told her that Seki was coming to visit on Saturday. Fast forward to Saturday, as Sareki walked across the town. He noticed Saki struggling with some heavy loads, so he offered to help her with them. Meanwhile, Kubo became worried at home that Saki was taking too late to return, so she dashed out of the house in search of her. As Saki and Shiraishi walked together, she asked him what his relationship was with Kubo, whether he was her boyfriend or best friend, but Bro said that they were just classmates. Saki inferred that this meant that they were not close and then bragged that she was close to Kubo, which was why they called each other by their first names. Saki then claimed that she was sure that he didn't know Kubo's first name. Shiraishi defended that he knew her name, so Saki dared him to say it. Kubo met them about this, and Saki told her about it, so she joined her in asking Shiraishi to call her first name, which he eventually timidly called. The following week, while in class, Shiraishi got bored while the short goblin in front taught them, so he decided to dismantle his pen to get busy. However, he lost his spring and immediately felt like a fool under Kubo's watchful eyes. She asked him why he did something so childish and stupid, and he replied that he was curious how it worked. He claimed he should be fine without the pen for the day, but he was shocked when the goblin soon gave them a classwork assignment requiring a red pen. Kubo offered him her girly pen and told him not to let his intrusive thoughts kick in again. Later, after the class, while some students discussed that it was their last day together as a class, Shiraishi just left the class silently like a loner. Later that night, Kubo and her friends had a sleepover and decided to waste the entire screen time. During the break, Shiraishi and his little brother, who resembled a pig, went out to do some shopping for his mom at the grocery store. Meanwhile, since Saki and Kubo were also having a viewing picnic, they decided to prepare lunch, but Kubo excluded herself from the cooking plans because she only knew how to boil water, making Saki sad. However, she held Kubo's hands and told her she would be okay, even if only what Kubo did was to eat her food. They headed to the groceries too, and while they selected the necessary ingredients, Kubo spotted Shirishi and his disgusting younger brother with fat-ass cheeks and immediately went over to meet him, patting Seida's head as she met him. Saki also quickly joined them, and as soon as Seida saw her, he became shy because this was the first time she was seeing someone pretty in a long time of living among horrible creatures like himself. Akina, loving what she was seeing, soon joined them too and asked Shirishi to help them stuff the items they just bought since it seemed like he was a master at it. Afterward, she invited Shirishi and his little brother to the picnic they were having the next day, to which he agreed. Akina then cunningly asked Kubo, who had opted out of the cooking before, if she was still unwilling to cook as she said earlier, making her speechless. Upon returning home, Kubo was the first to go to the kitchen and start trying to prepare lunch by herself, but the idiot didn't even know how to chop onions. Saki soon joined her and tried to put her through, but Kubo accidentally injured herself, making Saki sad. She told her to allow her to prepare the hamburger steak alone. Kubo became remorseful, sitting like her boyfriend just left her, but Akina soon intervened and gave some TED talk-worthy lecture on learning from mistakes. She then pleaded with Saki to allow Kubo to do it herself while she assisted, making Kubo's eyes light up. Kubo approached them and told Saki she would really love to make the hamburger steak. Afterward, they prepared the steaks together, and Kubo cooked the steak so well on the first try that it would make Gordon Ramsay feel like an amateur. The next day, they all met at cherry blossom viewing and began to eat lunch. Seida went all red as his newfound began to feed him, and as they all ate, Shirishi noticed the hamburger steaks, but it was not within his reach. Hence, he decided to make do with what was before him, and he didn't want to appear as a glutton. However, Kubo noticed this and took some for him, surprising him as Kubo waited for him to taste it. As soon as he did, he complimented how delicious it was, making her blush. Meanwhile, Akina, who had been observing them all along while she fried her liver, got up and moved closer to Shirishi to start to get saws with him as the idiot pretended as though he wasn't enjoying it. But a guy's meat doesn't lie. Kubo got angry and left while Shirishi felt that he had messed up. He followed after her, and his younger brother, noticing that there was a fight, told him to make up with her. However, when he tried to, Kubo only told him it wasn't even his fault. But bro knew too well not to believe women whenever they made such statements, so he got sad and bent down. Seida immediately ran to grab Kubo and told her to make up with his older brother, who was about to cry. She went to meet him and told him that it really wasn't his fault, even though Shirishi still believed that he messed up. They made up and headed back to the other two while holding one another's hands. A couple of weeks later, Shirishi resumed his second year, and his lonely, miserable life continued with no one noticing him. He soon got to his class and shockingly discovered that he and Kubo were placed in the same class again, with her seat beside him. Kubo was excited about them being seat neighbors for another year, but she suddenly remembered that there would be no class change in the third year, which meant that they'd be together till graduation. However, bro got so shy that he kept staring out of the window the whole time, and he reasoned that even though nobody usually noticed him, Kubo always found him and played with him, which he never thought was going to be possible. Meanwhile, Kubo met with the numbskulls she called friends, who chose to celebrate their being together in the same class again. They asked about Shirishi, wondering if he was placed in a different class since they had not seen him anywhere, but Kubo replied that he was also in their class, shocking them that Kubo's Shirishi spotting skills were crazy. Later that night, when Kubo got home, Akina asked about her first day at school in her new class, and she replied that Tama and Hazuki were in the same class with her. However, Akina further asked about Shirishi, leaving her wondering why her sister was so particular about him. However, Akina replied that Shirishi was the only other classmate she knew besides Tama and Hazuki. The next day at school, the little goblin announced that they would all be choosing their student committees. Hearing this, Kubo asked Shirishi what committee he would choose, but he replied that he would choose whatever was left over since the teacher wouldn't notice him anyway since he was the miserable version of Mr. Invisible. She then talked about him being on the environmental committee the previous year, surprising that she noticed. She stated that the flower beds he was watering became the seventh wonder of the school because everyone thought they were blossoming despite no one taking care of them, shocking Shirishi. Bro considered unaliving himself at this point because of how useless his existence was. Meanwhile, the down-to-earth teacher suddenly asked if anyone wanted to be on the environmental committee since he was the advisor for that year, but no one raised their hands. He became short of words and almost began to cry. However, Kubo suddenly volunteered to join, making him scurry toward her in excitement. He then asked if any boy would join, and Kubo instantly declared that Shiraishi had raised his hand even though he hadn't. He asked her why she did that, and she said she had always admired him the previous year when he made those flowers wet, and that she wouldn't mind if he made her flower wet too. Later, after the class, some idiots began to gossip about the fact that Shiraishi must have joined the environmental committee because of Kubo, but a guy named Sudo defended him by telling them that Shiraishi was on the committee the previous year too, surprising Shiraishi, who was watching from afar, that someone else also noticed. After that, they all headed to the lab, where Shiraishi realized he was in the same group as Kubo and Sudo. He soon realized that Sudo had forgotten to bring his eraser, so he thought of giving it to him out of the 5 he had, but he was too shy to talk. Kubo noticed this and immediately set him up, which led Shiraishi and Sudo to start talking. Sudo revealed that he had been meaning to talk to him, saying he also looked after flower beds the previous year, but they all withered, unlike Shiraishi's own, which blossomed. He had wanted to ask him what his secret was but looked for him all year and couldn't find him. As they later returned from the lab, Shiraishi thanked Kubo for initiating his talk with Sudo, as this was the first time he enjoyed talking with someone else at school other than her. Kubo got rizzed up and excused herself immediately to blush at the fact that Shiraishi said he always enjoyed talking with her. The following day, Kubo approached Shiraishi with a suggestion. They should have a staring contest. Although hesitant, Shiraishi agreed. Kubo ended up winning, and her excitement bubbled over as she declared that, as the loser, Shiraishi would have to greet her first thing the next morning. Later, while Shiraishi was enjoying the cool spring breeze by the window, some students unknowingly cleaned the chalkboard erasers right next to him, covering his disgusting face in dust. As he went to brush off the chalk, Kubo appeared behind him, offering her assistance. Though Shiraishi tried to decline, Kubo moved closer and gently wiped the dust from his hair, making his heart race. She then commented on the thickness of his hair and invited him to touch hers, which he did after a moment of hesitation. Turning to face him, Kubo asked what hairstyles he preferred on girls. Shiraishi answered that as long as the style suited the girl, he liked it. Unsatisfied with his vague response, Kubo pressed him further, asking which style would look best on her. As she began listing options, Shiraishi shyly admitted she looked nice with a ponytail, then awkwardly walked away. Afterward, Kubo wondered if she should wear a ponytail to school the next day. Afterward, in class, the short, ugly teacher informed the students that their physical exams were scheduled for the following day, advising them to be prepared. After the announcement, as Shiraishi was adjusting his chair, he wondered if he had grown taller over the past year. Just then, Kubo approached him, and he thought she was about to voice the opposite of what he thought. However, she surprised him by asking if he had grown taller. Shiraishi was taken aback by her question and explained that, aside from his family, no one had ever noticed or mentioned his growth, so her observation caught him off guard. Kubo then placed her hands on her chest and asked if he thought she had grown bigger, but Shiraishi saw that she was still as flat as a road surface. She then suggested they check their heights by standing against a wall and using a ruler to measure. After measuring his height, Kubo asked him to hold the ruler while she took his place. As she stood in front of him, Shiraishi couldn't help but appreciate the difference in their heights. Kubo noticed his expression and asked what was on his mind, but before Shiraishi could escape since he was embarrassed, she grabbed him, saying she knew he would try to run. However, the idiot proved her just right as he immediately dashed off like Usain Bolt. On getting outside, he realized he still had the ruler and decided to return it the following day. The following day, as agreed, Shiraishi met Kubo and returned the ruler before heading off. Before their physical exams, Kubo suggested Shiraishi lend her his tracksuit jacket so they could finally settle the question of who was taller. Later in the gym, Tenma quickly noticed that Kubo's jacket seemed oversized. However, Kubo fibbed, claiming it was an old jacket that belonged to her sister. Just then, 2 girls walked by, and Kubo overheard one of them mention how she liked wearing her boyfriend's jacket because it carried his scent. Curious, Kubo subtly took a moment to smell Shiraishi's jacket. A few days later, while Shiraishi was discreetly watching over Sita during his first solo errand, Akina happened to run into him. She pointed out that he didn't need to be so cautious since no one would notice him anyway. Not long after, Sita returned with the eggs he was sent to buy, and Akina, brimming with pride, playfully embraced the little boy with ash cheeks and praised him for successfully completing his first task. She then reminisced about Kubo's first errand, sharing how Kubo had come home in tears after tripping and breaking the eggs she was supposed to bring back. Akina recounted how she had comforted Kubo until she calmed down and advised Shiraishi to do the same if Kubo ever needed it. That evening, Akina shared the story with Kubo, reminding her of that day, which made Kubo start to sulk. Akina gently stroked her head to soothe her and casually mentioned how much better it would be if someone she liked did it instead. Kubo fell silent, causing Akina to teasingly ask who came to her mind, but Kubo, blushing, refused to answer. A few days later, Shiraishi was engrossed in an announcement about the upcoming release of a movie adaptation of his favorite manga. His concentration was broken when Kubo suddenly approached him. Startled, Shiraishi explained that he had been lost in thought about the movie, to which Kubo surprised him by suggesting they go watch it together. On the day of the movie outing, they took the subway, which was so packed that Shiraishi had to shield Kubo from getting squished. Kubo felt guilty because people kept bumping into him, seemingly oblivious to his presence. After they exited the train, 3 guys approached Kubo, inviting her to hang out while completely ignoring Shiraishi. Noticing Kubo's discomfort, Shiraishi hesitated, trying to figure out how best to intervene. Finally, he stepped closer to her and spoke up, catching the guys off guard. They wondered how the heck he suddenly got here, as if he had come out of another dimension. But Shiraishi calmly told them he had been there the whole time they were trying to flirt with Kubo. One of the boys asked if they were dating, and just as Shiraishi was about to deny it, Kubo grabbed him and announced that he was her boyfriend. The guys, clearly surprised, quickly backed off, wishing Shiraishi luck. After they left, Kubo thanked him and confessed that she had been a little scared. By the time they arrived at the mall, they noticed that all the best seats were already occupied. Kubo suggested they wait for the next showing, mentioning that she didn't mind staying out late because it gave her more time to spend with him. To pass the time, they decided to explore the mall, starting with a visit to a cafe. When Shiraishi ordered a coffee, Kubo remarked that it made him seem mature, unlike her usual childish persona, and decided to order the same. When he asked if she had ever tried coffee before, she admitted she hadn't. Shiraishi suggested she might prefer juice instead, but when she began to pout, he relented and placed the order. As he considered adding sugar and cream, Kubo noticed that he was drinking his black and decided to do the same. Unfortunately, she found the taste unpleasant and tried his drink, only to realize they were identical. Feeling bad about her first coffee experience, Shiraishi got up to add sugar and cream to both their drinks. Afterward, they headed to the arcade before browsing through a clothing store. While shopping, Kubo noticed the movie was about to start, so they hurried to the cinema. After the movie, Kubo mentioned that Shiraishi's expressions had changed during the film, something that didn't happen often. He explained that he tried not to smile at school because he was concerned that if anyone noticed him, it would be when he was smiling to himself. Shiraishi admitted that he didn't want to be remembered as the guy who smiled at himself, but Kubo reassured him, saying that no matter what expression he wore, she could always understand him perfectly. Later that night, after walking her home, Kubo asked if he would like to hang out with her again, and he agreed. They promised to meet up again before Shiraishi made his way home. The following day after class, Kubo and Shiraishi found themselves alone in the classroom. Since Shiraishi mentioned he hadn't watched the TV program the previous night, Kubo decided to have him take a psychological test. The first question asked how he would shout if he were in a dream, to which Shiraishi replied that he'd probably just shout moo. Kubo playfully teased him, pointing out that it wouldn't be the best reaction if he were being chased by a bear. The next question asked how many flowers he could see blooming, and he answered with just one. His response took Kubo by surprise, leading Shiraishi to worry that he'd said something foolish. However, Kubo reassured him, explaining that it symbolized that he would be loyal to one person for life. Shiraishi was left uncertain whether to feel happy about the prospect of dating someone or concerned that his tendency to go unnoticed might hinder him from finding that person. Kubo then suggested they find another question to answer together. Shiraishi browsed the internet and found one asking how many kittens they could see playing in a room. Shiraishi's answer was 1, while Kubo, being a cat lover, said she saw many. When they looked up the meaning, they were both stunned to learn that it represented the number of children they wanted. Embarrassed by the revelation, Kubo quickly excused herself, saying she needed to head home early, and hurried out of the classroom. A few days later, at Kubo's home, she noticed Akina about to drink some coffee. Kubo asked if she could have some too. However, Akina told her she was still too young for coffee. Kubo then revealed she had already tried coffee before. Surprised, Akina asked when this happened, and Kubo mentioned it was on the day she went out. Akina remembered that day clearly because Kubo had been indecisive about her outfit and had even accepted her offer to style her hair. Just before leaving the house, Kubo had asked if her outfit looked odd, and Akina couldn't help but wonder who had caused her usually confident sister to act so shy and cute. Returning to the present, Akina expressed that while she was glad her sister was maturing, it also made her feel a bit lonely since Kubo used to follow her everywhere when she was younger. Kubo reassured her that even though she was growing up, she still looked up to her sister and liked imitating her. She then playfully grabbed Akina's coffee cup and dashed to her room. The next day at school, Shireishi's stomach growled loudly, drawing the attention of his classmates. Noticing this, Kubo offered him a chocolate bar. When he took it, he noticed she had written a birthday message on it. Shiraishi was surprised and asked how she knew it was his birthday. Kubo confessed that she had seen it on his ID card the day her sister found it. She then handed him a second chocolate bar, which contained a note telling him to check inside his desk. When he did, he discovered a small gift package. Inside was a cute pink figurine. As he held it, he remained silent, leading Kubo to worry if he disliked the gift. However, Shiraishi thanked her and asked when her birthday was. After she told him, she jokingly asked if she should expect a gift from him. He replied that she shouldn't get her hopes up, which made her smile. She then promised to give him a gift next year. Shiraishi admitted that no one usually did anything special for his birthday, so he was genuinely happy she did. As Shiraishi walked home, he couldn't help but wonder why Kubo was the only one who seemed to notice him. Meanwhile, Kubo watched him from the classroom window, reflecting on the first time she became aware of his existence. It had been through Tama's middle school yearbook, where Tama mentioned that Shiraishi was so unnoticeable that people often overlooked him entirely. When they entered high school, Kubo found it curious how no one else seemed to see him, but she was entertained by how people reacted when they finally did. After being seated next to Shiraishi in class, Kubo seized the opportunity to strike up a conversation with him. His shy response intrigued her, and from that moment on, she made it a point to engage with him every day. Will Kubo and Shiraishi eventually date? If you have reached this far, let's confuse the fake fans by commenting "Saws." Also, clap the like button if you love this recap, and subscribe to this channel for more legendary plot adventures.